Well, hello everyone, welcome back to RENNSPORT R1. We are ready for another fantastic evening of racing as we now take to the high banks of Daytona, and of course to the World Centre of Racing. It is round number 6 of the R1 Championship as we're really progressing our way on through this online season before we get on the road to Riyadh. Of course, it's not just me, Lewis McLean in the comedy booth, and it's not George Morgan again because he's very inconsistent. He's very flaky, is Morgan. But regardless, I've got Ewan O'Leary back in the booth ready for what I'm sure will be another fantastic fun round of racing, kind of what we had like in Jeddah.
Exactly, yeah. It's going to be fantastic racing at Daytona, as we always see. Teamwork going to be to the fore, as it always is in this dynamic group phase. And certainly two groups where there are favourites. In Group A, there's certainly favourites to get relegated. Virtus Pro will look to try and beat either Redline or Porsche Coanda to stay in Group A. And I think even if they don't win the round, then they'll be very pleased if they can at least just stay in the group. And second of all, in Group D, where Team Falcons will be absolute favourites to get promoted, bounce straight back from their disappointment last week.
Yeah, Falcons demoted 2 weeks, or 2 rounds rather, in a row. Virtus Pro back in Group A, as is how they started this dynamic group phase. If you're hearing all these groups being thrown around, hearing all these teams being thrown around, let's talk you through a little bit of a format explainer to help you understand what we're doing here tonight.
The RENNSPORT R1 season is about to start with a new format, and here's everything you need to know. The championship is split up into 2 parts. The regular season, containing seeding stage and dynamic group stage, followed by the major at the Esports World Cup. The regular season starts off with 3 seeding rounds. Those are your typical R1 style tournaments in which drivers will be collecting points based on their finishing position, whilst the top 6 in each race will progress into the next round. The points scored by each of the drivers will accumulate towards the points tally of their team. The dynamic group stage separates teams into 4 groups, initially based on the points accumulated during the seeding stage. In rounds 4 through 7, 2 groups will play each week. At the end of the races for that round, the team with the least points scored in its group gets demoted to the one below, whilst the highest scorer per group moves one up. Their position at the end of that week determines the number of championship points they accumulate. As an example, number 1 in the top group, Group A, will receive 12 points, while number 2 in Group C will receive 5. Round 8 is the final round of the dynamic group stage before the major, and the first chance for teams to qualify for the finale at the Esports World Cup. To qualify, you either have to be the best scoring team in Group A or be among the 2 highest scoring teams from Group A or B across the dynamic group stage. If you are the worst scoring team in Group D or one of the 2 teams with the lowest amount of points across the dynamic group stage, your championship ends here. The remaining 6 teams will go to EWC and enter a last chance qualifier round to determine who will join the fight for the RENNSPORT R1 Spring Season Championship at the Esports World Cup.
So there we go. Hope that makes a little bit more sense to you. If you've joined us over the previous couple of rounds, you'll kind of understand the scenario that we're in. Of course, looking at Group A, which we'll be dealing with a little bit later on this evening, it will be Porsche Coanda versus Team Redline versus Virtus Pro. And of course, the top 2 teams there, they've both shared a victory this season when it comes to the overall round. Porsche Coanda, of course, winning at Fuji, and BWM Team Redline, they were victorious last time out in Jeddah. Virtus Pro were able to top Group B, so they moved up into Group A. Mouse drop down into Group B. We'll deal with B and C later on next week. Group D sees Falcons join ERA and Guild. Guild have been the last place team in both of the rounds so far this season. ERA have been the second place teams and picked up a couple of wins, mostly courtesy of Robbie Stapleford working his way through. Falcons, though, as Ewan said earlier, they are really the favourites to work their way through here in round number 6. Let's talk to you about the calendar as well, and about, again, where we've been over this season. We had those opening 3 rounds of the season, which were the seeding phase at Spa, Monza and the Hockenheim Ring. We've done the 2 nights at Fuji. We've done the 2 nights at Jeddah, where, of course, Fuji, as I said, Porsche Coanda were victorious. Jeddah was where Redline were victorious. And now we're at the Daytona road course for the next couple of weeks. After that, for round 7, we're racing on Thursday and Friday, so we can get the season really set and sorted before we head on to round number 8, which is in June. And then, of course, the build-up to the Esports World Cup, which will be coming up in July, rather. Let's, though, talk about the circuit, the Daytona road course. And this is a fantastic one. It's really good for racing. We've seen it before quite a bit in R1. Great overtaking opportunities. Turn 1, you've got the International Horseshoe as well, the West Horseshoe, and then, of course, the iconic Le Mans chicane, the bus stop.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting run down towards turn 1 this week, as it so often is. That's that very sort of gentle bending left-hander through on the brakes. That's the International Horseshoe. That's turn 3. Good overtaking chance down there. Turn 4 will be pretty flat out in these cars before turn 5, the West Horseshoe. Another pretty tight corner and one where overtaking going to be important. Turn 6, one of the most important on the circuit because it determines your run through the whole way through the banking, as you can see through here. It's a gentle turn to the left, but it is absolutely flat out before the Le Mans chicane, which is difficult as ever, and then that run to the line. Are we going to see side-by-side photo finishes tonight down this run towards the tri-oval? I suspect we are.
Yeah, most likely. It's relatively almost a guarantee in this. We've seen some great racing. We've seen some great battling. We've seen some unreal finishes in our time, and of course some big moments when it comes to the races. Practice at the moment is underway, and they'll be moving through into qualifying in a few moments of time. And of course, one of those major things with qualifying, if this is the first time that you're jumping in for R1, they only get a single lap in qualifying. Now, I would say around here, I don't know how you feel about it. I'd say, relatively speaking, it's less important to qualify well. It's a big slipstream race. You can work your way up the order. I'm pretty sure in the past when we've used the circuit, I'm pretty sure the winner does generally come from the top 4.
Yeah, I think it is important to be somewhere towards the front, but I wouldn't worry too much about getting pole every time around this circuit. It's not that necessarily important to be on pole like it might be at some other circuits. But yeah, you do want to be in that first third, or certainly the first half, to avoid any trouble down in towards turn 1. We've seen for week after week now that can be a problem around any circuit, and I feel like Daytona is going to be very, well, it's not going to be any different in towards turn number 1. So you're going to want to be in that top half just to try and stay out of trouble more than anything, and then move your way forward in the slipstream, as is going to be very possible around this circuit.
Yeah, indeed. We do also have a couple of qualifying bands to talk to you about. I'd say a couple. The list, I'm pretty sure, is 6 drivers long. But they're all car numbers here, so we'll update you once we get into the session. One that I do know, or I'm pretty sure Darren McCormack has a qualifying band, so he'll be starting at the rear end of the Group A race, which will follow the first of the Group D races. So a few things to look out for, a few things to be observant of. But when we're really talking about the race that's focused a little bit on Group D, Falcons, they are in an unreal position to surely bounce straight back. They're so confident, they're so fast as a team, but they have had their confidence hit quite a lot over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they will have done, and you get worried at that stage. And I spoke about it, the first or the second week, actually, after the 3 teams got relegated from 3 of the groups. You just don't want that to become a recurring theme. You don't want to get stuck in that cycle. It looks like Falcons were stuck in that cycle, unfortunately, when they were in Group C last week, and they've got to bounce back. And it's an even quicker turnaround, of course, as well. They would have had a week off in between their first 2 rounds when they actually came quite close to the top of the group in Group B at Fuji. Then in Group C, wasn't particularly close, unfortunately, for them, but it's only 1 week ago. So they've got to really bounce back very quickly, and they should have the drivers to do it, and indeed the group opponents to do it as well, but they absolutely can't let this go on any longer. They will continue to lose points in the championship as they in the chase for the Esports World Cup.
They did have all 4 drivers in the top 6 when it came to practice a few moments ago. Thomas Tattler was the top driver in that with a 43.799, just to give you a little bit of a reference as to what they're aiming for. Onto the brakes and through the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop, of course. Probably the highest risk of a slowdown penalty around this entire circuit is going through that Le Mans chicane. But you've got so much time to think about it, and I actually think that's kind of a bad thing. You've got so much time for it to linger in your brain.
Yeah, it's a real circuit of waiting, a circuit of patience sometimes when you're on the banking. Thankfully, we're not in January anymore, and people aren't quite so sick of this circuit. We're in May, and so they will have had a little bit of time away from Daytona, which I think is probably a good thing when you're racing around here. 43.8, though, is our first benchmark of the day. Thomas Tattler gets himself to the top. 3 purples, as you'd expect, and Matt Emery's going to be next in line to try and out qualifying him, I should say.
Certainly so. I do believe that Thomas Tattler, that time, I think that's a very solid lap time. That's only a couple of hundredths off of where he was in practice. That would have been good enough for 3rd in practice, where they have an unlimited amount of laps. So that one is pretty handy for him to have picked his way through and and pieced together. One driver with a qualifying ban, although it does say it's in the second group race. Whether that's coming up in this one or the next one, I don't know. But Marko Pejic does have a qualifying ban, but we'll talk about that in a moment. I think that might be for the next race. We'll have to wait and see. Matt Emery, though, has gone slightly faster in the second sector, although a poor first sector has allowed maybe the gap to be slightly too large. See what he's like across the line to Thomas Tattler. It's going to be a 44 of some description, of 44.129. So that's the 0.3 loss. He was matching in sectors 2 and 3.
Yeah, pretty good in the second part of the lap, but unfortunately that lap was rather undone earlier on in the day as Camo Pavlovsky now comes through the banking. NASCAR turns 3 and 4. 3 Falcon drivers actually inside the top 4 times here, so they're going to have a lot of waiting around here as a team. Pavlovsky looks like he might well just slot himself in between the 2 drivers, if not just in behind Matt Emery here actually. As he goes over the line, it will be just about behind Matt Emery, 44.2 from him.
Certainly so, and now it's the time of Jakub Maciejewski. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of a wait before we get down to Jaroslav Lamanek, who will potentially be one of the last cars to go out in this qualifying session. Those that are a bit further down aren't fully in order. Their order will change around a little bit more, as we'll see Maciejewski out through the final corner up towards the line. Not tracking super great, but not tracking terribly either. Thomas Tattler, his teammate, is the one on pole position. He'd like to get ahead of Emery, and he will indeed do so. He'll, in fact, match the time to Tattler to the 1,000th of a second. Very impressive.
That is very impressive, and the 2 of them will be, well, up towards the front together. Whether they're going to be on the front row locking it out, I'm not so sure. Ulas Zilderim is going to be next over the line. He's going to be a few tenths of a second away. Driving for ERA this time around as he makes his way up towards the line. Should be their first of the day for this team. 44.3 from him, just getting back into the groove of things. That's 5th place for him.
Yeah, of course, Ulas Zilderim, someone that we've seen a few times in R1. Not this season thus far, is Zilderim. So very curious to see how he's going to get along racing for the ERA team. When he has raced before, it's always been for FaZe, and it has always been in a Porsche, so it's not a car he's particularly unfamiliar with. Let's see what Henry Moore could do as he works his way up towards the line. Sectors again looking quite good, relatively speaking. I think it'll be around where Matt Emery is. Not that much quicker if he is going to go ahead. Sets a purple final sector and goes the tiniest margin ahead, just 3,000 a second. The teammates are very close, aren't they?
Yeah, the teammates are very close. Oh dear, that looks like Ibrahim Khan with a slowdown penalty. And it is. So ERA with a struggling session so far. Falcons certainly have taken the initiative here, as we expected them to do. First and second so far with Maciejewski and Thomas Tattler. Henry Moore and Matt Emery getting Guild into 3rd and 4th as things stand. That is definitely putting Guild as sort of second of the teams. Zilderim and Khan at the back, very much putting ERA 3rd. There's very defined groups of where these different teams are so far after these first few laps.
I said Lamanek's gone fastest in the middle sector, but the slight margin that he's left to his teammates in the first might push him a little bit further down the order, but not really major. I'd still suspect he'll go ahead of Henry Moore here, and things could be looking very good for the Falcons team. Could it be a 1-2-3 for them in the opening qualifying session of the evening? Lamanek across the line is good enough indeed for 3rd place. Those top 3 are incredibly close on time.
Yeah, 12 thousandths apart for the 3 of them, and it's up to Robbie Stapleford here for ERA to try and get close to them here, I feel. Otherwise, Falcons are going to have this group already won after race 1 if they let this get too far out of hand. Through NASCAR turns 3 and 4 now for Robbie Stapleford is their best hope, really, for ERA. He's won a couple of races this season already, both in the dynamic group phase. Now he comes over the line. Stapleford, 44.0. That puts ERA on the map at least, but it doesn't break up the Falcon dominance to the front.
Certainly not. Let's see what Bonhouse could do as he'll come through the second sector split. Gone purple in the second split. So Bono's going a little bit quick here. The Aston Martin, although to be fair, yeah, the Aston Martin does seem like it's all right in that middle sector. We've seen that with the sector times we've seen thus far. Then again, Henry Moore did also go purple in the final as well. Up towards the line for Bono. Let's see what it'll be if he's able to maybe throw himself up amongst the Robbie Stapleford and maybe even those Falcons cars. So he does break the 44 barrier, but still only a tenth or so off of the top 3.
Yeah, fourth and final driver to break into the 43s there. That first sector maybe just undoing him slightly as Michał Schmiedl now makes his way around the banking. ERA looking to get themselves into the top half with at least two of their drivers, because Zildrum and Khan are going to be starting at the back end of the field, it looks like, apart from Marco Pejic, who is going to be right at the back. Over the line, and Schmiedl goes into sixth. So ERA do get two into the top half, but Team Falcons have certainly taken the dominance through that session.
Certainly so, and that's pretty impressive for the Falcons team. It's what we were expecting, though, wasn't it? We were expecting them to be the strong. We were expecting them to start out this session pretty healthily, and yeah, for them to get a pretty handy 1, 2, and 3 in the qualifying session. Kamil Pawlowski a little bit further down in the order, but nothing too major, really. Look, they are the team to beat in this group. We know it. But for Guild and for ERA, we spoke about this quite a lot back in Jeddah, didn't we? For those two teams, it's now or never. If they don't go through tonight, they are as near as makes no difference out of the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, pretty much. With the amount of rounds remaining, you've got to remember that it really takes you a delayed week to start to gain points on being where you are at the moment. So even if they do top this group, it's still only 3 points here this week. It's next week where you start to regain a few more points over a few of the other teams. There's sort of a delay in that. So you've got to sort of think almost a week ahead of where you actually are. And that means for Guild and ERA, it is now or never. I think I might have said that 2 weeks ago. It's now or never. And unfortunately, it was never for them on that occasion. They finished second and third at Jeddah, so they've got to pull off a miracle here. But for Team Falcons, they've got off to the perfect start. I know that they are the favourites, but to actually get off to this good start and immediately assert their dominance at the beginning is brilliant news for them.
Yeah, they'll be looking not only to progress, obviously, the default of what you'll need from this group is to score the 3 points basically for winning it. It's about bringing the confidence in, though. They'll want to win all 3 races. They'll want to lock out all 3 podiums to take the confidence into round number 7 at the Temple of Speed, because it's kind of one of those ones, if you don't, then you're kind of backs against the wall. And also, if you do progress through, or whichever team progresses through, just because of the nature of how this works, obviously they won't be in groups B and C next week. Then they won't be racing the week after, because that's groups A and D again. So there's quite a long wait, slightly less so, I guess, for this round, because the next Monza we're racing on the Thursday and the Friday. But it's that long wait before you go racing again, which sometimes can knock you out of the confidence. So they need to build that confidence as best as possible. It can't be a close margin for them. It's got to be dominance.
Yeah, absolutely. Having said that, William, was it... who was it who racing? MSI, sorry, not Williams. MSI, who got promoted into Group C racing last week after a couple of weeks of not seeing them, did a really good job, to be fair, at Jeddah. They've stayed in Group C again, didn't get promoted quite, but they came very close, and they have at least stayed in Group C for another week. So they did a pretty good job despite that couple of weeks off. As you say, there is going to be less of that now, because while we're doing Group B and C next week, B and C are also on the week after that, as well as you say, we race on Thursday and Friday the week after that, and then everybody races on the 6th of June, I think it is, whatever Friday it is that week. I don't know the date, but yeah, 6th, all four on the same night. That's going to be carnage, by the way. It's going to be very exciting to watch indeed.
It's going to be a long night, that's all I know. I think they only get 2 races on that night, but I can't remember each. But either way, it might be 3 actually, or it might be 4. Who knows? It might be 700 races, and we'll be here until the end of time. Who knows? All I know is that I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of excitement. Let's take a look at the onboard lap, of course, from pole position, Jakub Masiejewski. I'm sure it looked like it was just tidy, and he also was the pole time by 0.000, which I'm actually genuinely not sure if we've had a pole time by such a non-existent margin.
I can't remember an occasion when that has happened, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. We've had a lot of qualifying sessions now in R1, that's for sure, over the course of history. So it's somewhat likely to have happened in the past, given how close these sessions normally are. As you said, though, it's just about tidiness for Jakub Masiejewski. That was the West Jaw shoot, a little bit of oversteer on power, but that's fine. Out of turn number 6 now as well, over the bumps, horrifically bumpy through there, as you make your way onto the banking again through NASCAR turns 1 and 2, and then just using the straight line speed of this Porsche. But as you say, just tidy really, more than anything. A lot of these pole laps won't look particularly spectacular around this circuit. It's not a circuit that has a lot of high-speed technical sections like Jeddah. Laps on board there, very exciting to watch with the lefts and rights and the high-speed turns and whatever. This is really the only high-speed corners on this circuit. There you go, bouncing over the first curve, particularly hard for getting over the seconds. Again, a little bit of oversteer before that run to the line. An identical lap time at the top of the field.
Very impressive. I do also agree, by the way, turn 6. If there's around this circuit, for one, I've never really got into a flow round here. I've never really vibed with and gelled with the circuit so well. Turn 6, that turn coming out onto NASCAR 1 and 2. So effectively, you were to go straight on here at turn 1. That's where you rejoin. That, in my opinion, is the hardest and most awkward corner on this circuit. You've got turn 1, what we're going into here, which is awkward. It is fundamentally difficult. You're braking and turning. That's going to happen in the race, I'm sure. Lol. But the run through turn 6 is so brutally difficult purely because of the bumps.
Yeah, it's really, really bumpy through there, and as I said earlier, one of the most important corners on this circuit. For whatever reason, though, it doesn't exactly set up overtaking opportunities very often. I guess it's the small braking zone that you get in towards the Le Mans chicane that really prevents anything from happening down there, and that means that through turn 6, you're not likely to set up an overtaking chance. It's likely to come a little bit later on in the lap down at turn number 1. But anyway, we'll see how they get on this time round with the starting grid here from Group D, starting with Marco Pajic, who wasn't allowed to qualify for this round. He will be 12th. Ibrahim Khan and Milos Azildrim, well, I can't go to slow down. Azildrim was just in 10th in qualifying. Pavlovsky was the worst of the Falcons in 9th position, ahead of an all-Guild Esports row 4, Matt Emery and Henry Moore. Michael Schmiedel and Robbie Stapleford, an all-ERA row 3, with Bono House, the best of the Guild, Aston Martins, in that 4th position, followed by, or indeed behind, I should say, Pravoslav Lemonek, Tomas Tassler and Jakub Maciejewski, who's taken the pole position for this race. Team Falcons 1, 2 and 3 at Daytona in race 1.
Now, the big thing is to not trip over your teammates down into turn 1. It's going to be hard to avoid, to be honest.
It certainly is, as the drivers now make their way up towards the line. The racing begins here at Daytona. 9 laps. First race here in Group D. How's it going to go in towards turn 1 for the very first time? With those 3 Porsches on the front. Contact! And someone's hit the pit wall down there on the way through into turn number 1. It looked like one of the ERA Porsches to me from that distance. And Ibrahim Khan has slipped back a little bit. We'll wait and see on confirmation of that. But for Team Falcons, they haven't hit each other. In fact, they haven't hit anything. They're 1, 2 and 3 out of the first sector for the first time.
Yeah, it was Karol Pawlowski who was obviously spun around. I believe you're right. I think it might have been Ibrahim Khan, as we got side by side here between the 2 ERAs, Ulash Azildrim and Michael Schmiedel, trying to get to the outside of Matt Emery, the Guild Aston Martin there that's leading in this group, 7th place for the Guild car. And then those 2 ERAs squabbling over as Ulash Azildrim makes his debut in 2025. Cannot get past his teammate though.
Well, that is not a good start for Michael Schmiedel. He's back behind now a couple of Guild Esports drivers of Henry Moore, Matt Emery, but Bono House as well, who was already in front. Robbie Stapleford has continued his trend of making up places to begin with. He is up to 4th, but he's still behind the Falcons drivers, and here he comes now as Tomas Tassler assumes the role of defender here of his 2 teammates. Is that going to create a gap for the front 2 to get away?
Yeah, so obviously Tomas Tassler dropping back behind Lemonek then, so into 3rd position. And like I say, he's got to fend off Stapleford, he's got to fend off House, Moore as well. He'll be desperate there to kind of work with his teammate, but House to try and work their way through. At the moment, though, everything's remaining a little bit single file. Let's see if Bono goes for a move. I think he's slightly lifted out of that one, at least by my eyes, whether he didn't want to go down the inside or outside of Stapleford, wasn't particularly sure. Looks to the outside as they work their way onto the high banks and then down into this braking zone at turn 1. Robbie Stapleford, though, he can get aggressive. He's worked his way up the order a couple of times. That's why he's won a couple of races so far in the dynamic group stage.
Absolutely. Most recently, a couple of weeks ago at Jeddah in the opening race of the evening. So exactly this time, a fortnight ago, he was on his way to victory. I think he was already leading, actually, by this time in the race at Jeddah, from memory. He's certainly not leading in this situation right now. And the race situation is so much more difficult for him to repeat that win as well, isn't it? When you've got 3 teammates in front of you, they're all just going to help each other, and he's got no friends up here at the moment, Robbie Stapleford.
you'd have to say up here. But that's harsh. That's harsh. But no, obviously the thing is with Stapleford, he's won the opening race of the dynamic group on both the opening weeks. So he won it at Fuji as well, race number 1, and then of course won race number 1 last week as well. But you're absolutely right. This is a very different thing. In both of those races, he'd already been leading by the end of the first lap, or I think he was second in Jeddah by the end of the first lap. But he was up there. Whereas now, as much as you could classify him as being up there, passing 3 cars from the same team on a slipstream heavy track, very, very difficult. Look at the side-by-side and behind, though. Matt Emery and Ulash Zilderim, I think it is, that are going side-by-side as there is the battle heading into that. Might have actually been Schmiedel and Emery as Schmiedel's worked his way through.
Yeah, I think it was Schmiedel, and he just completely missed the corner. Michał Schmiedel thought, well, we're going side by side here, and I'm just going to have to miss it here. He's got back out straight where he was before, so he hasn't really gained anything as Matt Emery tries to come through on him here. Oh, inside, outside, looking left and right as they go to the double yellow line as well. Here comes Ulas Zildjian making it 3 wide, down in towards turn number 1 as the 2 teams here battle it out in the lower order. It is side by side again, Schmiedel versus Emery, and Michał Schmiedel holds on to 7th position for now. And here comes Ulas Zildjian as well, through the chicane, on the way towards the international horseshoe. He's on the outside line. He's going to find that tricky as he just holds the inside as Matt Emery out of the corner. They rub again, and these 2 teams are effectively scrapping for second in this group now.
Yeah, they are battling for the wooden spoon, unfortunately, here in R1 in 2025. But I will say, regardless, that was some cracking battling and great driving from Ulash Zilderim. He was only making it 3 wide down to the first corner. Rather than it wasn't there to try and make the move on the outside. It was purely there to make things awkward for Matt Emery so that he couldn't go out as wide, so that he couldn't try and affect the pass on Schmiedel. And that's why he sat behind, and that's why Ulash Zilderim has been able to get through. Smart racing, clean racing. And look at how close things are there on the top right-hand side, at least when it comes to 2nd and 3rd. Remember that only 1 team progresses from Group D, and at the moment that is Falcons comfortably on 61 points. 24 for ERA, 23 for Guild.
Oh, I thought that was going to be the moment, though, where it all changes here as Robbie Stapleford tries to get past Tumas Tatala. Oh, and off again. This time it's Ulas Zildjian, who's off through the Le Mans chicane, and he's got out right in front of his whereas Ibrahim Khan and Marco Pajic gone. They're just going to close up to the back of them there as I think Pajic has just been knocked back for the last couple of moments as he goes backwards in 11th. Here comes Stapleford, though, trying to use the banking there through NASCAR Turn 4. You can see Tatala almost looking in his mirror there more than he's looking forward right now in towards turn number 1. He's having to go defensive again as his teammates go side by side in front. Not sure how helpful that is as he comes in towards turn 1. Here comes Stapleford, outside line. He's going to be shut out again here onto turn lap 4, but no. They're still side by side. Stapleford with his best chance yet.
Certainly so. Great driving for Robbie Stapleford. Just about kept to the rear left there of Tumas Tatala. Now squeezes Tatala out wide. Opens up the door for Bonnerhouse to maybe come through. Now things are maybe starting to open up for the other teams, and maybe Falcons' dominant position in this group could be a little bit under threat. Realistically, it's still not going to be majorly so, but still, Robbie Stapleford is the pick to try and change things at the moment in this group. Bonnerhouse is there in 5th position, and Henry Moore's not too far behind realistically as well. Let's see what happened right at the start of the race. Obviously that was Ibrahim Khan getting down the inside of Kamil Pavlovsky. That was all a little bit messy, but, you know, potato, wasn't it?
Where do you put the blame in that one in terms of, well, I'll get back to that a second as when we finish these replays. Middle there with no attempt to make the corner, but he didn't really gain any time either, so I don't suspect he'll be getting too much of a slap over the head by race control for that one, as he did lose the place anyway. Where do you lay the blame on that one? Is it Khan who's trying to come down a diminishing gap there, or is it Pavlovsky for not giving the room?
Well, that's why Ulash Zildjian went over the Le Mans chicane. It was squeezed out into the barrier, you got to say. So, I say race control have a couple of things to look at during this race. Going back to the turn 1 thing, do you know what? I'm actually going to lay it a little bit more on Kamil Pavlovsky. I think Ibrahim Khan was aggressive to go to the inside there, but he wasn't missing the corner. He was fully alongside, and the gap was open. So, realistically speaking, like what else do you want from a move in that? This is going to be a little bit of a freight train pass, unfortunately, for Robbie Stapleford, because Tumas Tatala's got to the inside the battle for 3rd position, as it might well become a 1-2-3 once again for the Falcons, and that is indeed where they go. Tumas Tatala back up then into 3rd position. Robbie Stapleford demoted to 4th. He's going to try and look coming down into the international horseshoe once more.
Yeah, and he's barely level as he gets on the brakes this time round. He was able to shut out Tattler one lap ago through here, but not this time. Stapleford's going to have to stay side by side, and indeed Lemonette just gives him a little bit more slipstream as well there for Thomas Tattler, who now will go on the defensive into the West Horseshoe and keeps the place. Bono House is in there as well, just watching and waiting and lurking here. For these two teams, it's about how can we reduce the deficit here, because Team Falcons are going to come out of the first race with the lead, that much is clear, but it's just about how many points is going to be the lead now.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we know the Falcons team, they are going to be the dominant force in this group. ERA and Guild both know that as well. If they have any hope of being the team to progress, like, they have to win this race. And that's the deal here. Even though you know that Falcons are good, they are going to lead this group coming out of race one. That's fine. Like, there's not really much you can do about that. If you can score some points, if you can bridge that gap ever so slightly, maybe it'll make things a bit easier. That was a big moment though from Robbie Stableford, and as much as it doesn't look like it now, I think he might be a bit of a sitting duck by the time they get down into T1, and Bono House might try and make a move here.
Having said that, I don't think Bono has been very aggressive so far today, to be honest, so maybe now is the point he turns it on, and indeed now he does go for it. When he had a chance to go side by side with Tattler, he sort of gave it up, but let's see what he does this time around. He pulls to the outside and can't go through. Is that a case of the Aston Martin not quite having enough on the way down in towards turn of one compared to the two Porsches in front, or is he just biding his time for the moment? I can't quite tell myself, but for now he's happy to sit along in fifth place and not do a whole lot.
Certainly so, and like I say, you said it before, it's a patience game. As much as this is one of those circuits where it does feel like you can go on the attack all of the time. A lot of the time when you get these big slipstream races, so when you're racing around here, when you're racing around the Circuit de la Sarthe, when you're racing around even Monza at the Temple of Speed, less so there, but follow my logic here. When you've got those big slipstream races, you can make the move, and that's fine. But timing the move, making sure that you're doing it right, and then obviously the way that you play it as a team tactically, the tactics on a race like this become so much higher. When you're racing around somewhere like Hockenheimring or Nürburgring or somewhere like that, there aren't any tactics. It's just throw the car around and try and get past as best you can. Whereas somewhere like this, you have to have more of an adaptable, strategical brain to your approach racing-wise.
Yeah, it's so tactical around here, and you're seeing those tactics play out here. Made a little bit simpler, I suppose, when you've got three of his teammates in 1, 2, and 3 right here. Falcons for the Falcons team, the strategy is very, very simple. It is just about trying to keep Stableford behind as he tries to use the banking again there through NASCAR Turn 4, see if he can get a little bit of run there on Thomas Tattler and try and get alongside here as we enter the final third of this first race of the day in Group D. Here he comes, Stableford again, outside line, with Lemonette and Maciejewski in a single file line just in front of him. Stableford breaks late. He gets it pulled up in time as well. This is exactly what happened when he first made the move, but he's not quite as far alongside this time, alongside Tattler. He had his nose in front last time he made the move, but now in towards the International Horseshoe he does. Can he finally shut the door? He certainly does. It's like watching a replay from a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, again, it's a lovely move, but will it be enough? And that's the problem, is that when he goes down into turn 1 next lap, he'll have another look on Lemonette, right? And the problem with that is it leaves him open, because the only place that he can go is to the outside. It leaves the inside open once again for Tattler to come through. And it's almost as if he has to lift off and stay behind Lemonette to keep Tattler behind. But you're obviously not going to do that. You need to win this race. It's a very difficult position for the Stapler to be in. But with a bit of a gap up ahead, he might even be passed before then. 0.6 of a second between Maciejewski, Lemonette, and then dropping back to Stapleford. Maybe there could be a change now. Henry Moore, by the way, has dropped back behind Schmiedel.
Yeah, that's some change for the minor points further back as Tattler's got a big run out of turn 6. I said there aren't many moves made in towards the Le Mans chicane, but there's one of them. Tattler goes through on the inside line, but now he's going to be a sitting duck, surely, on the way down the straight and towards turn 1. What it might do is just allow his teammates in first and second to get further up the road, and that will secure a fairly big lead for Falcons at the end of this first race. Let's see what Stapleford does, though, down in towards turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Maciejewski, Lamanek, they're basically done. Like, they're gone. The only thing they might lift off to allow Tattler to come back into the slipstream to stop this from happening. But the more they switch around like that, the less likely it is they're going to be able to close back up to the group. There was a bit of a look coming in from Bonnerhouse. The outside line once again comes in from Robbie Stableford. Bit of leaning between the two of them. Stableford to the outside at turn one, given the inside line as they work their way down into the international horseshoe, as the top two are now starting to check away. Bit of contact, and Bonnerhouse might come through. Bonnerhouse could make this very interesting in this group.
He certainly could. It is the battle for third, though. The front two have gone, and Stableford now can only ensure that third position. House on the outside through turn four. That's going to be pretty difficult into the West Horseshoe now on the brakes. This could be the moment that we see Tattler down to fifth position for the first time. But no, round the outside, he does a good job of defending, actually, on this penultimate lap, and he stays in that fourth position ahead of Bonnerhouse, who still can't make any moves here.
The house doesn't always win. There you go. Couldn't quite make that move. Couldn't quite work his way up and into fourth position. But still, we'll have to settle for fifth. Again, top right of your screen. That's what Guild are looking at. They're looking to outscore ERA for the first time this season and bring themselves off of the bottom, which means for them, Thomas Tattler getting past Robbie Stableford will be very helpful indeed. Tattler to the outside, gets on the brakes and throws himself into the Le Mans chicane. And that will be the position once again switched for Thomas Tattler. It's like something you'd see in the Giro d'Italia between Tattler and Stableford, as it is once again Tattler heading to the front. We've got a bit of a breakaway here. 1.5 seconds now.
Not sure most people watching that will really know what you're on about, but never mind. That's
as long as they're not going downhill, it's not greasy, they're not going to crash. It's fine, right?
yes. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure it needs to be very greasy in this series for us to have some crashes, but let's see. Into World's turn one again. The final lap begins, and Stableford again gives it a go on the outside of Thomas Tattler. This is where it's all going to come down to on the very last lap of the race, and Stableford's going to be through here surely, as he's got the inside at the international horseshoe again. Tattler has struggled to hold on when he's been on the outside through there, and Bonnerhouse is just watching and waiting here in the wings, just in behind the two Porsches. Again, Stableford through, but can he hold it here on this final lap?
So frustrating for Bono, as he's actually been caught by Schmiedel, who's going to be knocking at the door potentially by the time they run up towards the line, dragging Henry Moore back with him. It's going to be an interesting little fight in this group. You can see the two behind as well, looming large in the background as they'll work their way down towards turn 6. So frustrating it's been for the Guild Racing driver of Bonnerhouse, who's staring at these two battling constantly, thinking, I just literally cannot do anything. Every time he looks for an opportunity, there's one of them there. He can't do anything about it. He's staring at it, and there's not even an opportunity for him to make it 3 wide. One final run then to decide who's going to win the opening race of the evening and who's going to be finishing on that podium with them.
Well, it's going to be Maciejewski and Lamanek who are on 1 and 2, but who's going to be 3 and 4? It's Tattler on the inside line again here. Stableford seems to be relatively pleased to let him through as long as he compromises his run down in towards the bus stop chicane. Look at Miao Schmiedel in the background, by the way, coming up very quickly here as well. We could well see a couple of photo finishes for some of the minor places here as Stableford jumps to the outside line now. He doesn't want to come through too soon. He's going to use that banking here and just get the slipstream and indeed the run now off of the turn 4 of the NASCAR banking. Here comes Raka Maciejewski in the meantime for his first win personally in the dynamic group phase. Who's he going to be joined by on the podium? Oh my goodness, House through the middle. Very nearly got there. He'll finish just in behind Stableford, who just beats Tattler to the line. All in behind Jakub Maciejewski, who wins here at Daytona. He wins for the first time in the dynamic group phase, and Falcons win for the first time since they were in Group B back in Fuji. A fantastic day for them, but Tattler loses that photo finish just at the line.
Certainly so, but a great race, very, very interesting, very, very fun as well. I enjoyed that race. It was good fun. It was exciting, but it was very well won by... it's very easy, isn't it, to throw out very well won by Maciejewski. I think it was very well won by the Falcons team. That's the important bit. As a team, they were victorious. Maciejewski ahead of Lamanek, but it was very comfortable for them.
Yeah, it was very comfortable, and it all stems from qualifying. We said that it's not the be-all and end-all at this circuit, but it absolutely does help, especially if you've got 2 of your teammates up there with you, as was the case there. They will also get an extra added point, by the way, because we did see 1 penalty throughout that race for Matt Emery, not leaving enough racing room to Ulas Azildarim, and so that's a 5-second penalty for him. That should drop him to 12 and give Guild even less points. It should be Falcons leading ERA, leading Guild at the end of race 1.
Yeah, indeed. And like I say, they've put themselves in a relatively speaking comfortable position straight away, have Falcons. And as much as we're talking about ERA and Guild, I say realistically, it doesn't seem as though they're going to be progressing even to the Esports World Cup. That's just sometimes how it goes. But we'll have to wait and see. Still got plenty of time for them to maybe overcome something special. Let's talk about, though, the top team. And let's have a little chat to our winning driver, Jakub Maciejewski. What a drive, for starters. What a team display. You must be so proud of the guys. First, second and fourth. Tatler getting overtaken there by Stableford at the line, but a great drive from yourself. What do you make of that one, and what do you make of your position in this group so far?
Hello. Yeah, perfect drive from us. We did what we needed to, so we got first 3 spots in quali, and then basically just maintaining the gaps, so you know we don't have to stop behind each other on the oval. So just maintaining the gaps, and later, when it got tight, the P3 guys started defending, so we can secure the 1-2. Oh yeah, perfect start. Let's hope we can get this going for the next race.
What has this week been like for the team after getting relegated from Group C last week and only having 7 days to prepare for Daytona? How has the team morale been? How have you prepared for this round of the championship?
Yeah, we were quite lucky actually. It's the first time we have 1 week to prep, and it couldn't have been a better track for that. It's basically like 6 corners. We were always pretty competitive here. Like in our first event ever, we did pretty well here. So, well, after the terrible last Friday, we just went straight to Daytona next day, and that's about it. You know, no hard feelings after the Jeddah round. We just went back to pushing.
Well, Jakub, thank you very much. I get the feeling we'll be catching up with you or your teammates at some point again this evening.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Well, what a fantastic drive from Jakub Maciejewski, and what a great first race of the day. That was Kamil Pawlowski getting spun around as he made contact with Ibrahim Khan in towards turn 1 on that occasion. That was Michał Schmiedl jumping over the bus stop chicane. It wouldn't be the last time that happened either at that section of corners. This is Matt Emery into the side of Ulas Uzudrim. That would earn the Guild Esports Aston Martin a 5-second time penalty before the finish. The real main battle of the day, though, was Stableford versus Tatler. It was a changing battle all throughout the race. Stableford up to 3rd on this occasion. Bono Howes gave it his best go at getting up to 4th, but he couldn't really infiltrate this battle really in the end. A good bit of defending here on the outside of the West Horseshoe gave Tumas Tatler the advantage on this occasion, and he kept that 4th place for the moment. That would eventually be where he finished, just in behind Stableford. Here's Bono House's view of another one of those battles between Stableford and Tatler, this time on the outside line for the ERA driver, but pretty much every occasion was like any of the others. They were very, very similar to one another. Stableford on the outside of turn 1 gives him the inside at the West Horseshoe a few corners later, and that would see him through on Tatler, exactly like you can see there. But this was the run towards the line. What a dramatic run it was as well. Bono House saw a small gap through the middle. He just didn't have quite enough road to take any more positions away. He would finish 5th. It's Jakub Maciejewski, though, who takes the Group D victory ahead of Primoslav Lemonek. 2 tenths of a second between them, and you can see the effects of the battling for 3rd. 2.8 seconds further back, Robbie Stableford, who just beats Tatler, House and Schmiedl at the end. Henry Moore closed in as well. Ibrahim Khan got up to 8th after his earlier crash with Ulas Uzudrim in 9th. Kamil Pawlowski recovered to 10th ahead of Marko Pejic, who had that qualifying ban but only gained 1 place, and that was only because Matt Emery had that 5-second penalty at the end.
Indeed, very interesting, and look, that played out, relatively speaking, as the season form would show. Falcons dominating and looking comfortable in control, and then the other 2 teams unfortunately struggling, Guild being the weaker of the 2 at the moment, which is a bit of a shame, considering how, again, I remember the absolute high. Now, again, we've spoken before about James Baldwin being a part of the team, maybe that was partly where that came from, but I remember being in Saudi Arabia last season, having that epic opening day for the teams championship, and then they were part of the top 4 teams. They were part of the teams that automatically progressed. They got to skip a day, they got to relax, they got to chill, and they were a shock to be thrown into that mix, but they earned their spot. And unfortunately they did have a bit of a struggle on Sunday, but it was quite impressive to see them in that position, and now to see them struggling and basically being effectively the 12th and final team at the moment in R1. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, was a huge moment for them 1 year ago, and you just wonder where they can find that form from now. I still go back to the opening weeks actually, and think a little bit. First about the seeding phase, of course, but you can have a bad few rounds there and get dumped into Group D pretty easily. I think getting promoted out of Group D first week around was really, really important. MSI were the ones, if I'm not mistaken, to be able to do that, and that has really kick-started their season. They've got a much bigger chance of going to the World Cup as a result of that. And it wasn't actually, it was close. Sorry, it wasn't a huge margin that MSI won by on that occasion. ERA and Guild have been there or thereabouts, but every week now they're getting somebody new with them, and it almost feels like the standard of that team that is coming back in with them here in Group D is almost getting higher with every week that we go through, and it's just becoming more and more difficult. So again, I go back to that first week really. It was so important to finish in first in Group D that first week, otherwise there was a high likelihood you were going to get stuck there, and it looks like that is what's happening to ERA and Guild.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, take the Falcons team for example here, right? Going up against ERA and Guild. It's the thing is, the Falcons team, they are a team that we expect to, if they were magically in Group A, right? No one would be shocked if they won a race, right? Like, genuinely no one would be surprised if they were able to take one victory off of Redline and Porsche Commander, the two best teams in R1. You would still suspect they might take a victory, right? And that's kind of one of those ones where you're looking at it thinking, wow, and ERA and Guild have to try and take them on. Very, very interesting. We'll have to wait and see how it unfolds. Speaking of taking on those two teams, well, it's Virtus.pro's attempt, second time this season, to try and take on the might of Redline and Porsche Commander. This time, though, coming into it with maybe a slight bit more confidence after a successful run at Jeddah to get promoted immediately after relegation.
Yeah, it's going to be Team Redline and Porsche Commander and another team, it looks like, this season, who can try and stay with them, though, over the course of Group A this time around. Have Virtus.pro got the speed to be able to stay with them? I think if the pace of the Aston Martin is being shown already by Guild, then they might be a little bit concerned. We'll wait and see whether they can compete with the other two manufacturers here, but if the Aston Martin does have a little bit of a step below the other two manufacturers, it could be a bit of a struggle for them. We will wait and see, though, as Mikhail Statsenko comes into the Le Mans chicane now to set the benchmark for everybody here, although he has already been bested by Sebastian Job in Sector 1.
Well, we'll have to wait and see about the sector titans of those coming in behind. Good to see Sebastian Job, by the way, who's decided to take a break from being a busy boy in the world of sim racing and motorsport mostly, and come and join us once again. So I'll be very curious to see how Sebastian Job gets on in this round. Probably there's at least a win in there, surely. Stetsenko, though, will be up towards the line. Purple middle sector. That's because no one else has crossed it so far. Stetsenko will cross the line, and it'll be a 1 minute 43.9. Can tell you for sure, that probably won't be good enough for pole.
No, it would have been good enough for a top 5 in the last session, though. So, and it's not going to be bested by Sebastian Job, who gets a slowdown penalty. Well, that is a surprise, and an early moment there for Sebastian Job, who knows the mistake he's made. He puts his head on his headrest there, and he'll be thinking about that one all the way up to the start of this race, you'd imagine. Running over that again and again because Sebastian Job has put himself into the back end of the field here. He's going to be around those who have got qualifying bans, I'm afraid, after that lap there.
Certainly a shame for Sebastian Job, but I'm sure he'll work his way up the order. I said, overtaking the previous race, when it came to actual positions of the race, I think the most positions gained was like 2 or 3 rather than anything major. So showing that maybe the overtaking is a little bit difficult around here. Enzo Benito then will be the next one to come and cross the line, and those sector times, it might be a slightly faster final sector than Stetsenko. Let's see if Benito was able to throw it through the Le Mans chicane slightly faster, and was indeed a 0.9. Once again, maybe a bit slower than we were expecting.
Darren McCormack is one of those drivers this afternoon who's going to have a slowdown, a qualifying ban, but clearly not here. At least based on the information we've been given, he's supposed to have a qualifying ban in first group race, but he's here now. So maybe either I've got that wrong or somebody else has. We'll wait and see. Darren McCormack makes his way up towards the line, the winningest driver of 2025 in R1, if I'm allowed to use that word. 43.7, a good lap time. That is a realistic candidate for pole, but so is this man.
Yep, certainly so. That was a little bit faster. Of course, Jakub Matuszewski and Tomas Tatler, they both set an 8.44 in the previous session. So McCormack going a little bit quicker than those two. Charlie Collins losing a little bit of time in that second sector, but still going faster in the first. Up towards the line. Let's see what Charlie Collins is able to do in that third and final section, whether he's able to put one ahead of Darragh McCormack. Not quite, an 8.31.
Yeah, it would have been good enough for pole in the last session, but not this one. Darragh McCormack has just about gone quicker. Those two, by the way, have been the best drivers in 2025 R1 competition. McCormack with 6 victories and Collins with 5. The two of them have been absolutely dominant in their races so far. It looks like it could well be one of those two again in this group as well. Here comes Kevin Ellis Jr. up towards the line. Needs to help out Darragh McCormack up towards the front in this new look Virtus Pro team in 2025. 43.9, not bad. And that is third.
He overcooked it a little bit there, did Josh Rogers, think, on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, but he's still gone purple in the first, purple in the second, but will that cost him in the final sector? He's obviously got Darragh McCormack and his teammate Charlie Collins on the front row. Virtus Pro looking a lot stronger than they did in their opening run back in Fuji as they tried taking on these two teams. Let's see if Rogers is able to sneak a pole position away. As he crosses the line, it'll be good enough for the provisional pole position, a .742 for Joshua Rogers.
Well, that time does have something still on the table, so this is beatable from Josh Rogers, but it is the best time so far. Here comes Dane Warren, his teammate, and this surely isn't going to be an improvement, but it could well be ahead of all the red line drivers. Bennett and Rietveld have got a big job on their hands here, and they have absolutely got to get themselves up towards the front. No Kevin Siggy here tonight, by the way. You'll notice Sebastian Joe is back. Siggy is not here, the drivers' champion from 2024. Here comes Dane Warren, though. It's third, and that's 3 Porsche Coanders in the top 4.
Yeah, of course, do remember, it doesn't matter what drivers that you have or what drivers, all 4 drivers are scoring, and there is no drivers' championship. It is only the team's points in totality that we care about, all 4 drivers rather, scoring points. Luke Bennett then up towards the line. That first sector's not great. The second sector's not great either. Team Redline looking like they're struggling a little bit around this Daytona circuit, and across the line, it is only good enough for 8th, the 44.0. What is happening to Team Redline, our round 5 winners?
And suddenly Virtus Pro's eyes are going to widen here. They'll see an opportunity, and they're right to see one as well here, with all 4 red lines so far outside the top 5. See, Rietveld's a bit unfair on him because he hasn't set his time yet, but we'll wait and see on where he's going to get to. Wojciech Fiala now up towards the line. He needs to back up his teammates Kevin Ellis Jr. and Darragh McCormack by getting ahead of Senko, ideally. Is he going to be able to? No. Only ahead of Bennett of those who have set a representative time.
Well, only 2 more times left to go. We've got 3 Porsches in the top 4. Rogers, then Warren, then Collins. Of course, between all of that is McCormack. Can Jordan Caruso throw himself into the mix as he heads out through the final corner and up towards the line, aiming for a 43. Realistically, it's probably going to be a 43.9, maybe a 44, but I think it'll be about 43.9 rather, around where Kevin Ellis Jr. is. Across the line, he's going to go. It's a 43.955, good enough for 7th place. 1 final time left to go in the group.
Caruso is the only Porsche Coanda driver, by the way, not to have won in the dynamic group phase yet. He's won individual races, in fact, just the one of them in the seeding phase, but he's not likely going to break that record from there. Here's Jeffrey Rietveld. He was shaking his head as we joined up with him as well out of the Le Mans chicane, and it looks like this is going to be difficulties for Team Redline. They could be in trouble here early on at Daytona as Rietveld makes his way towards the line. 43.7, not bad in the end. He just didn't look very happy, but when do they, I suppose? 43.7, Rietveld gets himself to the top, and Redline may have rescued their day because Porsche Coanda and Virtus Pro have had a great session.
Yeah, indeed, especially Porsche Coanda. Joshua Rogers on the pole position. Darragh McCormack will have a little bit of work, same with the likes behind. It's going to be very interesting when it comes down to that race into the first corner. But like you say, Rietveld there rescuing the session just a touch for the Redline team, who... look, maybe it's the car, maybe it's that, I don't know, but they did not look like the same team they did a week ago.
No, they certainly didn't. That was very, very bizarre to see Team Redline, and you get the feeling it's just a stutter as well. I know we didn't do predictions before the day, but I'll be totally honest and say that mine would have been Team Redline winning the first group because I think they work so well together in a team. If you watch any of their races from Daytona, especially sprint racing like we've got here, they're very good at drafting with each other and helping each other around Daytona and other draft similar circuits like this one. So I would have picked them, to be honest, but that prediction might well be falling on its face quite early on here. Still early, of course, but that's not a good opening session for them.
No, certainly not. And I get exactly where you're coming from. Look, the Redline team, they have been strong, and it's kind of one of the ones. Of course, we do have a BOP that changes each round, balance of performance, which all the teams basically add into. They do laps in other cars. If you Redline, you might go and do laps in the Porsche, and I was going to say in the Audi, but that's probably a little bit harder this season because it's not in there. The Aston Martins or the Mercedes, and effectively you're proving that car is faster, and then they're balanced. This effectively how the system works. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and the team's put in a little bit of work to try and make that the case. As we'll take a look on board with Joshua Rogers around this pole position lap. But yeah, it's one of those systems where, you know, if, say, for example, in a given round, like your Mercedes, like for example at Jeddah, arguably looked like it was the strongest car by a fairly comfortable margin. It might not be the case where it's the strongest car around here. The BMW that looked pretty handy last time out, that could be a bit of a struggle to be in. And when your teams like BS Competition or Mouse, of course, who will be racing in groups B and C, you might be looking at Redline struggles and thinking, wait a second, why are they struggling in the Cup? What's happening there? And they get a really good look as to how to do an onboard lap on board with one of the very best, of course, the driver with the most victories in R1, showing us how to navigate this circuit brilliantly. Again, and much like what we saw from Maszewski, it's just a clean lap more so than anything else. Over those awkward bumps at turn 6, it just looks tidy.
Yeah, it does, and it's classic Josh Rogers really taking another pole position here. I think it's hard to tell in terms of manufacturer the difference it's really making from these two groups, because after all, we don't have a single group tonight where there are 2 repeat manufacturers in either of the groups. They're all 3 different, so you could say, well, yes, it could be the manufacturer. Also, your team could just have had a bad day, and that's very possible. So it's almost more difficult to tell here tonight than what it was a couple of weeks ago when we did have some repeat manufacturers involved. This time round, though, Porsche have taken 2 pole positions out of 2, and this one with Josh Rogers, the most recent of them. In fact, it is the fastest lap time we've seen so far tonight. These guys did just go a little bit quicker. In fact, a few of them went a bit quicker than the pole time in Group D, but that is to be expected as Rogers makes his way up towards the line. He is able to take pole. Is he going to be able to take yet another win in R1? Well, he's in a very good position to do so.
Yeah, you would assume the answer to that is probably for Joshua Rogers. That said, it's not as simple as it was, as we're getting some side-by-side here. Nice. Going through the Le Mans chicane, see if we get any of that during the race. It's not as simple as it was for the Falcons team, obviously back in Group D, where they were running 1, 2 and 3 in qualifying. In here, we have 3 different teams in the front 3 positions. Of course, we've got Joshua Rogers, we've got Darren McCormack, we've got Jeff Rietveld up there, which means that Rogers' chances of controlling the start, of having a comfortable run down into turn 1, well, they're non-existent. He is going to be under pressure, he is going to be under threat, and he's got to be expecting the attack, because let's be honest, McCormack and Rietveld, they aren't going to just go, oh, second place, that's pretty good points, isn't it?
Exactly. They are going to absolutely go for it in towards turn number 1, and we may well see an even more aggressive start as well, because in Group D it was quite calm, to be honest, into turn 1, other than Khan and Pavlovsky forcing each other into the pit wall, which was quite dramatic. The rest of them were pretty well behaved in towards turn number 1. It is a big braking zone down there, and it's a pretty tight corner as well, so we will wait and see just how it goes through turn 1 this time round in Group A, when arguably the stakes are just that little bit higher as you're battling for the highest points of the round.
Well, let's go from back to front then for the starting grid for race number 1 in Group A. Welcome back, Sebastian Job. And oh dear, it's not gone so well, has it? You start alongside Luke Bennett on the final row of the grid. Wojtek Fiala and Mikhail Statsenko in 10th and 9th for the Virtus Pro team. Then we get Jordan Caruso, the first of the Porsche Commanders, starting from 8th position with Enzo Benito in 7th. Kevin Ellis Jr. in 6th with Charlie Collins inside the top 5, looking for a 6th victory of the season. Dane Warren will start from 4th position with Jeff Rietveld in 3rd. The front row of the grid is Darren McCormack and Joshua Rogers. Virtus Pro looking for a victory straight away here in Group A.
Yeah, what a fantastic front row that is, by the way. Rogers versus McCormack. This is going to be a huge battle down in towards turn 1 between the two of them. And the difference between this group and Group D, which we saw earlier on, the teammates are less of a factor up towards the front here. There's no team 1, 2 and 3. In fact, all 3 teams represented in the 1, 2 and 3 this time round. So it is a much, much different opening race for these guys.
Certainly so. Well, here we go then, ready to go racing once more. Let's see who's going to come out on top in the first race of Group A. It's Josh Rogers, the all-time most winning driver in R1, starting from pole position, and already the inside line has a bit of a jump on the outside as Rietveld was looking to the inside of McCormack as they head down to the first corner. There's a bit of a spin in the background, and there is a spin, I believe, for Bennett, who's dropping backwards for the red line team. It goes from bad to worse, and all their hopes now rest on the shoulders of this driver here, Jeff Rietveld, who's got one feisty McCormack straight down the inside. It's Rogers, though, continuing to lead as we head up towards the dogleg. McCormack just back through into second spot. Third place, though, still on the inside line, trying to secure that second spot. It's Rietveld, indeed, for the red line team.
He can't shut the door, though, and Dan McCormack still down the inside into the West Horseshoe. In behind, Collins and Warren are just waiting in the wings here, just watching and seeing who's going to win out in this battle now as it works its way towards turn 6. McCormack's on the outside and he could get freight trained here if he's not careful. Oh, that was very nearly a slide and very nearly a spin in front of the field as well. He's still trying to shut the door and he just about has done on the Porsches in behind. But what drama in towards turn number 1. Not only was Bennett around, I believe he was hit by one of his teammates in towards turn number 1. There was teammate drama for sure for Team Redline down there at the first corner of the race.
I think it was Benito as well. We'll have to wait and see. Benito and Bennett then running 11th and 12th position. Sebastian Job's got through on Mikhail Stetsenko. They head their way through the Le Mans chicane with Porsche Coanda looking like they're retaking control here in R1. You've got Josh Rogers leading from a red line of Rietveld, from the Virtus Pro of McCormack, and then a trio of Porsche Coandas 4th through 6th. Collins, then Warren, then Caruso. Those are three that we can see on our screen at the moment. Backwards on board with Kevin Ellis Jr., who's got his teammate Wojtek Biala in tow, and they're dragging along Sebastian Job, who's gone from 12th to 9th on the opening lap of the race.
Here he comes on the way towards turn number 1 here. Fiala's trying to defend from Job, and Ellis Jr. is trying to get in amongst the Porsche Coandas here in towards turn number 1, side by side, just in front of him between the teammates. That's quite wide from Caruso, and that might have been on purpose as he just tries to help Dane Warren there. Now they continue side by side. What's going to happen in towards the International Horseshoe? Where's Fiala going to go? All the teammates indeed side by side, can't quite see for the moment here as Sebastian Job is just in behind them. He's trying to get amongst this right now, but he can't do it, and it all stays the same out of the first sector.
There we go, side by side. I believe those Virtus Pros to stop Sebastian Job with an opportunity to try and squeeze his way onto it. That's almost why we saw Caruso and Warren going side by side. This is on board with Sebastian Job. He says, oh, you're going to try side by side? Dad, don't worry about it. Straight down the inside of Kevin Ellis Jr. he's going to go. Now to the outside, he's going to look at Wojtek Biala. All blocked at the moment, though, as he heads his way down into turn 6. Sebastian Job trying to slice his way through this field at the moment. He's all the way up into 8th position. I think he's still got, yes he has, to the inside Kevin Ellis Jr. and he could get freight trained here because Mikhail Stetsenko might sneak his way through. You can tell he's done some oval racing because that was very much like it was ripped straight out of the 500.
Oh. Look at this, 3 wide on the inside line, or 3 in a row, I should say, for the Virtus Pros. He's going to get freight trained, is Sebastian Job, but Stetsenko not aggressive enough to get amongst it for the moment. Oh, round the outside, there's contact. Job and off the road for Ellis Jr. as well. Job and Ellis Jr. found themselves off the road just slightly there. And here comes Mikhail Stetsenko. It's all getting messy down towards the back end of the field as Virtus Pro and Redline fight over relegation.
Look, he was getting boxed in there with Sebastian Job, but he felt like he had to try something by sending it round the outside. He made contact with the Virtus Pro of Kevin Ellis Jr. and sent Ellis Jr. off the road. Now, between Redline as Rietveld takes over the race lead, I was about to be talking about the live stands that you can see in the top right there. Obviously, Porsche Coanda with all the control at the moment. They're looking like they're going to already start this round in dominant force. Obviously, that's not necessarily how it's always going to progress out, and one driver having a spin can really change your fortunes as a team. But that transfer spot, the one team that is getting demoted from Group A at the moment is Virtus Pro. But it does seem as though Virtus Pro and Redline are going to be battling all day as to who is going to be dropping back down into Group B.
It certainly does look like that as well. As we go back in the pack to Sebastian Job, the driver who's been making up the most places so far, up to 8th position as it stands, because Stetsenko not able to get past him this time round. Kevin Ellis Jr. has found himself in amongst Benito and Bennett here as well, down towards the back end of the pack, so he's got some work to do. After qualifying in the top half, Kevin Ellis Jr. is now outside of the top 10, and it needs to start making some of these overtakes here. As we go back to Jeff Rietveld, he is leading ahead of Josh Rogers, then it's Darren McCormack, Jordan Caruso, Dane Warren, Charlie Collins, the top 6, excuse me. Here comes Josh Rogers, inside line for the Le Mans chicane, he's straight through.
Certainly so, and let's see if those top two will be chopping and changing a fair amount to try and pull some kind of gap to those behind. It's not going to work out because McCormack is also right there, and it's kind of one of those ones where you've got to look at these three and think, right, how do they battle without losing time? How do they almost work together despite being in separate teams to not allow Caruso, Warren and Collins to close the way back in? Meanwhile, Josh Rogers is sat there probably being like, no, battle with me really hard, really unnecessarily hard, so that then they can drag those other three back into it. Side by side between the top two, McCormack could have made it 3 wide there as he got right onto the brakes, almost into the rear end of Rietveld. This is that side by side that I was talking about. Rogers intentionally leaving it side by side here down at the first corner. He doesn't want to be setting quick lap times. He wants his teammates back in the fight.
Yeah, I'm not sure how intentional it is, but it's certainly he's certainly not displeased by it. Here comes McCormack, inside line, no, not quite, on the exit of the corner there, but this is all helping his teammates. Here comes Warren, and there they are, 3 in a line just in the background there, as Porsche Granda look to put this one out of sight already here, further on down the field. Here comes Rogers into the inside line, no, not on this occasion. They can see the top 6 all in a line further back. The bottom 3 are all together as well here, but this is all very close. Rietveld versus Rogers for the race win. How many times have we seen that over the course of R1's history? The two of them battling out it again here.
Yeah, certainly so. Like I said, the first ever winner in R1's history in Jeff Rietveld, and the driver who's got the most victories in Joshua Rogers at 40 victories at the moment for the Porsche Carrera man. Darren McCormack not too far behind. We finally have the driver who's at second on the all-time winners list back into the championship, but he's not going to be challenging for a 31st victory, at least not in this one. Will Sebastian Jobe, whether he will do throughout the evening? I mean, look, you'd have to say the answer, but he's probably going to be contending for at least one of the 3 victories tonight, surely. Whether he's going to take one or not, we'll have to wait and see. His win percentage is incredibly high, is Sebastian Jobe's. But Jeff Rietveld, he's in the comfortable spot at the moment, but is he just going to get passed down into turn 1? All 3 of the other Porsche commanders are back in the fight.
They are, and Rogers is going to come straight through here. The Porsche speed too much. Here comes McCormack though. Will he be more aggressive this time? He will. He's going to try and go for the lead here on the outside line. Steaming through for Virtus Pro on the outside line. And here comes Dave Warren as well. Down in towards turn 1. McCormack slightly too wide. He broke too late there. He probably had too much speed than he knew what to do with. Here comes Rietveld back on the inside again. Here comes Warren again. Inside of 3. Oh, that was close. He tried to force the issue. Can't do it. And McCormack will have to settle for second, will he? Or will Rietveld even stay alongside here? No, not quite. It's pretty close. Oh, and there's contact again. But McCormack does get through into second.
And it's really important that McCormack outscores Rietveld here, gets ahead of Rietveld, stays ahead of Rietveld, because you can see in the top right there the live standings, because both the Virtus Pro driver of Darren McCormack and the Team Redline driver of Jeff Rietveld are scoring so many points for their team comparative to their teammates. They are the ones that are the big, the swing of weight when it comes to the points. They're in the top right. So any position switch between those two, look, if Rietveld gets ahead, they'll be incredibly close in the points, but Virtus Pro, they'll want to stay there, obviously, because they want to be somehow surviving this group. Would be an incredible feat to be able to beat Team Redline on a day like this. We'll have to wait and see. Rieveld's going to have a look down the inside going into the Le Mans chicane. That one's not going to work. We ride on board with Dane Warren, who's staring at the rear end of the top 3. And like I say, it was a very close with contact there between himself and Darren McCormack. And I think McCormack, by the way, might be about to take over the race lead down at the T1.
Well, I don't know. It's going to be a real big battle in towards turn 1. I think there's any number of drivers who could come out the other side with the lead, but let's see who it is as Darren McCormack now works his way on the way towards that start-finish line with Rietveld in tow. Is he going to make it 3 wide for the first time? McCormack had to pull out a little just early enough there to get alongside, and he does. Side-to-side contact with Josh Rogers down in towards turn 1. Rogers holds the the best line though, and he'll keep the lead this time around, and Rietveld has to get back into line as well here. Oh, just taps the brakes as well. Here comes Warren. No, they can't make anything work on this occasion. The big BMW in the way, and there goes Charlie Collins around the outside as well. The Porsche's changed positions.
Yeah, little dab of the brakes there from Warren to sit in behind. Then Charlie Collins on the exit of the International Horseshoe. He did tap the rear end of the Dutchman of Jeff Rietveld, just to basically say, you're right, mate, I'm here. But, like I say, it was all a little bit sketchy in there as Sebastian Jobes dropped back behind Kevin Ellis Jr. And so Redline's struggles continue in the top right. It would now be a 14-point margin between Virtus Pro and Team Redline. Oh, this is not what we were expecting at all. at all from Team Redline as Ellis Jr. and Sebastian Jobe continue to battle. It keeps flicking around between the two of them in 9th and 10th position, but yeah, this is it's not a good way to start for Team Redline. Let's go with that.
No, they've got to all beat Culminates Jr. there. They've got 3 of them for 1 of him, and so they've got to beat him there and just reduce the points deficit just a little bit here. If Darren McCormack wins the race, then suddenly it gets more difficult. Suddenly maybe that pegs Porsche Coanda back into the fray, but maybe not. Let's see, though, as we see the run towards turn 1. McCormack now helping Rogers, so a bit of an inter-team alliance being formed here between the two of them as they try and keep Jeff Rietveld away. Is it going to last all the way towards turn number 1? It might well do.
Yeah, indeed. But like you say, he's hoping that both Collins and Warren kind of try and force a move there on Rietveld. They've left it a little bit late. They all go side by side. A bit of a look to the inside coming in from Dane Warren. Charlie Collins gets straight to the outside of Jeff Rietveld, and it might be Darren McCormack with a bit of a look once again coming in from the Dutchman behind. Squeezes him off there at turn 2, so close to the barrier once more. Darren McCormack's going to hang on to 2nd position, but the gap is now being filled by Charlie Collins. A bit of a lean for the Porsche Commander man as he tries to squeeze his way past Team Redline's Jeffrey Rietveld, but cannot do so just yet. They head up to the dogleg side by side. They're battle for 3rd position, but it's still Rogers leading from McCormack, leading from Rietveld, leading from Collins. That might change now, though. Big move to the inside coming in from Rietveld as we head into the West Horseshoe.
You might as well give Rogers the win now as well, because the gap's going to grow. Here comes McCormack on the inside line. He's going to have the position, at least the ideal line on the inside line. And now he's going to be freight trained. Jeffrey Rietveld, he's got to be careful of this here as Charlie Collins tries to sneak into that gap. Rietveld wanted to sneak in there, but he couldn't do it. Rietveld tried to hit the brakes and sneak in, but he's going to get freight trained now by the teammates. Here comes Dane Warren as well. And Jordan Caruso's going to go as well. Team Redline in trouble. Big trouble here at Daytona as Jeffrey Rietveld drops to 6th position.
Yeah, and look at that on the top right. Just 11 points for Team Redline. Now, Darren McCormack, he'll be pretty happy with that all 3 Porsche Commanders come through until he realises, oh, hang on a sec, I've got 2 more laps to try and deal with this. Could this end up being a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Porsche Commander? We have never seen that in R1. Today could be the day if they all manage to work their way past. We saw how well 3 Porsches can work in Group D when we saw the Falcons team work with it. And now comes the freight train being dished out to McCormack. There goes 1. There goes 2. Will it be 3 by T1? And will Rietveld come through as well?
Oh, the quadruple slipstream for Jeffrey Rietveld, who's trying to rescue Team Redline's afternoon. Outside line of 3. He's not going to make that work. And Jordan Caruso's going to get straight back ahead of him here. And Porsche Coanda have got 4 in the top 5. This is fantastic work from them. They are almost giving themselves the victory before we've even started here at Daytona. It's Virtus Pro who are putting Team Redline in the relegation places right now. Darren McCormack's flashing his headlights. Not sure what that is trying to say to the guys in front of him, but Charlie Collins is the one who's receiving the message, and he's currently holding on to 2nd, but how long's that going to go on for? Meanwhile, in the background, Wojciech Fiala enters the battle.
Yeah, indeed. And again, it could be some more important points here for Virtus Pro, who could be starting out the evening in a relatively successful way. There'll be frustrations, I'm sure, for Virtus Pro and McCormack that they're not in contention for victory despite having such good pace to potentially take them on. But it's been an exciting start to the evening. But Redline struggles. That is the highlight here at the moment. We'll have a lap and a bit left to go here at the World Centre of Racing at the Daytona International Speedway to try and sort it out. Always was going to happen. Charlie Collins hanging on to 2nd spot. McCormack had a little bit of a lift behind him to stay behind. Caruso was always going to look down the inside, decided better of it, lifted, backed off, now looks to secure some decent points of the team. But I do get the feeling here, Ewan, that McCormack might get a bit of a freight train once again as he tries to sit behind Collins. He's trying to make sure that Collins is going relatively quickly.
Yeah, Fiala's got to come and rescue him here because there's no way he can fight off these 3 Porsches on his own. And Collins is just going to sit on that line there. And McCormack's going to go backwards. Porsche Coanda putting themselves into position for maximum points here. McCormack can't do anything on the way to the line here. It's the final lap of the race. He's doing all he can, but at the moment he's got no assistance. Rietveld and Fiala are just too far back right now. And Porsche Coanda are going to have 1, 2, 3 and 4 if Dane Warren can get through on the inside line here. The 2 teammates up side by side in front, and it's 3 wide. McCormack trying to go through the middle here.
Yeah, this is getting sketchy as there goes through Dane Warren. Then he's worked his way up into third position. Charlie Collins drops in behind Darren McCormack after a 3-wide bit of contact. You could say for McCormack the frustration is building and building and building as Porsche Commander try and play games to make it 1, 2, 3 and 4. Still going side by side up ahead of them and still going side by side for fourth position as well. Charlie Collins got to the inside. Behind, as you can see, Jeff Reebell and Wojtek Fiala going side by side. It's the final lap of the race and I don't know which way this is going to go.
And Collins is going to get freight trained himself now. He's got no teammates to help him. Do they go up and try and save him there and risk losing more? Or do they just leave him out there and accept that he's going to go to the back and they've just accepted it? Fiala wasn't close enough to benefit. So in towards the Le Mans chicane for the final time. Where do they want to be? Here comes Charlie Collins. Oh, that's close to the double yellow line on the bottom of the racetrack there. And here comes Fiala. Reebound's got Collins down his inside, but he can't get past out of the corner. Where on earth are they going to end up over the line here?
Yeah, this is going to be a big drag race. This is going to be very, very impressive. Ahead of all of this by 3 seconds, it's going to be a 41st victory from Joshua Rogers. We've got to keep our eye on all this, though, because look at how much it's going to chop and change. It's like the end of the 500 as we come through the final corner. Rogers will cross the line to take victory, but who's going to be second? Who's going to be third? There's Rogers across the line, but what else are we going to get? It's going to be a 1, 2, 3 for Porsche Commander. Darren McCormack trying to throw himself into it, almost with Reveld as well. McCormack is frustrated with how that race is unfolded, and still he scored better than Redline and has outscored his teammates and is the best of the rest, basically. What a frustrating race that must have been. What an incredible drive, though. And what an incredible race.
Yeah, fantastic race. Absolutely fantastic. And that's exactly the kind of entertainment you expect and hope from Daytona. And who else but this man to take the race victory? Porsche Commander's 13th of 2025 and his first since we were racing at Fuji a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago as it was now. Fantastic drive from Rogers, but what a great battle to the line. And I think the reason McCormack's so unimpressed with himself is not because they've beaten Team Redline. Obviously, he's very pleased about that, but he will feel he could have got more out of that race.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can only begin to imagine how frustrating the race must be when you're in the middle of everything and you have no assistance from your teammates. It's just you. And obviously it would have been the same for Rietveld there as well. You've got no assistance from your teammates. You're trying to beat Redline or Virtus Pro, whichever side of the coin that you fall. And then you've got Porsche Commander playing the games, rightfully so, to try and make it a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's so difficult. It's so hard to judge, and it's so frustrating to deal with. McCormack will probably be pretty happy that he's got about 45 minutes away from the racing so that he can cool down. And honestly, I get it. Like, that must be so incredibly frustrating because there's so little you can do as a driver.
Yeah, but that's where you need your teammates around you. I know Wojtek Fiala was closing in towards the end, but he came in really too late to really have any impact on that race. Kevin Ellis Jr., if he'd just got off to a better start, would have been up there with McCormack, and then all of a sudden it gets easier. But 4-on-1 for the start of that race, and then 3-on-1 at the end, it's almost impossible for you on your own.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that was a very impressive performance for Porsche Commander. Less so impressive when it came to Redline, basically all at the back of the field, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's super surprising as well. I guess the result is not because of something that we were hoping that was going to be good from them. We were hoping that their teamwork was going to be good through the races, and it was. But the problem was that they started so far down the field. That was the big problem. It's qualifying where they came unstuck a little bit in that one. That's how they've ended up so far down the field.
Well, this was the early drama. Enzo Benito having a bit of a moment with Luke Bennett, and the two of those would be plummeted all the way down the rear end of the field. And this was up towards the front. Rietveld taking over the race lead from Joshua Rogers. They kind of had this battle a few times in this form. Obviously on board here with Darren McCormack, trying to throw his way back into the mix. Rietveld in a little bit deep to secure the race lead. Obviously, they would chop and change so many times that the order would be all over the place. This was McCormack's attempt to get around the outside, side by side between the top two, and it allowed the rest of the group to close their way in. The rest of the group being 3 feisty Porsche Commanders, the first of which would be Charlie Collins. He'd be knocking at the door then to try and work his way past. Jordan Caruso would be off the rear of the train to touch, but then would close his way back in as they would all freight train Jeff Rietveld with a couple of laps left to go. Jordan Caruso filling the gap that Jeff Rietveld just about left open, courtesy of the duo of Dane Warren and Charlie Collins to his inside, up towards the line for the last lap of the race, I believe, as Rietveld would be out to the final corner, to the outside of the first corner, trying to work his way through, but couldn't quite make that one stick. Big battling up ahead and great driving indeed. This is McCormack trying to throw his way down the inside. Had a little bit of contact with, I think it was Dane Warren on his inside and Charlie Collins on his out. And this was the final run up towards the line. Just thousandths separating a 6-car group in fantastic battling around here. I mean, look, you can see how close those gaps were, but it was indeed a fantastic 41st victory for Joshua Rogers. Dane Warren then in second position with Jordan Caruso in third. McCormack in fourth position with Rietveld in fifth, the highest of the red line drivers. And then it's Charlie Collins in sixth position, Wojtek Fiala in seventh, Kevin Ellis Jr. with Luke Bennett, Sebastian Jobe, Mikhail Stetsenko and Enzo Benito rounding out the field. We'll now have a little chat with our race winner, because of course it's time to speak to the man himself. Josh Rogers has joined us. Now, for you, that was almost a relatively simple drive once you were able to break away from the rest of the field. What were those early laps like when you had obviously Rietveld all over you and you had McCormack there as well? How stressful and how tense is the battling around here?
Hey guys, yeah, stressful is an understatement, I think. Draft was a bit stronger than we were expecting coming into this round, and it obviously changes the way we have to race things a little bit. And Daytona as well it's one of those tracks where it's 90% strategy and the rest just kind of falls into place. So awesome job from the team, obviously, to have all the cars in the top 6 and the top 3 locked out is pretty huge, and obviously really good for us points wise as well. But yeah, some pretty chaotic racing, even in the first laps, to be honest. Like, you're just trying to position yourself in the best place possible to keep you safe, one, and being defensive in the right spots, but also then choosing, when to maybe work with other cars to try and build gaps. But it's always fun, and I enjoy races like this.
You mentioned that points gap. It's going to be over 40 points to Virtus Pro and Redline, who are quite close between the two of them, but you're a long way out in front. How does that change the strategy before race 2 and 3?
Not at all, honestly. Realistically, to be anywhere near safe, we still need another result exactly the same as what we had there. So, still same focus. We'll push forward, try and to score some strong results again, and see what we can do. But it doesn't change it at all. We're full push and trying to score maximal points.
As professional as ever, from the first victory to the 41st. Well done, Josh.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
There we go. Yet another victory. Very impressive it has been from Josh Rogers. And for Porsche Commander there, 1, 2 and 3. Obviously, Charlie Collins letting the side down with only 6th place. An incredible points haul from the team. And once again, a double performance. I'm pretty sure that is the highest points haul that we've had so far.
Ooh, I'll double check.
Thanks.
It's got to be up there, hasn't it? It's got to be. I feel like Redline 2 weeks ago at Jeddah had a similar score, but it may not have been quite that high. So you might be right. They did come very close to going 1, 2, 3, and 4 though. And as you said at the time, that would be the first time in the dynamic group phase. Are we saying first time ever? Because we did see Williams do it in the last chance qualifier in 2024 at Saudi. So I'm not sure whether to count it or not. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, if we get to it.
I would, because we would count it if it was in Group D, if it was a 1, 2, 3, and 4.
True. So
in that sense, that we would count it in the last chance qualifier. So it would be then the second time that would happen. I don't remember that happening. Did it really happen? Did they go 1, 2, 3, 4?
I'm pretty. I've got a 95% sure memory of that. Yes, I'm fairly sure that did happen. It was race 1, I remember, and it effectively won them the group from minute 1. And the rest of the day wasn't particularly interesting because the other two teams were just sort of scrapping it out for who was going to be second and third, and therefore knocked out of the competition on the Saturday. So I'm pretty sure that's how it went at Fuji, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, here's the thing, right? You can use your phone to go onto the RENNSPORT app, which you can get obviously from either the Play Store or the Apple App Store, and you can look the information up because it's all on there. There you go. There's the QR code from you. And Ewan O'Leary is 100% right. It was Fuji. It was race 1 of the day. It was McCormack. It was Dennis Schoeniger. It was Daniel Pashtor. It was Dom Blyer. The team of Ds, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Either way, speaking of Ds, we're back in Group D, and it's Henry Moore, driving around the circuit, of course, as he goes his way into the West Horseshoe. And Moore will be the first driver in qualifying for race number 2.
Yeah, trying to put Guild up there in contention for a promotion out of Group D for the very first time. As we've mentioned before, it's been such a struggle for them ever since they were put here after the seeding phase. As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, it feels like they've been a little bit stuck there ever since the first week of racing. And this time round, they don't seem to be getting that much closer. Henry Moore, though, will be out there first, as you can see, in towards the Le Mans chicane now for the first time. He's about to see how he stacks up against his teammate. And he's gone 1/10 quicker, or even less than that, about half a tenth quicker, which I'm sure he'll be pretty pleased with.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what he can do up towards the line. Again, remember the times that they are aiming for in this qualifying session. It was the pole time from this group. Let's see, we have 38. Was it 0.8? Wasn't it earlier on in the round with Tatler? So basically aiming for that.
Yeah. Tatler was 0.8, yeah. Rogers did a 0.7 in his pole time. Henry Moore is going to do a 44.0. That would be a good job if that's pole.
Yeah, can confirm that will not be the pole time of 40.0. However, he might be able to beat his teammate Matt Emery, who's just got a slowdown penalty as he works his way through the Le Mans chicane. So he'll be comfortably ahead of Emery. But again, Guild, they're looking to beat or to beat ERA. Falcons, that's a tall order and probably almost impossible. But realistically, the focus will be in ERA and scoring that extra point to get 2 points onto the board, which would double their points score, which at the moment is 2.
Yeah. When you compare that to 23 for Redline and Porsche Commander, you start to realise what a massive job they have on their hands to even go to the Esports World Cup at the end of this competition in 2025. As Jakub Masiewski, now the race 1 winner, makes his way all the way towards the line. He did a great job in race 1 with the assistance of his teammates, in fairness, but he did a good job, and this should be the first 43 of the day. Falcons are taking this by the scruff of the neck. That could be up there for pole position, as could this from Thomas Tatler.
Yeah, certainly so. Going 100th or so faster in the first sector, and then another 100th or so faster in the second. Thomas Tatler looking to take control here in the second race of Group D. And again, Falcons looking to really assert their dominance on the group, as we've seen earlier. Their last lap time, so they've gone faster. Obviously, Jakub Masiewski and Thomas Tatler both set exactly the same time in the previous qualifying session. This time, well, they're separated somewhat. A 43.779. Very impressive from Thomas Tatler indeed. That would have been good enough for third place. Sorry, for second place. That would have been good enough for the front row in Group A. Told you, Falcons could do it.
Yeah, that would have been really good in Group A. Honestly, the fact they got knocked out in Fuji of Group B has put a really big dampener on their season. And you know, just a couple of other results on that particular afternoon. They could have been in Group A and could have been right competing with Team Redline and Virtus Pro last week or 2 weeks ago. But anyway, that's the way these things go. It's Tatler and Masiewski 1 and 2 at the moment. Michał Schmiedl moves up to 3rd.
Yeah, indeed. Will Bonnerhouse throw himself into the sub 1 minute 44 gang, or will he have to settle for being around his teammates Henry Moore and Matt Emery? Emery, of course, with the slowdown penalty. Bonnerhouse does not have a slowdown. However, these sector times not looking so great. It's going to be a 1 minute 44, and I think it's going to be behind his teammate Henry Moore. The next driver to come around will be Marco Payet, so we'll get all 4 guilds completed before the end of the session, before rather even really the major part of the halfway point, as there was Bonnerhouse into 5th.
Marco Payet here is going to be qualifying for the first time this afternoon. Don't forget, he had that qualifying ban that he's now served. That was for race number 1. He didn't get any more penalties, by the way, unlike his teammate Matt Emery, which we already spoke about in that first race in Group D. There's a lot more penalties from Group A for us to talk about in a few minutes' time as well, by the way, but we'll get to that later. Marco Payet goes on line 44.1. He has had a difficult season.
Yeah, certainly so. The driver who won the final of round 6 of all time in R1. That was a long time ago, though. This driver was also racing on that day, but it was for a very different team. It was for FaZe, was Ulash Yildirim, as we welcome him back into the R1 Championship. Up towards the line. Fastest first sector of everyone. The second sector's not too bad as he heads his way up towards the line. Where's he going to find himself? Ahead of his teammate Schmiedl, ahead of Jakub Masiewski. 43.8. Very good lap time from Yildirim.
Very good lap. And that just shows that ERA have got a decent chance of competing with Falcons here. They just needed a better race 1, really. They've got to gain points now in race 2 and make it a manageable gap for that final race of the day. And they might have a chance of getting promoted here out of Group D. Let's see what Ibrahim Khan can do. He got a post-race 5-second time penalty, by the way. So that will have dropped him a bit further down. So don't be surprised when you see the live points where we start this race, by the way. 6th place is where he's going to go to with that lap.
Cam Pavlovsky then has got a slowdown penalty, so he'll be starting back with the Guilds. Unfortunately, at the rear end of the field, he'll be back alongside Matt Emery. So for Pavlovsky, this lap time won't necessarily matter, and it's the second time that he's done that today. He started on the final row of the previous race, so he'll be starting back there as well. We'll have to refocus ourselves to Stableford and Lamanek in just a second to see what the final real lap times will do in this session. Let's see what Pavlovsky does across the line, whether he's at least ahead of Emery or not. Across the line, he will indeed be comfortably ahead of Matt Emery.
And now Robbie Stapleford for ERA. As Udrum and Smeedle up there is very good news for them, and of course Ibrahim Khan as well. But Stapleford has been their best driver so far this season. If he can stay up there and get a good lap in here as well, then this could be very good news indeed for ERA as Robbie Stapleford makes his way up towards the line. What is the time going to be? This could be decent here. 43.9. It is 4th place, and ERA are right in the game here.
Yeah, certainly so. Lamanek not particularly pleased with his run out of the Le Mans chicane, or maybe he was. I don't know. He was gesturing. Let's go with that. He certainly hasn't got a slowdown penalty though, as he works his way out through the final corner. There's some gesturing happening in the commentary booth, but it's not quite as aggressive as it was coming out there from Lamanek up towards the line. Maybe he's going to dip his head behind the steering wheel, karting style, increase the slipstream of the car. You know, go for all that kind of tactics. Across the line, he's going to go. It's going to go up to 5th position. So there's Falcons and ERA, then Falcons and ERA, then Falcons and ERA. And then we finally see our first Guild in that qualifying session. But it is Thomas Tadler back on top once again. He was on the front row in the previous race, missing out on qualifying on pole position by 0.000. Sets a time though good enough for second in Group A and sits on pole position here for race number 2.
So was that happy gesturing or angry gesturing from Lemanek? I can't quite tell.
Happy.
It was very middle of the field, though. It wasn't that particularly too good or particularly bad, so I don't really know.
Ruthless. That's a brutal critique.
It's almost exactly middle of the road in terms of time. Yeah. So, was that aggressive middle of the road gesturing? Anyway, Team Falcons have got the best points all from race 1, as you can see. 61 for them, 32 ahead of ERA and 42 ahead of that can't be right, but anyway, 33 ahead of ERA, 42 ahead of Guild. So both of those two teams, ERA and Guild, have got to gain points in this race, and then also in the next one as well. You're not likely to knock all of that gap off in one race, to be honest, so you've got to do it in increments. As you said though, Falcons and ERA are sort of alternating and going to be on the same line, if you like, in towards turn number 1 first time round. And this is how Thomas Tattler set the best lap time. Yet again, another Porsche here. 3 out of 3 so far for Porsche in qualifying.
Yeah, 1 minute 43.779. And if the Porsches are this strong in qualifying, I'm not saying it's the car, but if they were to be this strong in qualifying, I'm pretty sure groups B and C will be looking at thinking, oh, thank goodness we don't have one of those to deal with, because there will be no Porsches out in groups B and C. We have all of them here in action tonight. Of course, you've got Porsche Commander in Group A, and then we have the other 2 Porsche teams of ERA and the Falcons here in Group D. Very impressive lap time. Not quite as clean and as calm and as collected as his teammate Masiejewski when he grabbed this pole position, or Josh Rogers earlier on. A little bit more tail happy, a little bit more pushing the car through the corner, which kind of makes sense for Tatler. He does kind of drive a little bit aggressively, and that works for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on how you like driving these cars and what your own style is, as he now makes his way through the NASCAR banking on the way towards the Le Mans chicane. Just notice how he keeps it to the left for a little bit longer there, just to shorten the distance a little bit of the racetrack. Down in towards the Le Mans chicane, just banging it down into 4th gear to keep it through all the way. Very smoothly done, though, through that Le Mans chicane. And then that run up towards the line. But pole position hasn't always meant so much in these races at Daytona. He's got to now convert and help his teammates a little bit as well to a good points haul for Falcons at the first race.
That said, pole position in both of the races so far this evening has been converted into victory. Masiejewski, victory from pole position in the Group D race earlier on. Of course, Josh Rogers in the previous race for Group A was also victorious. Whether he'll be able to do so, we'll have to wait and see. But I'd say based on everything, Thomas Tatler's going to be a hard man to beat in this. The thing is, because of how it is, obviously Falcons and ERA, that means that you're starting in line with all of your teammates. I wonder how that's going to play going down into T1.
Yeah, they could almost cancel each other out, really, when they're all lined up like that. So we'll see how they play it, but I think it is interesting that they are lined up like that. Just remains to be seen how they can really use that and how Guild can get amongst it as well. They've got to do something from there, otherwise they're going to be retired to finishing at last for the 3rd week in a row. They've got to try and get in amongst the top 2 teams somehow, but you just can't see how it's going to be done for the moment. There's Robbie Stapleford, who's going to have a pretty big job as well. I guess the only difference is ERA from the outside line might find it a bit more difficult than Falcons, who will be all lined up on the inside.
Certainly so. I mean, look, I will say for ERA, this is kind of like an interesting. They're looking to bury Guild into the ground, right? That's got to be their main focus here, because I genuinely think that even. Look, I understand the whole, like, you've got to come into it with confidence. You've got to be expecting to be able to maybe beat Falcons and all that and the other, but there's delusional confidence, and that can be sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. And I think going into this race, being realistic about what the goal is. Obviously, outscoring Falcons will be up there, but you've got to accept that maybe it won't go that way.
Well, it's all 4 Guilds who are down at the bottom, and they might well be burying themselves here in this Group D qualifying session. Emery at the back alongside Kamil Pavlovsky, who has qualified about where he finished in race 1. Then it is Pajic and House on row 5 ahead of Ibrahim Khan, the last of the ERAs. They're all lined up on the outside. Khan just behind Michał Schmiedl, just behind Robbie Stapleford, just behind Ulas Azildrim. On the other side, Henry Moore is on the back of the 3 Falcons, Promislav Lemonek, Jakub Masiewski and Tomas Tatler on the other side of the grid. I'm not sure we've seen in this group phase, this dynamic group phase, teams lined up quite like that, and we'll see how Falcons can use that to their advantage in race number 2.
See how ERA can. They're all one big train. They can literally take control of this race using the bum drive. Look, they'll be wishing we were doing the full oval here, because they are literally perfectly positioned there on the outside. I'm sure they'll be hiring a photographer to maybe take some snaps of that. It almost looks choreographed, but of course that's just how qualifying has fallen here. For ERA though, there's going to be some important points just to keep Guild at bay, but again, if they actually want to progress their way through into the Esports World Cup, it's not just ERA that needs to be taken on here. They need an awesome result against Falcons to close that gap and to pass them.
They certainly do. Let's see how they can do it in towards turn number 1 on this opening lap of the race. Race 2 in Group D. You can see the job they've got on their hands on the top right of your screen as we get the second race underway. Azildrim just a little bit behind the launch there as Masiewski immediately gets alongside him, but he breaks late to Azildrim and he'll have a chance. Oh, big slide in the mid-pack meantime from Lemonek. By the looks of things, he's gone. Oh, into the wall big time for Primislav Lemonek, straight in front of the field there, and some of the Guild drivers who've got caught up in that. Pavlovsky as well. Falcons in a bit of trouble, but they are still 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's Jakub Masiewski who's worked his way past Ulas Azildrim. Like you said, it was a pretty slow start. Henry Moore's had a great one, though, up into 4th position, passing a couple of those ERA cars. He now sits ahead of Robbie Stapleford and Michał Schmiedl. But you've got to say, yeah, there's a bit of a slide in the middle of all. I think it might have been Bonnerhouse who just clipped the rear end of Lemonek as he was having a bit of a moment coming out of T1. There were some big slides coming in from the Falcons team. And like you say, as much as they're 1 and 2, they're also 11th and 12th. We'll see what they're like towards the end of the race, though. They're still really comfortable in those live standings, but Ulas Azildrim, he'll be desperate to try and sneak his way into it.
Yeah, it's just a problem for them that Henry Moore has got in amongst the ERAs. It really is a big problem, that the fact he's in 4th position, he's doing his job for Guild at the moment and trying to get them out of the bottom place. But for the ERA guys, it's a bit irritating, I'd imagine. Here comes Stapleford down the inside in the meantime, and he gets through. There goes Ibrahim Khan in the background as well, flying down the inside in towards the Le Mans chicane. So there's a few extra points, but the gap's still large. They would gain on Falcons here, but it would be very minimal.
Yeah, both Stapleford and Ibrahim Khan will be making those moves. Of course, the 2 of those drivers effectively on loan to the ERA team from BS competition. So I'm sure Florian Harsper, we're taking a bit of a look to seeing what's happening with his drivers in this. At the moment, though, they're working quite well to get themselves ahead of the guild driver of Henry Moore, who's saying absolutely not, thank you very much, as he throws himself back into the mix in the fight for 4th position. Big slide out there from Robbie Stableford. Was that contact, or was that just exuberant driving from Robbie Stableford as Henry Moore's worked his way up now into 4th?
We will see and find out later as Ibrahim Khan tries to overcome the 2 up ahead of him as well here. The problem for ERA is that half of their drivers are battling on their own against a pairing of teammates here. You can see it in the background for Ibrahim Khan as he battles away with Marco Pejic and Matt Emery. You can see it out front as Ulas Zildren tries to get in amongst the Falcons in 1 and 2. That's very, very difficult to do when you're on your own, as we've spoken about time and again here. As we look in the bottom of your screen, Khan's still side by side with Marco Pejic, and now he just get through, but this is difficult when you're on your own. And now Henry Moore is bringing Stapleford and Schmiedel into the clutches of Matt Emery, so it's becoming a bigger group and allowing the front 3 to get away.
Yeah, indeed, and he might need a bit of assistance from his teammate of Matt Emery, Will Henry Moore there. That said, the late race pace of Mikael Schmiedel was really strong in the previous one. He was able to close his way up and battle late on in the previous race for Group D. A little bit of a look to the inside from Robbie Stableford, but let me tell you something. I've commentated on Henry Moore for the last couple of years, racing in Formula 4s, racing in British Formula 4 Esports. He knows what he's doing when it comes to getting his elbows out. Those championships, you have to be racy. It's not as if you just check out into the distance and just drive good laps. You have to be a bit elbows out. You have to be a bit racy. So Henry Moore will be well versed with doing battle here. Whether he's able to keep Robbie Stableford and Mikael Schmiedel at bay will be a very different prospect, though. Side by side, potentially coming in for the race lead, but not from the 2 teammates. Ulas Zildren throws himself into the mix.
Side by side again, outside for 2nd again. But Masiewski holds on again, just on the inside line. But Tatala in the way a little bit here, and that could allow Azildren to get a bit of a chance. He might well dive down the inside for the lead here. Oh, that was close. And there might have been a slight bit of contact as well. There may well have been. Tatala goes wide. I think Azildren's trying to give the place back here. As on the outside line, Masiewski is trying to get involved. At the very least, Azildren is slowing the group down and allowing his teammates to get back involved here. As Stapleford and Schmiedel are now 4th and 5th, maybe they can get back into the game.
But look at the train this is going to cause. This is not just 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cars that will be rejoining this battle for the race lead. The final 2 of those is this one, Ibrahim Khan versus Marco Pejic. A little bit of a leaning on between the 2 of them as they head their way through T6, and Marco Pejic forces his way back through on Khan.
Well, this is suddenly a very large group. 9 are involved by the looks of it, although Khan and Pejic might be taking each other out the back as it stands. There come the 2 ERAs in the background and 2 guilds as well, of Moore and Emery trying to get involved, and Azildren trying to slow down the Falcons as much as possible into the Le Mans chicane. He seems to have been successful. There goes Khan. Oh, steaming on the inside line of the bus stop chicane again. He's through into 8th place, though. He's rather having a 2-driver battle, really, a private battle with Marco Pejic.
Look, Ibrahim Khan's having 2 battles there at the moment. One of them's with Marco Pejic and the other one's with track limits. He was all over the place going through the Le Mans chicane as if I turned on the British Touring Car Championship. Let's see what happened then down into turn 1 with this battling and how everything kind of unfolded, and of course the spins coming out of T1.
Yeah, try and pick the bones out of this one. So how did Azildren first of all lose second? So that's pretty simple. Side-to-side contact for Lemonek, then there was more side-to-side contact, and then there was a further bit, and unfortunately for Pavlovsky, that Guild Esports driver just was straight in front of him and he didn't really have anywhere to go. That was Bono House, by the way, the Aston Martin involved. So yeah, not really sure how Race Control will call that one. As far as I'm aware, they're not even looking at it as it stands.
And do you know what? I don't think they would. Like, if I were at least looking at it, that just seems like a little bit of racing, like a racing incident. Like they're all just kind of vying for the same bit of track. They're all kind of leaning all over each other. It's the opening corner. They're trying to get a little bit feisty. I think that'll go down as a racing incident. This one's not, though, as Jakub Masiewski is losing ground now. Ulas Zildren has worked his way through as Thomas Tatler now built a gap. Bit of contact there. Falcons are going to get freight trained here. 1, 2, and potentially 3 ERA cars trying to work their way through. Trying to scare him up the circuit was Robbie Stableford as he was steering a little bit right, coming out onto NASCAR 1 and 2. And Jakub Masiewski, fresh with a victory, well, fresh down to 5th spot.
This all of a sudden is putting ERA right into the picture here as they try and get promoted out of Group D for the first time. Khan and Payet again on the inside. Payet goes through. In the background, here comes Henry Moore and Matt Emery, by the way, as Guild tried to do the impossible here and get themselves up towards the front as well. This could be a bad lap for Jakub Maciejewski as he goes backward for Team Falcons in that Porsche. Here we go onto the banking again here. Tumas Tattler leads by some distance. They've got some space to work into here, and Guild Esports are going to be coming on the outside line. Here comes Moore, and then Matt Emery in the back of him here. There he is, just in the background, and they're going to go side by side of the line. Good straight line speed though from the Porsches. The Aston Martins can't go anywhere where they're bump drafting each other on the outside line. It stays as it is in towards turn one. Now, can the ERA drivers catch up to Tumas Tattler out front?
Yep, certainly so. This is going to get very interesting indeed. Like I said, side by side behind all this between Marco Pech and Ibrahim Khan as well. So more points potentially going the way of ERA versus Guild. Although there is Pech down the inside and a bit of leaning between them, a bit of frustration starting to brew between Khan and Pech. And for Ibrahim Khan, this might be a little bit problematic because he's going to get caught potentially by Bonnehouse as well as he tries to fight his way through on Marco Pech. It's very messy, the racing between these two, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not very orderly at all, but there you go. Why would you expect it to be, I suppose? Khan versus Payet going to continue on. House might well catch them, actually. Depends how much he battles with Kamo Pavlovsky down at the back end of the field. But this is exactly what ERA need. I think they'd take this, to be honest. If they had the option to end the race now, I think they'd take this. They might be able to feel that they can get some more out of the race, so maybe they will continue to try and fight for that. But 16 points deficit is not bad at all at the end of this race, as Payet is going to stay behind Khan for the first time in a while in towards the Mont Chicane.
The only problem for ERA right now is where are they potentially gaining more points from? Because the only real way, like if Ulash Zildra and Robbie Stableford and Mikko Schmid will work together, then Jakub Maciejewski might throw them way back into it. But they all do need to work together to try and close down Tumas Tattler. But is that gap slightly too large? And then the other battle that you could potentially see is Ibrahim Khan closing his way back up to that group if they started slowing things down. But is that likely? Is that going to potentially cost them more points? It's actually not an easy one at the moment for ERA to gain any more points in this one. They need perfect driving. It's a tough one. Like I say, I think that they'll take the position they're currently in, but I actually think they're going to lose out more points towards the end of the race. I think Falcons will gain some more here.
Well, there is Maciejewski trying to gain one more, but not able to. I think they've just given Azildram a lap there to see what he can do in terms of trying to close on Tattler. They've seen the gap stay at 1.2 seconds, excuse me, and now they've said to Robbie Stapleford, it's your turn to try and drive this gap down as best you can, and that is a fair thing to do, I think, based on the pace so far this season. Stapleford's got a little bit more of it, but Tattler at the moment looks like he's strong enough to hold on to this race lead. The problem for him is that there are 4 laps to go, including the one they're on at the moment.
Yeah, there's still, relatively speaking, plenty of time left to go in this race. Plenty of time to make up some moves. Plenty of time to dish some overtakes out and get some more points. For Kamo Pavlovsky and Lamnek actually no, because he's waiting for after end. But for Kamo Pavlovsky rather, he can gain some more points on Bonnehouse and Ibrahim Khan. Maybe even Marco Pech as well if he's able to fight his way into it. Matt Emery sits behind his teammate Henry Moore into the Le Mans chicane. Could Gilby get to score some more points in this race? It does seem as though Tattler, without any mistakes, is going to run this one into the checkered flag. But Stableford's only 1.2 seconds behind, and that gap has been pretty stable. Stableford's a quick driver as well. Maybe there'll be something special for him.
There's the huge shove from Matt Emery onto the back of Henry Moore, and now he'll just sit there in behind in that Aston Martin by the looks of it, and they get that little bit closer. Here comes Azildram, by the way, on Stableford as they're changing places for ERA again. Not sure quite why, because Maciejewski's under pressure here. Normally you change positions to try and keep your places effectively, change positions between your teammates to keep other teams at bay, but Maciejewski's going backwards here, and it's Henry Moore and Matt Emery who are both closing in. Maciejewski just not with quite the speed that he had in race 1 by the looks of this right now.
Henry Moore and Matt Henry. That's fine. No, I will say, obviously, Ulash Zildren retaking over the race lead there from Robbie Stableford. The lead of that group, rather, from Robbie Stableford up into second position. They're trying the classic team time trial, using the slipstream to work your way back through into. Don't you pull any faces at me? You know you like a good cycling reference. But it is true. You know, you want someone at the front, and then you use the slipstream to work your way through, and blah blah blah, and you keep that rotation going. it doesn't. It does work, but it's so hard to make work. It needs to be practiced to do it well. I remember we've seen it before in special events, obviously, out there, like an iRacing, things like that, where you do like the Daytona 24 hour, and you see this kind of switching constantly through the race. If done well, it is so solid to gain unreal lap time. I remember Apex doing, obviously MSI in this season, doing it really, really well back in the day. At the moment, though, that has actually cost them 2/10 rather than gained them anything.
Yeah, it's so far been pretty difficult for Draft to really work on closing this lead. There goes Emery's shove again on Henry Moore, but I think Guild are going to finish up 6th and 7th here, to be honest. They don't look like they're going to change. ERA's order of finishing, I think, is going to be decided here as Jakub Masiewski closes in on Azildarum and Schmiedel, who go side by side. And they're just blocking, effectively, the Porsche in behind them here. Who's going to get out in front in the end? Masiewski is going to try and follow the driver, whoever finds themselves out front. But this is where teamwork really plays a factor. Masiewski is trying his very best to get up ahead of the ERA drivers, but just can't do it. There's the slipstream given again. Schmiedel gets it from Azildarum. Masiewski can't get anywhere. He's got no teammates around him at all.
And like I say, you might be looking at those points in the top right thinking, oh, maybe things aren't quite so comfortable for the Falcons team. It's not ridiculously uncomfortable, but it's not comfortable either. We have seen much larger points hauls than, 16, 17, 18 overhauled by teams like Vitality in the first week. There was a 23 point haul that they nearly overcame back in Fuji. Say it saw some of the similar stuff in the last round as well back in Jeddah, where we saw points gaps like that overhauled. So for ERA, definitely not done. Another race like this from them, and maybe they could do it.
Thought it was more than that, by the way. That they overhauled to get very close in Fuji, but anyway, we'll
20 or so.
Okay, maybe I'm giving them more credit than what they deserve at the end of that race. But anyway, meanwhile, Jakub Masiewski is going to get close with this one last chance in towards turn number 1. It's clear that he's not going to slipstream past them because he won't have any help. So, well, maybe I'm going to eat my words on that at the moment. No, not quite. So. Think he's going to have to do it in the infield, and he's going to try very late on the brakes, and he's going to have it. Michał Schmiedel drops a place, and Azildarum has to fight hard to keep him behind as well. He goes so wide, in fact, into Masiewski, that Schmiedel's back on his outside line all over again here, and that chance has been whipped away from him almost as quickly as it presented itself. Inside line again, and Schmiedel still with the upper hand here with the teammates up ahead of him.
Yeah, Masiewski there trying to assist the team to break a century. They're almost there. They just need a little bit more. Masiewski has to drop in behind the two as the two teammates go side by side for some reason, allowing Robbie Stableford to clear his way. That might actually cost Michał Schmiedel by the time they get down to the T6. Bit of contact into the rear end. Jakub Masiewski all over the rear end of Schmiedel. As Karol Pawlowski, by the way, has got himself past Pejec, who's attacking Ibrahim Khan for potentially yet more points for the Falcons team, as they once again try and assert their dominance on Group D. It's certainly not sorted yet, as we'll have a little run to the line here and see if any of these positions are going to switch around yet more so.
Oh, weaving around all over the place. Masiewski's got to worry about what's going on in front of him, and indeed what's going on behind him right now, as he's going to get the triple slipstream from the teammates, the ERA teammates who come through the Le Mans chicane absolutely locked together here. It's lap 9 of 9, the final lap of race 2 in Group T, and it's a good race for ERA as they put the pressure on Team Falcons here. Up towards the line for Jakub Masiewski. Can he get anywhere near Michał Schmiedel here, as Tumas Tatel is going to take the overall victory? Falcons might well get themselves further up the field here with Masiewski. Can ERA hold on to these places? Here they come to the line, they will do. Second, third and fourth for ERA, and Masiewski was very nearly overtaken by Henry Moore at the end there, and so ERA closed the gap even despite Tumas Tatel's third win in 2025.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant racing once again, and very well held by the ERA team. But for Tumas Tatel, much like what we saw from Josh Rogers and his way to victory, it was a little bit of pressure early on and then just a controlled, mistake-free drive from that point on. Third race in the evening then that has seen pole position translated into race victory. Superb stuff from Tumas Tatel.
Yeah, we've seen pole position be a bit of a curse at Fuji, and Jeddah as well in the last couple of weeks, but this week it does seem to be playing a bit of a role as far as who is winning these races. But we've got a battle on our hands for promotion, that much is clear. Group D is certainly providing us with a battle for promotion. It's not just Falcons absolutely drubbing the rest of the field. It is a bit more nuanced than that, and that is a good thing. I think so far in this race as well, we've got our first race of the day with no intervention in penalties from race control, at least so far.
Yeah, look, the race control will still be looking at stuff, you never know. But I also agree, I don't think actually there was, like, thinking back to it, I don't think there was anything major. I mean, look, you can maybe look through this and see if you can find any reason for penalties, but I think we might be safe.
Yeah, I think we might be. Falcons started all lined up on the inside, ERA on the outside, but unfortunately that would be undone pretty quickly as Lemonek got battered from pillar to post there. Firstly from a guild up the rear, then into the side by an ERA as they spun in towards turn 2 in that chicane. That unfortunately held back Pavlovsky and Lemonek for Team Falcons as they lost points. ERA would do a good job in terms of battling through. Michał Schmiedl with a lot of the overtakes on Matt Emery and Henry Moore as well. Those two Aston Martins you can see towards the back end of this group. Bono House will be the one a lot further down the field. He was well in the background, finishing down towards the bottom end of the top 10, but this was Schmiedl through on the inside line into the West Horseshoe as ERA tried to get their ducks in a row. Finally, they just get themselves clear on the way towards turn 6. This is the battle for the win, and it was a bit of a struggle initially for Ulas Yildirim because he was on his own with Tatala and with Maciejewski. He gave a bit of a tap there to Tatala, and he was very courteous in giving Tomasz Tatala that race lead back again. It would continue that battle though with Jakub Maciejewski, who would eventually drop behind all of these ERA drivers because, as we know, when you're a solo driver in amongst a lot of teammates, you can get into trouble very, very quickly. There was a bit of a tap, and there was the freight train on the outside line. Ibrahim Khan and Marko Pejic provided the entertainment through the middle part of the race as they tried to kill each other in towards the bus stop chicane time after time. That was the most recent of those occasions. Side by side in towards turn 1 was a constant in the battle for second. Jakub Maciejewski trying to take it to the ERA drivers time and time again, just couldn't do it. Here was his run on the outside again with no slipstream to help him. He just found it a very, very big struggle, and so ERA would finish second, third and fourth, all in behind Tomasz Tatala, who would take the race victory. 2.6 seconds the gap at the line. Stableford ahead of Yildirim, ahead of Schmiedl among the ERA drivers. Jakub Maciejewski had to settle for 5th. Henry Moore and Matt Emery tried to get him in amongst it, but finished 6th and 7th ahead of Ibrahim Khan and Kamil Pavlovsky, who eventually got ahead of Marko Pejic towards the line there. Bono House finished 11th ahead of Premislav Lemonek, whose result was pretty much confirmed when he spun out of turn 1 on the first lap.
Well, here are the point standings as well, departing the second race, heading into the final. 17 points. 18, I can do maths. My goodness, I'm like you earlier. That was crazy. Team Falcons, it's contagious. Falcons, though, 18 points clear of ERA. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's
Philip
great.
Stam and Hugo Luis just trying to help us out there with the graphics. We can't do maths. Unfortunately, Guild are effectively out of it. They will finish last in this group for the third week in a row. Let's have a chat with the Falcons driver, though, of Tomasz Tatala. Second victory for the team this evening, but of course the first one for Tatala and another one from pole position. It's seeming, though, pole position's being converted into race victory quite a bit this afternoon. Was that expected, or were you expecting a little bit more challenge from the other drivers in the field?
I mean, pole position is best for turn 1 to be on the inside, but anything can happen during the race. Luckily we've had like this race we had Jakub second, and then first race as well we had teammates, so that made it easier to just make sure we at least get the win, and yeah, that's the result.
How confident do you feel that you can get promoted from Group D here tonight with 18 points over ERA? You did lose a bit of your points lead in that second race. There's still one more to go. How confident are you and the team about getting promoted tonight?
I'm pretty confident. Maybe I was a bit more confident before the races, but they obviously have some fast drivers as well, even though we are in Group D. Yeah, I think we are the fastest. We just need to show it on track.
Well, Thomas, your qualifying time was good enough for second place in Group A, so we'll have to wait and see if you can do it again in race number 3, get another pole position. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you.
Yes, thank you.
Thomas Tyler then victorious, and again very comfortably so. Really pieced that race together brilliantly, and very similar to the drive we saw from Joshua Rogers there in the opening race of Group A. Just a really solid and effectively faultless drive. It looked kind of easy.
Yeah, it did, and it's not the first time we said that tonight. We've seen a lot of winners just pretty comfortable out front, to be honest, and the battle's really been for second place, so it remains to be seen whether that's going to continue as a trend tonight, but it'd be very interesting that that's happened. Josh Rogers especially with a very similar race, I would describe, to be honest, in that first race for Group A as to what Thomas Tassler just had in race 2 of Group D.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, let's refocus our attention then back over to Group A, where earlier on the evening, Porsche Commander were able to seal a 1, 2 and 3. It wasn't just a Porsche Commander 1, 2, 3 though. It was an Australia 1, 2, 3. They do have a few Aussies in the team. Of course, it was Rogers from Warren, then from Caruso in what was really and honestly quite an excellent and entertaining fight. Probably from us on the outside, less so for the likes of McCormack and Rietveld, wasn't it?
Yeah, and especially once McCormack saw the stewarding post-race as well. 11 seconds worth of time penalties for him from race 1. And so that's going to drop Virtus Pro down, along with Statsenko's 11 seconds time penalties as well. I'm not going to go through every incident because there's a lot of them. It's an accumulation for those 11 seconds. That's not one individual penalty. So Statsenko and McCormack dropping down the results from race number 1. That's going to put Virtus Pro and Redline right neck and neck. It might even put Redline back to second, actually. We'll see as we enter race 2.
Yeah, certainly so. Like I say, a lot to deal with in the group, and I say maybe a bit of a shame there. And Virtus Pro once again receiving the ire of race control, and they have done quite a few times this season where they've been involved in incidents and have received penalties in doing so. So yeah, not great for Virtus Pro. Thankfully, it wasn't just McCormack that was kind of up there. So as much as he's lost points, the team, it might be all right. We'll see McCormack out in qualifying then as the first driver in the session. And the main focus for this team must be beating Redline. Must be.
They can't have any other, really. That's the realistic goal they've got here from this round. If they can stay in Group A for another week, that will be absolutely fantastic for them. In terms of the team standings, by the way, they've got the same points as Mouse, but effectively they are third in the championship because there's no way that Mouse can score more points than them this week. So Virtus Pro will be third in the championship coming out of this week. In fact, they can't go anywhere else. They can't lose any places. They can't gain any on Redline or Porsche Commander. But as I said, your gains are kind of delayed by a week. So if you can stay in Group A here and relegate Redline or Porsche Commander, most likely Redline now after race 1, then Vert be in a good situation to get into that top 2. Maybe they can avoid the last chance qualifier at the Esports World Cup and make it into that front 3 that automatically progress. That would be huge for them.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, we've seen the first sector come in then from McCormack. Maybe it's about a tenth or so off where we would like seeing. But to be fair, the Aston Martin goes strong in the second and third sector. Although I will say that entrance into the Le Mans chicane was exuberant, shall we say. And I'm pretty sure McCormack is aware of that. A little bit too much of a slide coming in. And that's going to cost him a whole heap of time.
I think there's a real danger here that he gets frustrated from that first race and that he lets that spill over into these coming results here as he now makes his way towards the line. He's still quicker than Luke Bennett as it stands in sector number 1. But for now, this is not going to be a time that troubles the pole position. There's the frustration, 43.9. He can do a faster lap time than that.
Yeah, it's still not terrible, but he'll know that there was way more on the table, as does Bennett. A little bit of a shake of the head from him as he departs the second sector. BMW seems to be struggling a fair amount this round as he heads up towards the line. Does Bennett? Is there going to be anything for him to gain? Was it going to be a 44.2? Or is it going to be slower than that? I just can't see what his first sector time is there as he crosses the line. 44.0.
Yeah, it's... unfortunately, second place for Luke Bennett, and that is likely going to be in the bottom half as well. Fiala also not going any quicker than Darren McCormack right now, so Jeffrey Rietveld is the first driver to finally be challenging that pole position, and he so far is having a fantastic evening. He has been having Redline not in his back so far. He'll be hoping that some of his teammates can now join him up towards the front as Wojciech Fiala now makes his way over the line. 43.9 as well, close to his teammate, and they're 1 and 2.
Yeah, but of course we're yet to see one of the Porsche Guandas yet, and we know how strong those Porsches are, so we'll have to wait and see. The next time, though, we'll see comes in from Rietveld. You can see there the first sector from Rogers, 43.811, the fastest first sector we've seen so far. Rietveld's, though, is pretty much in keeping with that. We'll see what he does across the time beat. This might go ahead of McCormack comfortably. Let's see what Rietveld will do. Just a little bit. I wouldn't say comfortably, but, 100th faster than Darren McCormack.
All slower than Tattler so far. Thomas Tattler, as previous lap, would have got him on the pole in this session so far. As Josh Rogers, the first of the Aussies, now makes his way up towards the line. He, so far, no quicker in sectors 1 or 2. He's not that far away, so this is going to be up towards the front for the first of our Porsche Guanda drivers. 5th over the line, 5th of our qualifiers. Here comes Josh Rogers. It is going to be a 43.8, just about, and Josh Rogers gets himself to the top again.
Yep, I won't say exactly who, but one team was messaging me saying that I've been talking rubbish about their team, and then I'm saying that Falcons can potentially win a race in Group A. That sounds crazy, and now I feel pretty vindicated on that. I'm not going to lie, Ewan, considering how fast Thomas Tattler is being this evening, and once again proving that we're right. We're always right. That maybe Falcons could have won if they were in Group A. Of course, they're not. They're in Group D, and they're still trying to struggle their way out of it. It just shows once again how close it is as Dane Warren crosses the line and goes into second.
Porsche Guanda are dominating this round of the championship, although Enzo Benito is trying to get Redline back into the fray here, and also Sebastian Job after him could well put this one to bed and their relegation concerns, although Job no quicker in the first sector as things stand. He was a bit quicker than Benito at least. Here comes Benito up towards the line. I think this is going to be right around where Rietveld has gone so far, and it is just about, in fact, it's just a bit quicker than Dane Warren as well. It's super close up towards the top.
Sebastian Job, though, didn't get a slowdown penalty this time, so we finally get to see what a lap time will look like in the hands of the driver who sits second in the all-time winners list. Let's see what it'll be. Those sector times are okay. First sector's pretty solid. It's right up there with the sector time that we've seen from Josh Rogers. Let's see if Sebastian Job is able to tick off a decent lap time and has returned to R1. Just about an 8.21 goes up on the provisional pole.
And that, I think, is going to be very difficult to beat for any of the remaining drivers. It's not going to be Kevin Ellis Jr. beating that one, I'm afraid, with that first sector immediately. I think puts him out of the game with a 43.9 first time round. This is going to be lucky if it's better than his teammates so far. Darren McCormack's lap time, not so bad, really, but it's down in 6th, and Virtus Pro suddenly finding themselves in trouble here. And the relegation worries that will have been concerning and looming over them since the very start of the evening, starting to become very real now. 8th place for Kevin Ellis Jr.
It's an incredibly close qualifying session. Charlie Collins is not going to be in the fight, though, for pole position. That first sector is a couple of tenths away off where he needs to be. The middle sector's all right, but that first sector is dire, and unfortunately, he's going to be right down the rear end of the field, the likes of Ellis Jr. and Bennett. But I say right down the rear end of the field as if they're massively far off. As we'll see across the line then, let's see what Charlie Collins can do. He'll cross the line, and it'll be good enough for 9th place.
Oh, what a close session this is. Quarter of a second covering the whole field as it stands, unless I'm mistaken, or indeed unless someone's going to go a little bit slower than that even towards the end. Mikhail Statsenko might well set the fastest Virtus Pro time with these sector times so far. He's going to be right around Darren McCormack. I think they're going to line up in a row there at the Virtus Pros down in the midfield, but they need to move forward further forward than that in the race. Here comes Mikhail Statsenko. Got 11 seconds worth of penalties in the first race. Over the line, it's a decent time, but it's only good enough for 8th. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're being slammed by the ruthless consistency of the field. As you see how much Statsenko's rig was shaken there as he worked his way through the Le Mans chicane. Let's see what Jordan Caruso can do. The middle sector's not great. The first sector's all right. Let's see if he can throw himself. Honestly, this could be anywhere on the field with how close it is. A quarter of a second separates the entire field, and it's certainly going to be amongst it. It's going to be near the Virtus Pro, surely, maybe slightly ahead of him. Across the line, it's even behind him. 10th place. What an incredibly close qualifying session. Let's see Sebastian Job on pole position. But we were right, Ewan. If Thomas Tattler was in this session, he'd be on pole position by half a tenth. I rest my case.
Well, yeah, whether he'd win the race, obviously, is a very complicated story that we could debate for the rest of this broadcast, I'm sure. But that lap certainly would have been good enough for pole in this race, and there is no debate about that. But also no debate about the fact that's one of the closest sessions we've ever seen in this dynamic group phase. Every single driver avoiding slowdowns, no mean feat in itself, by the way, but also 12th position was a 44.0. That is outrageous. Jordan Caruso was into the 43s there, which a lot of drivers haven't managed so far tonight. It was only good enough for 10th. An unbelievably close session.
Yeah, incredibly close, and it is Sebastian Job back on pole position. The driver who has obviously the second most victories, but he does have the highest percentage of victories in R1. I'm pretty sure his win percentage is, I was going to say it's about a third. It's 36.1%, meaning that in all likelihood, based on statistics, he's winning at least one of the races tonight.
And I think this might be the one as well, based on what we've seen so far tonight in terms of pole position. First time, though, we've seen a non-Porsche on the pole position in terms of manufacturer. Sebastian Job, of course, driving the BMW for Team Redline here tonight. He's also not been here this season, so he would be a new winner in 2025 if indeed he gets to the end and the Redline be the first team with 5 different winners, because all of their other drivers have managed it, as far as I'm aware.
It's not an easy thing to set, is it? Having all 5 drivers of your team win. There's 4 driver teams, but obviously with Kevin Siggy not being available for this round and being replaced by Sebastian Job, pretty handy driver to have as a reserve in this championship. It will give them a bit of a head scratch, though, heading into Saudi Arabia and the Esports World Cup, which both Redline and Porsche Commander, let's be honest, they are going, and they will already be through. They'll already be past the last chance qualifiers. They're already going through. We already kind of know that. That's fine. Is what it is. Looking at it, though, who are your 4 drivers? I guess it depends on availability as to whether Sebastian Job is busy, which I'd assume he might not be, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Sorry, I got that wrong, by the way. I forgot Reedvale hasn't won yet this season, has he? So that's not even true. So apologies for that. But there you go. They are one of the few teams with more than the 4 drivers that you are allocated per round. They're making some switches throughout the season, as you can see, with this man, Sebastian Job, who has taken the pole in race 2 in the BMW for the first time this season, or this round, sorry, out of the International Horseshoe. Just slight oversteer on power, similar story as before, really, just clean and consistent. No real big moments over the course of this lap. There is the West Horseshoe, just grabbing the apex there nicely. Not even a hint of oversteer actually on the exit that time round towards turn 6, and the unbelievable bumps down here. Just pushes the car on when you're going over bumps like that. Just feels like you're understeering forever, and then you get out onto the banking again and things get a little bit more simple before the Le Mans chicane, which is anything but.
Certainly so. You've got so much time to think about that Le Mans chicane before you get to it, and that can sometimes be a blessing, sometimes a curse. It means that obviously in qualifying, all that's going through your mind is where's the braking point, where's the braking point, where's the braking point. Watch the signs there, braking markers are on the top right. You go past the number 1, you dab it on the brakes, you chuck that nose of the car into the corner and just hope it sticks. And then once again, you're out of it. And then you're like, right, all I've got to focus is keeping this car low and shifting the gears, making sure that I'm doing it right, making sure that I'm bouncing off the limiter and wasting hundredths of a second, and be buttery smooth through the final corner, because you know it's hundredths of a second that make all the difference here. It's so tough, though. That I genuinely I hate that time waiting between coming out of a corner and waiting for the next one. I like the rhythm of into a corner, out of a corner, into a corner, out of a corner. That works a little bit better with me, with my small brain.
I don't know how to respond to that, so I'm just going to go on to the point. Porsche Commander are leading the way, no surprise about that. 49 is their gap, though. You were correct, by the way. 71 is the biggest points haul of any team on an individual round so far. The previous best was from Redline, race 2 weeks ago, when they finished 1, 2, 3 and 10 at the end of the day. So 49 the gap back to Redline, 56 the gap back to Virtus Pro.
Let's take a look at the starting grid then for the second race in Group A. Luke Bennett will be starting from the final row of the grid for the second consecutive race, unfortunately. Charlie Collins will be starting alongside. Then we've got Jordan Caruso and Kevin Ellis Jr. In 10th and in 9th. Mikhail Stetsenko makes it all Virtus Pro with Wojtek Fiala starting alongside him on row number 4. Darren McCormack, just 6th position, the highest placed Virtus Pro driver in 6th. All 4 of them lining up 6th through 9th. Jeff Rietveld in 5th position with Dane Warren in 4th. And then we've got Redlines on the inside and Porsche Quans on the outside. Warren alongside Benito. Rogers alongside Sebastian Job. He was in 12th position in race number 1. He's on pole position in race number 2 of Group A. And he's starting alongside Joshua Rogers, who was victorious in race number 1 of the evening.
What a fantastic front row that is, Job versus Rogers. But we've seen pole sitters prevail so far. Is that going to be the story again here in race 2?
The top 2 in the all-time winners list ready to do battle once again here in R1. The return of Sebastian Job and the return to pole position. Joshua Rogers will be starting alongside him as the race for race number 2 down towards turn 1 is once again underway. All red line on the inside row where Sebastian Job does get a good reaction to the race start. Squeezes out Joshua Rogers as well. And this is going to become a 1-2-3 as there's spins in the background. Virtus Pro and Porsche Commander. Things start going sideways and indeed backwards. Dane Warren dropped to the rear of the field with Wojtek Fiala as well. It was nearly a 1-2-3 for Redline. It is a 1-2-3 for Redline. Enzo Benito to the front of the field, then Sebastian Job, and then Jeff Rietveld before we get to Joshua Rogers, who's been plummeting down into 4th place.
And has that put the round win into doubt here as Redline take 1, 2 and 3. Rogers now on his own, having to battle with them, and have a look at that. All of a sudden, Redline are in the game here as far as the round victory goes, and maybe this story is not quite so simple. Virtus Pro with that one might well be out of Group A at the end of the day because none of them have moved forward. Only Fiala has moved, and unfortunately it's moved backwards to 12th position. So they've got a huge job on their hands, but only 11 points between Redline and Porsche Coanda.
Chance of Mouse moving back up into Group A next week, and then we see this rotation once more. Porsche Coanda and Redline dominating the other team. They dominated Virtus Pro in the opening week. They dominated Mouse in the second week. They're dominating Virtus Pro once again. The two teams are very much in control of the R1 Championship. Just 11 points, though, separates them. Rietveld was passing Sebastian Job, who dropped back there. As to why they switched that position, I'm not sure. Maybe Rieveld's got more confidence. Maybe they're trying to do what you were saying about. They've heard, oh, hang on, actually, Rietveld hasn't won a race yet. Let's try and make it 5 from 5.
I somehow doubt that theory out of all of them, the least likely, but there you go. That might well be at play. Here they come side by side. Porsche Coanda trying to go either side of Sebastian Job here. Rogers and Collins trying to battle their way past here. Two-pronged attack, if you like, side by side through turn 1 as Job tries to just slow himself in front of these two. How does he defend this one with them coming from different angles? They will finally get into single file because Darren McCormack and Kevin Ellis Jr. are coming up quickly as well here as they try and stay close out of the relegation places. Side by side again. Rogers trying outside line. Sebastian Job. This is surely going to allow Benito and Rietveld away at the front.
Yeah, certainly so. Maybe that's what the goal is here. And for Sebastian Job, for the team themselves, for Team Medline, the ideal scenario for them is Darren McCormack and Kevin Ellis Jr. working their way past the Porsche Commanders ahead of them, basically taking points off Porsche Commander, and once again moving Redline into contention for the round. I would not have called this at the end of race number 1, that maybe things are about to be blown wide open here around the Daytona International Speedway. Sebastian Job not quite keeping up with Benito and Rietveld. I can't think that was actually genuinely part of the plan. 1 second now, he's separated off the rear end of those two. Joshua Rogers in 4th spot. There must be some form of problem surely for Job. For McCormack, though, he's trying to find his way around the outside of Collins with a little bit of contact between the two.
I think this is part of the plan for Redline, to be honest. I think they want to secure 1 and 2 with Sebastian Job fending the others off behind, although it would be strange to leave him on his own battling away like this, but anyway, maybe there is some sort of problem. Josh Rogers is doing all he can right now to get involved. He would have had the help of his teammate Charlie Collins if Darren McCormack hadn't arrived at the Le Mans chicane there at the end of the straight, but let's see. He might not need him. Here comes Rogers. Outside line, his run is far better, and that is Sebastian Job back to 4th. Look at the others in behind as well. McCormack and Kevin Ellis Jr. looking to try and gain some points back as well for Virtus Pro. Down in towards turn 1. Free wide. Oh, there's going to be contact surely. And there is. Darren McCormack's going to go around. And Virtus Pro surely now are going to be relegated. All 3 of them go for a spin.
That was terrible. That was really poor from the highest group in R1. None of that was good. Race Control will be saying, see me in my office. Redline will be saying, 71 points. Is that all you scored, Porsche Commander? 1 second. Let's have a race and see if we can maybe get some more onto the board, because they are scoring very handsomely at the moment. First, second, fourth and fifth. That is crazy at the moment for Team Redline.
68, is that, I think?
Something like that, I think so.
Yeah, based on my very average maths, I think that's 68. So they do need a couple of positions here from Josh Rogers, but yeah, that was not smart for Virtus Pro, unfortunately, who are going to be scoring the least points possible out of this one. I don't think it's quite over for them. The gap's 69 points between at the moment, or is that set? Yeah, 69 at the moment. So anyway, I'll get back to that, but they are very close to being mathematically relegated already. Here comes the first replay of turn one, though. How did this all start? Rogers on the outside there for me is a very interesting one, because that's where it all stems from in my mind. It just goes a little bit wide through turn one. It sort of holds up that entire line, and you see the result of it afterwards. This is what's just happened for Virtus Pro.
Yeah, so Charlie Collins on the inside. Obviously, Darren McCormack's tried making the move, and then it's just chaos. It's just like there's no way of putting that other than that's just chaos and very, very average. But still, Charlie Collins could be losing some more points here as Wojtek Fiala has got to the outside. Bit of contact and a bit of a hip check as they work their way down towards turn one. Fiala on the high side as he tries to send it in. Virtus Pro at the moment 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. Now, obviously with that instant, they are being fully outclassed here in race two, although you could maybe say that wasn't, yeah, it's just that's one of those things. They all got very, very unlucky in that instant. They remain side by side, but it does seem as though Virtus Pro will be booking their tickets in a couple of weeks' time to have a little visit back down into Group B. Bit of a weave them from Charlie Collins. Not particularly happy, I guess, with what's going on around him, but I don't know. It's all very messy, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. If Fiala doesn't make this overtake, by the way, then they will be out. The maximum you can gain on a particular team on one round is 68 in one race. Sorry, 68 points. The gap currently 69 as far as my maths goes. So that is requiring an overtake now. Wojtek Fiala needs to get past Charlie Collins, and then that would only allow them to tie Redline in the final race. But yeah, Virtus Pro good as gone, unfortunately. The battle's going to be Porsche Coanda versus Team Redline for the round victory.
Yeah, which again I would not have called before we'd turned a lap in this race. It looked like Porsche Coanda were looking dominant, but still, for Team Redline, by the way, like I said, it was 71 points, I believe, that Porsche Coanda scored in the previous race. For Team Redline at the moment, it's 25 for first, 20 for second, 13 for fourth, and 10 points for fifth, meaning 68 points will be scored in this race by this team. Sebastian Job steps aside and allows his teammate Luke Bennett to work his way through. Also stepping aside, Enzo Benito has been allowed to pass on Jeff Rietveld. Meanwhile, we have this fight as well. Charlie Collins has dropped back behind Wojtek Fiala, and that gap closes by a point at the top of the standings.
However, Wojtek Fiala's got a 5-second time penalty, so it can't be him who's making the overtakes here. Otherwise, he's just going to go backwards at the end of all that. That, unfortunately, was just a judge by race control, just in. So at the moment, Virtus Pro will be out with still a race to go. And they'll be bitterly disappointed that part of it, and most of it indeed, is their own doing there through turn one. In fact, they all crashed into each other. I think McCormack was maybe slightly overly aggressive in towards turn one, trying to force that three wide. He could have just stayed on the outside line and not forced that gap through the middle there. But the fact is he did, and in the end it's turned out terribly for the team, who look like they're in real trouble here.
You don't think he's in for another penalty here, do you? He's had a fair few. You reckon we're looking at a quali round in a couple of weeks' time? Well, we'll have to wait and see and how close he is when it comes to his penalty points. But I do agree, it was him that kind of forced around the outside and then made it three wide. And it's all very messy in that instant. And like I say, Race Control will be taking a look, no doubt. We'll update you with any notes from Race Control. Charlie Collins will probably have been passed the message that, yeah, it's 5-second time penalty for the car ahead. Let's not waste too much time with him battling or whatnot, or maybe clobbering curbs. That was not good.
It was all over the place through the Mon chicanes. Josh Rogers here is very much on his own. Can Redline outdo Porsche Coanda? These two teams throughout history have just been trying to better one another effectively. Anything you can do, I can do better, and that's what Redline will be hoping to try and do to Porsche Commander at the moment. If they can get both these cars past Rogers, it could be very close at the top of the championship. The gap would only be 2 points if Rogers drops to 5th with the 2 just in behind, jumping ahead of him here. So that would be very, very close indeed, and very interesting if indeed that does happen. Although Collins' overtake there just makes the gap a little bit larger potentially. Through the international horseshoe, close again. Rogers can't get through, or sorry, Job can't get through on Rogers this time.
They'll be desperate to do it in the same way that Porsche Commander were desperate to get a 1, 2, 3, 4 in the previous race. They want to do it because, I mean, Bants, but also because you're asserting your dominance on the other team. You're closing in on that round victory. It was Porsche Commander that won back in Fuji. It was Team Redline that took the round victory back in Jeddah a couple of weeks ago, and Team Redline would like to make it back-to-back round victories in the dynamic group stage. Onto the rear end of Joshua Rogers is Sebastian Job, the top 2 drivers on the all-time winners. It does mean, by the way, that pole position will not be transferred into victory in this race, courtesy of Sebastian Job being down here. It will come from Rietveld or Bonito.
Unless there's some sort of miracle. I think that is going to be finally broken as Job goes round the outside into the Mont chicane. That is a very, very impressive overtake indeed from Sebastian Job, who moves up into the podium places now. And Josh Rogers just knocked back one. Now can Luke Bennett follow through here and make it a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Redline? The problem is Dane Warren and Jordan Caruso have very much arrived here, and they're going to look to get involved. Here he comes, Dane Warren on the back of Josh Rogers. On the other side of the road, it's Job and Rietveld. Bennett, excuse me. Here comes in the background Jordan Caruso. This is all tight in towards turn of 1. Porsche Commander and Redline doing battle again here. This time in towards turn 1. And Redline might have this. Redline on the outside with Luke Bennett. They might well get their 1, 2, 3 and 4. Josh Rogers just with his nose in front for the moment, but he's on the outside line.
Yeah, I did not. I had no idea where Dane Warren and Jordan Caruso came from in this. I thought it was just Joshua Rogers battling with these two. But suddenly, assistance arrives with high speed. First, second, third, and fifth is the exact same positions that Porsche Commander finished in the previous race. That would be 71 points for Team Redline, the exact same as Porsche Commander. However, with that switch there, it could be 74. Let's see if Luke Bennett can confirm the move as they head their way down into turn 6. Not quite yet. There's a big move to the inside from Warren.
And now he's going to be freight trains. Luke Bennett's going to go to the back of the group. As Warren's through, so's Jordan Caruso. It's Aussie for Porsche Commander as they move forward. 4, 5 and 6, and Luke Bennett's gone backwards. Redline's dreams of a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's vanishing very, very quickly here.
And look what that's doing to the points. Look at what it's doing to the points because Joshua Rogers has just got past on Sebastian Job. The gap was under 10. It's now over 20. The gap between Porsche Commander and Team Redline, and that has changed in just a handful of corners. How things have unfolded since Dane Warren and Jordan Caruso have rejoined this group. They stay high through NASCAR 3 and 4, then drop down into the slipstream. Try and find that rear end of Joshua Rogers as we work our way out of the final corner of the oval and then back out onto the start-finish straight. It's going to go 3 wide as straight to the inside comes Caruso.
Porsche Commander have mugged Team Redline for these positions right at the very end, and look at their points gap being restored. My goodness, what a great bit of teamwork here from Porsche Commander as Rogers, Warren and Caruso take the places from Sebastian Job and Luke Bennett, who now have only got 2 laps to try and rescue some points here.
This is crazy scenes as they're now going to try and play the game to keep them behind, work together as a team and focus on keeping Sebastian Job and Luke Bennett at bay. They will not be able to slow them down enough over the next 2 laps to bring Charlie Collins back into the mix, but they will do all they can to keep those 2 Redline drivers at bay. The outside look comes in from Sebastian Job. Luke Bennett is also sat there as well. These are all drivers that know how to get the victory done in the day, and they're all battling 3rd through 7th.
Unbelievable battle it is as well between these 5. Fantastic driving all around. We've seen some pretty questionable driving over the course of some of these battles, but this has been fantastic so far. Porsche Commander and Team Redline. It's actually helping Virtus Pro as well to keep it with a mathematical chance, although they are pretty far behind. Sebastian Job and Luke Bennett have got to make a few more overtakes and they can secure safety with the race to go and focus on battling for the group victory, which is just becoming a bit more unlikely here as this race continues.
Yeah, it's almost slipping through their fingers, but I think, look, to say how impressive a comeback it's been. At the end of race number 1, Porsche Coanda were basically gone. If they have another similar race to Team Redline, then yeah, they can win this round, but we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, they're just focused on trying to pick up whatever points they possibly can onto the final lap of the race. Luke Bennett and Sebastian Job will be the only ones switching positions, which does nothing for the points.
No, doesn't, but Job on the outside could. Here he comes on the outside of Dane Warren, but no, not this time round either. And when you're 1, 2 and 3 like this in a group, it suddenly becomes very, very difficult for Team Redline in this situation. And so Job's got to be aggressive. Inside at the international horseshoe, and there is side-to-side contact with Dane Warren, and they come out the corner, dead level again.
Yeah, like I say, a little bit messy there, and once again they're still side by side. Sebastian Job's not fully alongside though, and he's going to drop back behind Dane Warren now. To the outside once more he will go, trying to fire it through the West Horseshoe. He's trying to make it look pretty here as Sebastian Job, but with a little bit of a hip check there coming in from the Australian of Dane Warren. Sebastian Job remains in 6th.
This is going to be 3, 4 and 5, I think, finish for Porsche Coanda. I just don't see how the BMWs can get their noses in front before the start-finish line here, and I think Porsche Coanda have rescued what was looking like a dangerous situation at one stage, with Team Redline not only looking to take the most points from any individual race we've seen in the dynamic group phase, but also take the initiative to them in the live standings as well. 33 points the current gap though. They've just wrestled back control of this one in the final few laps.
Certainly so. It's been very impressive for Porsche Coanda to throw themselves back into control. For the final corner, though, it's not going to be a victory for Jeff Rietveld unless there's a big drag race between the two of them towards the line. Enzo Benito is the one ahead. There's going to be a photo finish and a flying finish between the pair of them. Let's see what it's going to be. Whoa, a little bit of a squeeze out of the barrier from the teammate. They're having a bit of fun. They're separated by the tiniest of margins, just 3,000 of a second. That's probably a bit more banter than it was anything else. Doesn't really do anything for the points, but 3,000 of a second separates Benito and Rietveld as Benito takes victory. Rogers, Caruso and Warren will come across the line 3rd, 4th and 5th. And Sebastian Job and Luke Bennett, well, they were running in really solid positions earlier on in the race, but unfortunately, dropping down to 6th and 7th has opened up that points margin, and Porsche Coanda are once again in control here in round number 6.
Yeah, they are, despite Enzo Benito's first win since the Hockenheim Ring in the seeding phase of our championship. He is now in the victory lane again, as it were, and taking his 3rd win of 2025. He was the only driver, by the way, to have won multiple times in the seeding phase and then never again. But this is the first time he's won in the dynamic group phase, and he'll be very, very pleased with that. Redline's 8th win in 2025 as well, as they try and get a bit closer to Porsche Coanda. Further down, McCormack and Ellis Jr. getting past Charlie Collins towards the back has kept Virtus Pro alive here, but unfortunately they are very unlikely to stay in Group A for 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's not happening really, is it? Unfortunately, like I say, it's just the power and the consistency of a Porsche Coanda and a Team Redline when they have, like, these are two teams where, sure, a lot of the other teams, like we said before with Falcons, with Thomas Tattler, for example, like what we have with Darren McCormack, Kevin Ellis Jr., and to be fair, all of like Virtus Pro can do it, but they just don't do it as consistently enough. Like we see with Mouse, with Max Benneker, a lot of these teams have a driver that can go on the attack of Porsche Coanda or BMW and Team Redline, but it's the consistency required to actually take them on in this format. This format works so well for those two teams. That's why they're so strong. That's why they're so hard to beat, and that's why they're running away and they're outclassing Virtus Pro. Well, they outclassed Mouse a couple of weeks ago. Well, they outclassed Virtus Pro a month ago. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's how it's been going so far this season, and it's continuing to go as well. The fact that Virtus Pro are in Group A, though, is going to get them more points than most of their rivals, which is the key thing.
Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the race. I did see that Charlie Collins received a 10-second time penalty due to reckless driving. That might be for the incident down at turn 1. We'll have a look back at that again at some point in this replay sequence. This was the run out of turn 1, where everything got very chaotic indeed. It became a great result for Redline as they were all switching over. There was Sebastian Job dropping back behind Jeff Rietveld and the likes. This is the move. Darren McCormack getting down the inside, and I believe this is what the penalty for was for Charlie Collins, because much like we had from Thomas Tattler earlier on in the season, did not lift out the throttle, kept the throttle on despite there being a car ahead. I believe that might be the case, but don't quote me on that one. Great move to the outside from Sebastian Job, working down into the Le Mans chicane as he was able to squeeze his way past Joshua Rogers, and plenty more great battling as well. But For Redline, they were forced backwards, and Porsche Commander, they were taking control in the group once more. Late on in the race, the attempts were coming in. Luke Bennett and Sebastian Job trying to work their way past the Porsche Commander trio, but alas, it was not the case. Unable to find that move, Job to the outside. A little bit of contact here from Dane Warren on the exit of the corner. That was more so the front end coming round of Sebastian Job. Across the line, though, by 3,000 of a second, it was Benito who would be able to take victory from Rietveld. So denied victory, Rietveld there. It's not really very teamly, is it? But still, first and second for Redline. Rogers there in third position, leading a Porsche Commander trio with Caruso and Warren in fourth and fifth. Sebastian Job would finish in sixth position, just ahead of Bennett, with Darren McCormack there in eighth position. Kevin Elias Jr., Mikhail Statsenko, Wojtek Fiala and Charlie Collins would round out the field after that 10-second time penalty. It does mean, though, that Porsche Commander are very much in control here.
And they certainly are. As far as the round win goes, they're absolutely favourites now to finish ahead of Team Redline, who are favourites to finish in second as well, ahead of Virtus Pro. I think that's even more confirmed, to be honest, the fact that Virtus Pro are going to be in third place. I think the group win is still very much up for debate here, because if they can do that again, Team Redline, a similar result to what they just did, then it will be quite close. But unfortunately, Group A, again, is not particularly the closest group out of the four that we see week on week. It's normally pretty settled from early on, and that's what we're seeing again here.
Yeah, it does seem as though that, yeah, again, Virtus Pro in that first week, and then Mouse last round, and Virtus Pro once again here, they struggle to keep up with Redline and with Commander. And whether we'll see that again in round 7 in a couple of weeks' time, we'll have to wait and see, because, of course, that will be on a Thursday as well, so it'll be slightly different with how that one runs. But it will be the same format, the same time, the same event. But it is going to be an interesting one. It is going to be a difficult one. I'm very curious to see which teams actually with them in that battle. But like I say, there's a lot up in the air.
There certainly is, and I think we've been pretty clear from the start that Porsche Commander and Team Redline are going to dominate those groups. They're going to be two of the three who don't even have to go through the last chance qualifier at the Esports World Cup. So it's a question of who's going to join them, and even being there with them for a week is going to score you more points than the others. So the fact that Virtus Pro have been here twice so far out of 3 rounds is a very good reflection on them, and they're probably putting themselves into pole position for that last place in the top 3, if you like, from the team's points. Mouse, of course, will be up there as well now after being in Group A once. If they can win Group B again next week, then they'll have a real great chance of being close to Virtus Pro, and they will battle that one out. Vitality are going to slip away a little bit as a result of that. They're now in Group C, so they're coming out of contention a little bit. BS Competition starting to rise themselves to the fore as well, and if they can get promoted maybe next week, then they've got an outside chance of that top 3 as well.
Yeah, look, we'll have to wait and see how that one's going to unfold. Of course, we've got B and C to deal with next week, where things will be getting very exciting. Obviously, we've got A and D to be dealing with here. We've basically seen most of what A has to deal with. We've got one more race left to deal with on that. We do have one final race, though, to deal with in Group D. Now, things were tightening up a little bit in the previous race, whilst Falcons had a lot of control after the opening race. They've certainly been closed down on by ERA a fair amount, who do look quite comfortable, at least when it comes down to closing that gap.
They look all right. They're around here at Daytona. They've got a chance, and that's all they can ask for here. 30 points the gap between Falcons and ERA. That is more than I remember. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, no, right. I was so confused.
I was slightly confused. It's 18 points. I thought it was a bit smaller. ERA 18 points behind. Guild not that far away as well. They're not quite confirmed as third, but they are pretty close to it anyway. And so we'll wait and see. 18 points is a very, very gettable margin for ERA, that's for sure, as they try and overtake Falcons here. It's going to be very interesting to see whether they can do that or not, but they're absolutely got a chance here, and if they're going to get themselves to the Esports World Cup, I think they have to get promoted here.
Yeah, like I say, we've seen points hauls of 18 overhauled before. One thing that is for sure, this session, qualifying, will be extremely important. Nailing this qualifying session is critical. The first driver we'll see in the qualifying session is Henry Moore in the number 72 Guild Racing car. Qualified at the moment in 7th position in both of the races thus far. Will it be another 7th? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. This qualifying time might even be better off than what we see a bit later in Group A, based on the sessions we've seen so far. I know that, you know, Group A is the strongest group and Group D is the weakest, and that is generally reflected in how these races go. However, it is it is often that there's a very small margin from top to bottom in R1, and we are seeing that again here. We could well see some big times in Group D later on in this session, as we see Henry Moore begin with. Whenever he hits the brake, his camera rattles about like, well, I don't know like what, but anyway, he's might have to hit the brakes for another while as he makes his way onto the banking now to set our benchmark. It's not going to be pole though, I don't think, based on this first sector.
The first sector's a few tenths off where we need to be, and considering that Thomas Tatler's pole time in race 2 was fast enough to grab him pole also in Group A, you'd have to say if you're going to grab pole position in this group, it needs to be a perfect lap, and I think we're going to see that with both Groups B and C as well next week. The first sector's already been beaten by Lemon M, as he'll come out through the final corner, see what the final sector can be. The middle sector's pretty decent though, 38.5.
Yeah, that's a very good middle sector. We'll see whether he can get up towards the front here for Guild and just put a cat amongst the pigeons here as they try and at least not finish last in the group for the first time here in the dynamic group phase. Over the line for Henry Moore, and this time is going to be a 44-1.
Robbie Stableford's already gone faster in the first sector than Laminek, because I think he set a 43.7. The middle sector is slightly better than what we've seen from Henry Moore. This is going to be a faster time. It's going to be a 43 surely from Lemon M as he came through the chicane. He wasn't quite as animated as he was in the previous session with what ended up being a very midfield time. Laminek now up towards line. See if it's going to be a midfield time again from him. It'll be up to provisional pole. It's not a midfield time. That's a very good one. A 43.862. Can Stableford beat him?
I think he can, based on that first sector, and the second is pretty decent as well here. Robbie Stableford with a very, very good time coming up here, although Promislav Lemanek has done a pretty good time as well. If Falcons can get 4 solid times up to the board, especially for Pavlovsky, who's not had a very good evening so far, then they should be okay to get promoted out of Group D straight back again after getting demoted last week from C. Here comes Stableford, 43.7. What a great time from him.
Certainly was. Robbie Stableford across the line, a 7.65. That is an unreal lap time from Robbie Stableford. One of the fastest of the evening, not just here in Group D, in the entire evening, in the Porsche Commanders, the Team Red Lines, the Virtus Pros as well of Group A. That is a very impressive lap time from Robbie Stableford. Up towards the line then from Marko Pajic, who's not going to quite get amongst them. It's going to be the slowest time of the session so far with a 44.2.
He's had a pretty miserable evening so far, Marko Pajic, to go along with his season as well. And that looks like it's going to continue for Guild here with Bono House just a tenth or so away in both of the first sectors so far. And that is going to put him out of the equation along with all the other Guild esports drivers so far. It's really our focus on ERA and Falcons here, as it will continue to be over the course of this race, you'd imagine, based on the times we're seeing so far. Here comes House over the line. It's a 44 as well. Guild at the back so far.
Yeah, indeed. And it does look as though their position at the bottom of the R1 rankings is going to be more or less cemented. ERA can do something about Falcons, but they need a good qualifying coming in from Miloš Zildjian, Mikael Schmidl and Ibrahim Khan. They need to be able to beat these drivers here. It's not quite as strong from Thomas Tatler in this qualifying session as it was back in race number 2. The 0.779 from Thomas Tatler was the time he set in this one. It is a 0.9 for Thomas Tatler this time by, so 10th and a half off. I was going to say that was a slow down penalty for Pavlovsky, but it's not.
No, not quite. He needs to be up towards his teammates, though. Unlike what we've seen from him so far tonight, he's finished down towards the back in both races just for the moment as Kamil Pavlovsky. What can he do this time round, though? Well, he's shaking his head. He's telling us already what he's going to produce for us here over the line. Falcons looking to beat ERA here, of course, but none of them going to beat Stableford so far. They beat all the Guilds, though, and that is a good start for Falcons, but now they're waiting and watching on the ERA drivers.
Certainly so. Here we go. Miloš Zildjian, first sector, 10th off where he needs to be. Middle sector, spot on where he needs to be. A 38.452, one of the fastest we've seen of the evening so far. Zildjian up towards the line. He's going to go ahead potentially of Laminek here as ERA are looking very strong. Let's see what Zildjian will do. Depends on the final sector. It is good enough for the front row. Once again, another 0.7. This is very impressive coming in from ERA.
This is a big chance for them now. Michal Schmidl has got a big chance to join Stableford and Azildarim in helping this team get promoted from Group D for the very first time. What a great story it would be for them if they could just manage this here over the next couple of moments. 2 minutes, four drivers to come across the line here in the next couple of minutes of this session. Michal Schmidl next, 43.9 from him as well. He's in amongst the Falcon drivers at least.
Next up, coming up, it's Ibrahim Khan. He needs to join his teammates up towards the front end of the field. He needs to get amongst them. But let's see, those sector times are not looking like they're going to throw him amongst them. And it's going to be a disappointing session once again from Ibrahim Khan, you have to say, as he'll work his way to the line. He'll cross over it. He's been down the field. It was 11th place in race 1. It was 8th place in race 2 in qualifying. And it'll be down to that kind of margin again. 9th for Khan.
Now he's kind of hoping that Jakub Masiewski has a bad session, but his 3 teammates at least are beating 1, 2 and 3 for Team Falcons, which is positive for ERA, and they're going to be super close to Falcons in the live points as well when we get this race started, as long as they have a good start, that is. Up towards the line now for Matt Emery. Can he do anything to make the Guild Esports team smile here on a pretty miserable evening for them at Daytona? It's not going to be pole, I don't think. It's another 44. Matt Emery down towards the back.
All Guild drivers 44 or worse. That is not good enough, unfortunately, for Guild. The Aston Martin's been proven fast enough in the capable hands of Darren McCormack and the likes, but clearly it has struggled a little bit around this Daytona International Speedway comparatively to the Porsches, which does look like a pretty handy machine. For Jakub Masiewski, the first sector's not great. The second sector's a bit more closer to where he needs to be, but it's going to be around Pavlovsky, maybe even slightly faster. Wow, he's nailed the final sector as he goes up to third. And even with that, not close enough to beat Robbie Stableford at Ulash Azildarim. It is a front row lockout for ERA out of absolutely nowhere. And they needed it. Boy, do they need it. I think it's pretty much the fastest time of the night as well in the hands of Robbie Stableford. I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, we'll just check that, but it's got to be up there. One of the few 43.7s. You could see it right from the very beginning. The first sector was very good, and you could just tell from the very beginning that this was going to be a good lap. Wasn't one of those laps where you go 2 purple sectors and then crash like most of what I do. But Stableford was able to keep composure and set the best lap of the session.
Well, let's have a look at how Robbie Stableford grabbed the... I can't believe the audacity for you to say 2 purple sectors and then crash. As if you would do that. My goodness, the ego from you. This lap time, by the way, would have been good enough for pole position in Group A, race number 2. It would have been good enough for the front row in Group... in the first race of Group A. The only person who's gone faster is Joshua Rogers this evening. He set a 43.742, so slightly quicker than the lap time that we're currently running on board with. Of course, the 1 minute 43.7 that we've just seen in the hands of Stableford, of course, being a 7.65, slightly faster than the 0.77, if I remember correctly, it was from Timus Tatler in the previous session, but still very, very quick lap time from Robbie Stableford, and you can kind of see why. Counter to Tatler's lap time, this does look smoother.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Most of them have got little to choose between them, really, when we've been on board here. But this is one of the best we've seen so far today from Robbie Stableford, indeed from anybody. Here's the bus stop chicane. How do you take this one? 4th gear as always, but monstering that first curve before focusing it then at the end on the exit is just, again, it's just super, super smooth through that Le Mans chicane. And now the run up towards the line. The real big thing for him, though, in the next couple of moments is trying to keep the lead here alongside his teammate, Ulas Azildarim, who set one of the best middle sectors we've seen all throughout today as well, with a 0.4. So that's going to be the big job for him next as he takes his pole lap here.
Honestly, very, very impressive qualifying session then from the ERA team. And they've kind of got it all to do now, and they're all in position to make something special happen. But like you say, that race start is going to be tremendously difficult. It's not an easy turn one at the best of times when you're starting around your teammates and stuff, like, fair enough. But still, to actually piece that one together, it's going to be very difficult.
It is. I think it's much easier when you're sort of directly in behind your teammate and you're in a line like that. When you're side by side immediately, I think it could be very difficult for ERA and Falcons to be very motivated to get in amongst them really quickly, because I think all 4 of them are in the top half for Falcons, if not mistaken. They're certainly all 4 of them are up towards the front here. Ibrahim Khan has prevented ERA from being able to say the same thing, unfortunately, because he's going to start down from 10th position for this race. But if Falcons can get in amongst ERA pretty quickly, they could just get rid of any fears very early on in this final race of the day.
Certainly so. Ulash Zildrim obviously did start from 2nd place in the previous race. Did end up finishing down in 3rd. So he dropped the single spot. Obviously, Robbie Stableford was 2nd in the previous race. Thomas Tattler was the one who took victory. I think... I'm trying to think, like, from what I've seen tonight, who wins this race. I do think Stableford. I do genuinely think Stableford will win this. He's won twice before in the dynamic group stage. I would say that Falcons so far are their strongest competitors, right? They're the strongest team that this group has come across. They're compared to MSI and TC Racing, I would say they are stronger. But still, I do think Stableford has the car beneath him, the team behind him, and the focus as a driver to win this race.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be very, very close. So I think Jakub Masiewski's going to have a real thing to say here in this race as well, to try and win for the 2nd time this evening. And Thomas Tattler as well for Falcons. I think they're certainly going to want to just take away any nerves very quickly here and try and take an early race lead, especially because Falcons have got so many more teammates around. Well, I suppose so many more. They've got one more teammate that in closer attention than ERA have got. There's only 3 of them. There should be all 4 of the Falcons up towards the front. But the real thing early on here is not having something similar to what Virtus Pro had towards the start of the last race in Group A, the 2nd race for them. They had all 4 of their drivers down towards the back pretty early on in that 2nd race. They cannot afford the same, Falcons. Let's see how they start, though, here for race 3. Guild, unfortunately, 4 of the last 5. Matt Emery and Marco Pejic on the back row. Henry Moore and Bono House just separated by Ibrahim Khan there, who's in 10th position. Kamil Pawlowski is just on the wrong side of the bottom half there, in 7th, ahead of, or just in behind, I should say, of Michał Schmiedl and Thomas Tattler on row 3. Promislav Lemonek and Jakub Masiewski are on row 2. Just in behind, Ulash Zildrim and Robbie Stableford on the front row. What a big negotiation they're going to have down in towards turn 1 for the first time.
Oh, this is going to be a fascinating one. It's going to be a good one. Like you say, ERA, as much as they're 1st and 2nd, I think they do need a bit of assistance from their teammates Michał Schmiedl and Ibrahim Khan to work their way up the order. But they need to work well at the front of the field, and they need to somehow keep that very angry army, white and green. The Esports World Cup champions, not in R1, over the entire competition. In esports, they were the best teams. They were the one that came out on top. And they'll need to do something special here to throw themselves back into contention to get even into the Esports World Cup here in R1.
Look at the live points. They will start with a very, very slender advantage here, Team Falcons, as the final race of Group D gets underway here from Daytona. Immediately, Ulash Zildrim's going backwards here. He's got Masiewski on his inside line, and he's got a couple of Falcons trying to confront him here through the middle there for Michał Schmiedl. Oh, and there's contact just a little bit there for Pawlowski, who goes backwards. Khan is coming through here like a steam train as well, as off the road goes Lemonek. He's going backwards. Now Falcons in big trouble here as the points change again. The 2 of them really close. A spin in the meantime. Matt Emery goes to the, or Bono House, excuse me, goes to the bottom of the field there. Lemonek will get a point out of that. Meanwhile, side by side between Zildrim and Masiewski again. Outside line for Jakub Masiewski. He's still involved here, and he's so important right now for Team Falcons.
Yeah, you can see the point switches there in the top right. If it's a 1-2 at the moment for ERA, they will be moving through by 5 points, but I don't think it's going to be as they head their way into the braking zone of T6. Jakub Masiewski shoves his way down the inside of Ulash Zildrim, and Ulash Zildrim's going to drop back into 4th place. The swing heads the way of Falcons. It's 9 points now clear of ERA. Robbie Stableford at the front end of the field with 2 Falcons cars behind. Then it's Ulash Zildrim. Michał Schmiedl's worked his way through, as is Ibrahim Khan. I said they needed the assistance of the teammates, and they're getting it here. But here comes a move for the race lead.
Stapleford's got to get his teammates around him quickly here, otherwise he's going to lose control of this race win. Oh, off the road very nearly there for Kamil Pavlovsky, as Ibrahim Khan's coming through here like you wouldn't believe. He's having a fantastic start to the race, but the fact that Maciejewski's in the lead means that they're always going to have a huge advantage, and so they've got to try and reverse this now, with Robbie Stapleford making an overtake. But where's he going to get the support from? As Ildrum's got to get close up to him here, and Smeedle as well, as Lemonek in the background, Pavlovsky in the background is going to get freight train from Henry Moore and Marco Pejic. Here comes Stapleford to the outside, to the lead again, in towards turn 1.
And this is make or break for ERA's entire season. If they are unable to get through here, then they are destined to not make it through at all into the Esports World Cup. Not to the last chance and not to nothing. They must work their way through now. It is now or never. They are in position by 1 point. Steaming down the inside of Thomas Tatler goes Mikael Schmiedel. It's Robbie Stapleford leading from Maciejewski from Ulash Zildrim. And Mikael Schmiedel has got through on Thomas Tatler as they head their way to the dogleg. Still with a slight overlap comes in from the feisty Finn. He'll get to the outside as they head their way into the west. Horseshoe. Schmiedel with the inside line. Brilliant battling once again.
It's been a huge spin for Jakub Maciejewski, and that might well see Team Falcons stay in Group D for another week. Oh my goodness, this could be massive. ERA with their first real chance of getting promoted from Group D, and they're doing it right now. Top 4, all in the top 5 right now. All 4 of their drivers are in the top 5. This is unbelievable. Schmiedel just in front of Ibrahim Khan, who's made up so many places that at the moment they're to the good by 23 points.
You could hear the nerves in Thomas Tatler's voice when he was being interviewed at the end of race 2. You can understand why, based on what we're seeing here. He's worked his way past Ulash Zildrim as Kamil Pavlovsky looks to the inside of Ibrahim Khan. ERA have sliced their way through the order to make them 1, 3, 4 and 5. They could be on for a 1, 2, 3, 4. We've been all talking about Redline and Porsche Commander doing it. Maybe ERA are about to as well. Here comes the move to the outside from Ulash Zildrim. Demoted in week 1. Demoted again in the second round, and Falcons have found themselves dropping from Group B into Group D, where they might be stationary in the Esports World Cup.
This is unbelievable. Who would have predicted this at the start of the evening, especially after race 1, when Falcons seem to have control of this group as we expected them to. It's not happening anymore, and right now they're in big trouble. The advantage for them is that their 2 drivers of Maciejewski and Lemonek have got a lot of space to drive into here. They've got a lot of positions to gain that might not be that difficult. With all due respect to the Guild Esports Aston Martins, they might not be too hard to pass, especially if you've got the pace of Jakub Maciejewski, who's clearly quick. Lemonek was very fast in race 1 as well. He's just dropped off in race 2 and 3 a bit, but they've got some space to drive into. That's the saving grace for them, and they've got 7 laps to do it.
Kamil Pavlovsky then, who we're riding on board with him, right behind Ibrahim Khan, nearly into the back of Ibrahim Khan as well. That's a little bit sketchy, but like you say, you can see the points there in the top right. Wonder if Race Control will take a look at any of the incidents in the opening portion of this race. I'm sure there's been a fair few, but Race Control not laying down the law just yet. Everything is remaining above board. It's a 1 second lead nearly from Robbie Stapleford, looking to take his 3rd victory in 3 rounds here in the dynamic group phase. 1/3 of the victories. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. He's been very, very strong through this phase of the competition. And right now, Robbie Stapleford leading again. Thomas Tatler in second. Zildrim, Schmiedel, Khan, Pavlovsky, the rest of the top half. And then you get to those Guild Esports drivers. Maciejewski and Lemonek have got even some catching to do before they even get onto the back of the next 2. They've gained a couple of points, just 1 point each though. And so the gap's now 13, the deficit now 13. Even if Tatler gets ahead of Stapleford, it's still not enough. He needs his teammates to do something else here. As the ERA drivers 1, 2 and 3 just protect each other into turn 1 from Kamil Pavlovsky, who is next in line.
Honestly, how can you not love this? Like, I don't. If you're a Falcons fan, you might be a little bit like, oh, well, yeah, no, you can't. But how unpredictable this has been, because this has happened. This is not the first time that something like this has happened. We've had this quite a lot, where even in groups B and C, where a team starts out strong, and you think, yeah, Mouse and Vitality have done it, but Mouse especially in like what was it? When they were in Fuji, they started out so strong and then it kind of all fell apart. They still did enough, and they still did more than enough to keep them at bay, and that's fair enough. We've seen that not just from them, but from Williams as well, from other teams, where they start out strong and then they almost completely drop off in race 2 and 3. to the point where it's wide open. And we're seeing that from Falcons. They were so dominant in race 1 that we were all sat here thinking, yeah, it's done. It's basically done. And then ERA have said, well, we've got some pretty quick drivers, as Tatler pointed out. Robbie Stable sets a second fastest lap of the night, slaps it on pole position, and suddenly has thrown ERA right into the mix.
Timmy can't very nearly through it all the way there through the mod chicane. But I agree, it's just been so much drama. And to be honest, I think it's one of the best formats we've had here for R1 throughout the years. It's been absolutely brilliant. Certainly as far as online racing has gone, this has been absolutely brilliant. Tatler has been catching Stable for the last few moments, but Ozildrim's trying to prevent that from happening. And the Smeagol and Khan train's about to come through here as well. And it might well be 3 wide doing so. Oh, where are they going to go? Inside, outside, they're looking here. As Tatler defends the inside, Ozildrim on the outside. They could really put this one to bed with a 1, 2, 3 and 4, and Ozildrim's going for it. Outside line, he's broken too late there, surely, and he will get his place back to him as Tatler. Here comes Kamil Pawlowski as well. Lap 5, they've got to start doing something here.
Pawlowski's having a look, he can't go for anything. The knocking at the door now is Henry Moore, who will try and find his way into it. Jakub Maciejewski is closing his way back up into it. They've been cost a point, though, with Lamanek dropping back behind Matt Emery. This train, second all the way down to 11th, with a bit of a gap up ahead between Robbie Stableford and Thomas Tatler. That is the largest gap of this group. The only one larger is Bonnerhouse, who's right off the rear end of the group. So we look at Kamil Pawlowski. He can't quite get himself into it. Let's take a look back again at turn 1.
How did this all unfold? How did Falcons go from a fairly comfortable position to a very, very worrying one indeed? Well, first of all, it was side-to-side contact. Lemonek again having a poor start, and with Pawlowski as well, eventually ending up off into the grass, Lemonek, and falling down to the back end of the field. The Guild Esports drivers also got in front of him, but in the end there was a spin for Bono House. That's how that happened. Not sure he quite gave enough space on the inside line there, to be honest, through the international horseshoe. And in the end, that was Lemonek going back. We'll have a look a little bit later about how Maciejewski found himself to the back as well here. Lemonek, in the meantime, has got his places back. At least one of them, he's got back to 10th.
I think Lemonek might have been a bit too aggressive there. I don't know. The only concern I have there is Ibrahim Khan might have been a bit too aggressive through turn 2 and bashed off the Falcons driver. Now, if that is the case, that could be a penalty for the ERA team, which will make the maths for this so much more complicated. So I hope that's not the case. Ulash Ozildrim, though, he's going to try around the outside at T1 again.
He's broke far too late last time. This time round, he was a little bit more considerate, and that might well be excellent. Outside, this could be an 8-point gain on Falcons if he can get this done. There's contact. Oh, and he's nearly off the road, Thomas Tatler. There'll be a big aggression now, and the two of them will be absolutely filthy with each other, I'd imagine. Ozildrim through. Tatler is going to respond, though.
Wow, that was pretty crazy. Once again, Thomas Tatler, he's behind. He's going to look to the inside here into the West Horseshoe, but can't do anything because it's being rather, goodness me, can't speak English. Been there before. Ozildrim, though, is able to fend off Tatler by basically just sitting in the middle of the road. Smeagol now behind. Of course, he's got the eyes to pass Thomas Tatler. Smeagol knows how to get that one done. He's got his teammate Ibrahim Khan behind. Then there's Kamil Pawlowski at 32 tenths back. Still Henry Moore and Marco Payet behind that. Before we get to Jakub Maciejewski, Lamanek's got ahead. So Matt Emery's dropped back in all of this. So Lamanek has actually gained the position of doing so, but he's a second and a bit off of the rear end of Jakub Maciejewski.
Yeah, this is high stakes stuff here. And Tatler has got his place back again. So 8 points gained, and now it's 13 again. Is Maciejewski and Lemanek realistically going to get many more places? They might well do. Maciejewski especially, who's on the back of this group as they enter the final 3 laps. They are just 2 position changes away, Falcons, from being promoted here, by the way. If Tatler makes an overtake, unlikely, and Pawlowski as well, then they'd be through. So that's all it takes. That's how close it is. Here comes Ozildrim again, though, in towards turn 1. He's broke unbelievably late in towards turn 1 the last couple of times. Last time round, though, he got it done quite nicely. Can he do it again here? Is that too late? It might well be. He's just slightly wide, and on the inside, Tatler's going to get that place back easily.
Yeah, Tatler's doing what he can to try and keep this group behind. Like you say, the chance of getting up to Stableford, it's not happening. It is not happening at all. Big contact there between Smeagol and Pawlowski. Smeagol's had a bit of a moment, and Pawlowski's gone round. Pawlowski is round, and what that will mean is Falcons surely are done. They are staying in Group D for the second consecutive week, surely. Kamil Pawlowski's also just been given a 5-second time penalty for exceeding the points limit. That is for track limit excursions. So to make get bad to worse. It's an automated system in game. He's been off track too many times. And Kamil Pawlowski, despite that spin, yeah, he's been pushed down the order and has been given a 5-second post-race time penalty to make things even worse.
So add a 2-point deficit further onto what you're seeing at the moment. 17 points is currently the gap, because Pawlowski would drop down to 12 from what's been a pretty miserable evening for him so far. Tattler has got to finish second and hope that his teammates can pull off something special here, but it's looking more and more unlikely. Tattler outside into Le Mans chicane, he's going to be able to stay in front. Maciejewski is still 7th, and so he needs, oh goodness me, how many places does he need from here? Loads is the answer to that, as he's currently got a gap on a deficit of 17. He's got to try and get past Payets this time and then try and take some of the ERA drivers in the last 2 laps, but this is looking like ERA are going to get promoted finally here out of Group D.
Yeah, which, I mean, look, you've got to say they've earned it. They kept their confidence high going into the second race of the evening. And they've kept their confidence high going into the third as well. Azilda into the outside of Tattler once more. He's tried this a few times. The one thing he cannot risk, though, losing points, going for a spin. If I am on the pit wall, if I'm in the engineer, in the ear of Ulash Azildarim, I'm saying, mate, sit behind, stay there. Do not do anything to risk this position, because a spin now and the points cost now, that is the way that Falcons get back in this. We have seen that time and time again.
Yeah, I would agree. There's no need for him to gain these points here. He doesn't need them, really. It would put it beyond any reasonable doubt if he was to get the place, but there's no point in the risk if he's trying to make this move. It's really left to Tattler's teammate, Jakub Maciejewski, to make up some positions. Passing Marko Payet would bring the gap back to 15, which is what you can see on the top of your screen. Another overtake would bring it down to 11 over Ibrahim Khan. Then he'd need another one, which would bring it to 5 ahead of Michał Schmiedl. And then he'd have to take Azildarim, which would take it finally into the favour of Falcons. This is looking extremely unlikely here, with Jakub Maciejewski needing the overtakes at the very end. And especially now, with Azildarim ahead of Tattler.
That's a risky move going into the Le Mans chicane, but it's worked out for Ulash Azildarim. Whether it will hold all the way to the line, we'll have to wait and see. There's a replay earlier on to see what actually happened to Maciejewski. So there was contact going into the corner, which is kind of what's pushed the ERA car off of the racing line there. That is actually a trickier one than you would think, because there was contact in the braking zone, which has then pushed him off of the apex.
Yeah, I think that might well go down as a racing incident, to be honest, at the end of the day. But that's put Pawlowski down to the back, and that's a couple of points more lost, of course, because of his off tracks as well. Here is the final lap, though, and Jakub Maciejewski has got to make up 4 places in 1 lap. This is very, very unlikely indeed, but he is giving it a go. Outside line now in towards the International Horseshoe on Marko Payet, and, well, he needs this and a lot more. Jakub Maciejewski giving it everything he's got here at the very end.
But I don't think it's just not going to be enough, is it? He's got, I mean, I know that's pessimistic, but he's got to get past Khan, he's got to get past Schmiedl, he's got to get past Azildarim. It's not happening. Not unless there is some outside intervention for him, not unless there is some drama going into the Le Mans chicane. We've seen it, and we could see it again. Race drivers, sometimes they don't have the highest level of IQ, so maybe there will be some drama on its way, and maybe there will be a little bit of a crashy-washy end to race number 3 here in Group D. Final stretch, final time for them to go through the Le Mans chicane, final time for them to navigate, and the final real risk takers able to take advantage.
Is Azildarim going to do anything here this time round? No, not this time. You might as well have a go on the run towards the line, because there's still... Oh, whoa! Tattler's off anyway! And that puts Falcons into Group D in 2 weeks' time again! ERA are going to be promoted for the first time in this dynamic group phase. Oh my goodness me, ERA have done it finally, and they've done it in style. They are 1, 2, 3 and 4 here. Jakub Maciejewski might well just disrupt that, but Robbie Stapleford's going to win again. What a fantastic dynamic group phase he's having. 3 wins now, this time round at Daytona. Azildarim next, then Schmiedl, and then Khan. It is a 1, 2, 3, 4. For the first time in 2025, the full complement of 74 points goes to ERA, who are promoted from Group D.
What a crazy end. I mean, look, well, that's going to take some discussion. It's going to take a little bit of a look from race control, I'm sure. But I kind of get the vibe this is only like a theory. I've not seen anything. I don't know. But could you maybe wonder if Tatler was trying to slow down Azildra, was trying to slow down the group to try and bring the opportunity? That's what I would do if I was in Tatler's boots. I would try and slow down all those cars behind to try and potentially bring the opportunity for some more moves being made from Jakub Maciejewski. But in doing so, you're bringing in the risk of being tapped off. And that's exactly what's happened. I don't know if there'll be any penalties, any post-race stuff. But honestly, even if there are penalties, based on what we've seen here, it will still be ERA moving through.
Yeah, I agree, by the way. I think there could be some of that going on. Actually, I ran out of time to say it, but I thought Tatler should have been doing that from earlier on in that race, actually. Just trying to get in the way, do anything. I know it might cost you a penalty, and I know that race control will crack down if you're actively blocking people and you know, causing danger to everybody. You will get penalty, obviously, but I would have, if I was Tatler there, started to do that, because what else can you do? Falcons were in a dire situation. They needed to do absolutely anything they could to try and get promoted there. And unfortunately, it's come to nothing in the end. Let's have a look at some of the highlights, though, from that extraordinary race here from Daytona. The opening lap was really Ibrahim Khan, you would say, further down the back of the field. He went straight through the middle here of a three-wide moment and made up loads of places, partly due to the two Falcons making side-to-side contact here through the chicanes. And here he goes, straight through the middle and straight into position. Suddenly, ERA were right in the picture. This was Bono House, though, going for a spin as he made side-to-side contact with Premisov Lemonek, who would drop to 11th. Further up, Jakub Maciejewski was in a decent position here for Falcons until this spin. Rather done to himself there. He didn't get hit up the rear by anybody, and that put Falcons in a very difficult situation, forced moves like this. Pawlowski had to start getting aggressive, and he did on the outside line, but there was side-to-side contact made, round one way, round the other. He went to the back of the pack, and that would put Falcons in a really difficult situation all of a sudden. Then, of course, it was over as this happened. Thomas Tatler trying to get in the way much as possible. I don't think he was slow at trying to slow them down in the end. Actually, I think he might have just lost the car on his own. But that gave ERA a 1, 2, 3 and 4. Robbie Stableford with his third win of the year, ahead of Ulos Azildrim and his first performance in 2025. A decent evening for him. Michał Smidl and Ibrahim Khan joining them. Jakub Maciejewski was the best of the Falcons, in line with Marco Pajic and Henry Moore, who were part of the Guild Esports team, who finished last again in Group D. Premisov Lemonek was 8th ahead of Thomas Tatler. Bono House, Matt Emery and Kamil Pawlowski rounding out the field after his 5-second time penalty. So far, there are a couple of other investigations ongoing, but it's not likely to affect this. 37 points to the good for ERA. They are promoted to Group C for the very first time.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Guild, unfortunately, scoring just a single point after basically for being the position at 12th. ERA, though, will score a lot better, and part of that is courtesy of this guy here. Robbie Stableford joins us once again in the commentary for the third consecutive round, by the way. 3 victories in the dynamic group phase. That's always a pretty handy one. Although I will say, I'm sure this victory is sweeter than all of the other two combined, even, because not only have ERA got a 1, 2, 3 and 4, not only have you won another race, ERA are going up to Group C. How does that feel? What's the mentality like? What an incredible evening for you as well.
Evening, guys. Yeah, it's a bit late coming to this. I was normally the first one, but yeah, unbelievable to get pole, first ever pole, and then to win, and then to get a 1, 2, 3, 4. Super impressed with the guys. We've changed a bit coming out of Jeddah. Jeddah was a bit disappointing not making it through. And the goal was to make it through to C, so we'll see whether we get through after post-race, but it's looking good at the minute. Yeah, just super happy, really proud of the guys, and only upwards.
You've won 3 races now in the dynamic group phase, as we say, in 2025. How are you enjoying this sort of new competition compared to the other ones you did in R1 last year?
I think it's great. I think it gives, I wouldn't say the bottom group, because we're all as quick as each other, but I think it gives some new people the chance to shine and show what they're actually made of in this different format, and it is good with teamwork and showing other skills off. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving it at the minute. I think this new format's great, so let's see where it carries on.
He set the second fastest lap time of the day so far, and that was in that qualifying session. So we'll have to wait and see what you can do in a couple of weeks' time. Cheers, Robbie. Well deserved, and pass our congrats on to the ERA team.
Cheers, thank you.
What a drive. What a victory as well. And what a pole position. I mean, it was an incredible race there for the ERA team. Like I say, I'm sure there's some bits that need to be ticked off by race control. I's dotted, T's crossed. But it does seem as though ERA are working their way up into Group C. To hammer that home as well, what a disastrous season it's going for Team Falcons at the moment, who could genuinely be looking. We were kind of hinting at it when they were demoted in the opening week, when they were demoted in the second round as well of the dynamic group phase, obviously round number 5 of the championship, and now they've stayed there in round 6. Could Team Falcons genuinely not make it into the Esports World Cup? That would be crazy.
That would be absolutely extraordinary. But in the next couple of weeks, it's entirely possible they start to drop down a little bit and into a bit of a dangerous place with that. They're now going to be on 13 championship points through the dynamic group phase. Williams are going to jump ahead of them, so they're already going to be 8th. We already know that before we've even started racing in 1 week's time. If MSI finish either second, then they'd be tied in Group C. If they finish second in Group C, they'd be tied. If they get promoted from Group C, MSI would move ahead of them as well. If TC Racing get promoted next week, though, from Group C, they would move ahead. They can't both move ahead, obviously, so Falcons could drop one more place down into 9th place at the end of next week's racing. That's what they're staring in the face of at the moment. What an extraordinary set of circumstances after, as I said earlier, not coming that far away from getting promoted to Group A at Fuji.
Yeah, and do remember when we're talking about all of these teams, is effectively once we get to the end of round 8, it will be the top 3 teams that automatically will move through into the Esports World Cup finals for us. And it is the bottom 3 teams that will effectively be out of the Esports World Cup. They will not be in the finals. They will be not going to Riyadh. Those teams in the middle, the 6 teams that will be positioned 4th through 9th, those are the teams that will be moving into the last chance qualifiers in the Esports World Cup. So obviously a lot for them to deal with, a lot for them to focus on. But yeah, for Falcons, it's not looking good at the moment, but there's still a little bit of time, round 7 and 8, for them to turn around their fortunes and maybe throw themselves back into contention. Surely they're going to do well in one of those. And if they do, then that might just be enough. I don't know. It's going to be a tight battle for those that final position to confirm your stay in the Esports World Cup. I do think that 11th and 12th is more or less set. That said, ERA could say absolutely not to that one.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for Falcons is, again, that your sort of points losses are delayed by a week or so when you're promoted or so. And so, as I've already said, Williams, MSI, TC Racing already know they're going to gain points this week on them. Next week, we already know that one of MSI and TC Racing are going to get points over them because they can't both be demoted. One of them's at least going to stay in Group C, so they're going to gain further points on Falcons. We know ERA are going to gain points on them in round 7 as well. That's so many teams below them who we already know are going to score better than them.
Yeah, indeed. It's like I say, it's going to be fascinating indeed. What is fascinating as well is that we're back in qualifying. This is for the final race of the evening, for the final race of Group A. We already basically know that Virtus Pro will be giving the big old salute to Group A as they prepare themselves for a nice trip back down into Group B for round number 7 of the championship in a couple of weeks' time. And of course, it means that it's a battle once again between Porsche Commander and Team Redline. That first sector from Statsenko is not quick.
Not going to be where it needs to be, unfortunately, for Virtus Pro as they try and pull off a very, very unlikely set of circumstances here and try and stay in Group A. No further action and racing incidents so far across all the incidents in Group D, by the way. We'll keep you across that, but it does look like ERA have got enough of a buffer there to go promoted. Whether they will keep their 1, 2, 3 and 4 remains to be seen. But if they do, that'll be the first time that's happened so far in this phase. Here comes Statsenko, though, over the line. That's not bad. That might still be only 12th, though, based on the last race.
Yeah, indeed. This is expected to be quite a close session. The second and final sector there from Statsenko was right on the money. We'll see what Warren can do. First sector, a little bit off where we'd expect, but nothing to major. It's not that bad. Middle sector is again about a 10th or so off, but for the Porsches, they're not so strong in that middle sector anyway. It's the final sector and the first sector where I believe they pick up the most amount of time. But read into that where you will. 0.9 across the line, and it'll be good enough for the pole, but only by a few thousandths of a second.
Is that 0.9 or 0.8? I think I can see 0.8, but maybe we're both blind. Maybe I need glasses. But it is 0.8 apparently, so there we go. I'm safe for now. But Enzo Benito, in the meantime, has gone well in the middle sector, 38.5, and that should be good enough, I think, to get right around Dane Warren here. Should be good enough for a 0.8. Kind of depends what his run through the bus stop chicane was like. We'll see what it was like. Oh no, just a 0.9 from him, and or is that a 0.8? Who knows? Enzo Benito, second place anyway.
Yeah, indeed. It is indeed Warren up then onto the provisional pole position. Jordan Caruso will be the next one to come through, and that second sector is a lot more like it, a 38.462. Trying to challenge the 0.8 from Dane Warren as he'll head up towards the line. Let's see if he can muster his way up onto the provisional pole position. He'll cross the line. Not quite enough. Oh, it's very tight though.
Ridiculous. I said Statsenko could be 12th. I was kind of joking, but maybe he will be. This is outrageous at the moment. 3.8s to the top for Warren, Benito and Caruso. Here comes Sebastian Job. That's middle sector's very good, by the way. But Caruso's actually gone better than him so earlier on in the session. So we are seeing some very, very good times, but what is Sebastian Job's latest edition going to be? It is a 43.8 as well. Unbelievable.
Setting an 8.61 and it being good enough at the moment for only 4th place. And in all likelihood, it will probably get worse than that. So, yeah, that's not so fun. Next one across the line is Joshua Rogers. The first sector a little bit off. The second sector is right on the money. He's playing for, guess what? It's going to be a 0.8. It's going to be another one. A 1 minute 43.8. Could it be a 0.7 though? Let's wait and see what Joshua Rogers can do. As he comes up towards the line, he crosses it, he hits the bar, and it is a 0.7. There we go. Finally. A 0.755. Very impressive from Joshua Rogers.
A small fist pump, and he'll be very, very pleased with that. The race one winner for Porsche Coanda right up there again, as Porsche Coanda now have their final driver coming up towards the line, Charlie Collins. This time is pretty good as well. If they can get all 4 of their drivers in the top 5 here after 7, then they will be very, very pleased and very confident that they can take Group A victory here tonight at Daytona. Collins over the line. It's a 0.8, but it's only 6 for him.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fairly frustrating for him. Here comes Luke Bennett, who struggled a little bit with qualifying thus far this evening, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much better for him as he comes up towards the line. It's a little bit down in the first sector, a little bit down in the second sector. Luke Bennett has been on the final row of the grid in both of the qualifying sessions thus far this evening, and to be fair, with this time across the board, I wouldn't be too surprised if he ends up down there once again across the line. He is behind Stetsenko, still sub 1 minute 44, but that might be on the last row of the grid again.
Yeah, it might be. Darren McCormack is next in line. Are we going to see a session of all 43s, by the way? It's looking a little bit likely at the moment, and that's surely going to be the only time that happens while we're here at Daytona for this part of the dynamic group phase. This is Darren McCormack, though, looking to get Virtus Pro on the map here as far as staying in Group A goes. Can he at least get towards the front row? He can! Oh, great lap time from Darren McCormack. Exactly when they needed it here, Virtus Pro. They're trying to pull off something incredible here, and Darren McCormack's giving them a decent chance of that.
Yeah, indeed. That was a fantastic final sector from Darren McCormack. Now he needs to channel that over to his teammate, Kevin Ellis Jr., who struggled a little bit in the first sector, has done okay in the middle. If we're going to see a session of all 43s, it needs to be a cracking final sector from Ellis Jr. As he works his way up towards the line, he's going to cross it, and it is still going to be a 43. They're good in the final sector, the Virtus Pro Aston Martin. Still, obviously not a great time, but comparatively to the field, but it's good enough for 8th. It's good enough for a 43.
Unbelievably close. 43.8, and he's 8th. What is going on? This is quite remarkable. Jeffrey Rietveld will be next in line. This could be down towards the bottom here with that middle sector, especially. Suddenly, 38.4 has become the norm in the middle sector, if you can believe it. Through into the line then for Rietveld, and it's a 43.9. It's going to be 9th place. Can Wojciech Fiala keep us in the 43s all round?
The first sector is a little bit not great. The middle sector is okay. I think we're on for it, Ewan. I think we're on for it. I think we're on for a whole list of 43s. Let's see what it's going to be from Wojciech Fiala across the line. A 43.755 to beat. That's going to be a tall order. I think it's going to be a 0.9 of some description around where Rietveld and Stetsenko are. Let's see what it is across the line. It is a 0.9, and it's just ahead of Rietveld. It's all 1 minute 43s here at Daytona.
for the second session in a row in Group A. The whole field covered by 1/4 of a second. This has been something quite special here tonight in terms of the speed from all of these drivers at Daytona. As we were speaking, I think it was, I can't remember who it was said earlier, maybe it was Maciejewski, who said that there weren't many corners around this circuit, and that is playing a role in this for sure. But it is still unbelievably impressive from all of these drivers to be so close together. This is the latest of those pole laps, the latest 43.7 from Josh Rogers.
Yeah, stays wide out at turn 1, hooks it in beautifully. Again, tries to be calm on the power, still slams it down a little bit so that you're turning right a touch out of the corner, but nothing too major. Slam it onto the brakes into the international horseshoe, find the later apex, get a nice straight exit again on the power so early, allowing the rear ends to push the car out of the corner. This is exactly how it is done around the Daytona International Speedway. Obviously pinned through the dog leg, get it over the left-hand side, slam it onto the brakes when that service road is on the left-hand side. Of course, the alternate layouts around Daytona, not that they're really used very much, and they are literally just used as service roads. And onto the brakes once again into turn 6. Almost cuts the inside of the corner as he works his way back out and onto the high banks at NASCAR turn number 1. And now just get through the gears up into 6th and just keep it as low as possible. Seen some drivers basically on the yellow line and then wait until you roll it out to the right hand side. You want to make sure that you're basically off of the banking, so you're not climbing the banking when you release the steering. Obviously that will cost you a little bit of time, it's negligible, but still it all adds up. Through the Le Mans chicane with as much commitment as you possibly can muster, keep it as close to the cones as possible, and then back out towards NASCAR 3 and 4. Copy and paste what you did at NASCAR 1 and 2, and then just pin it all the way to the line, keeping it on the double yellow all the way round to the line to secure pole position. It's as easy as that, Ewan. Mr. Purple first, purple second, crash in the third.
Have you not seen those videos recently going around?
No, I've seen loads of them. I just
literally
you on that list, really?
I mean, we've all done it. You know, I didn't say what kind of field it's in. You know, anyone could beat any other kind of field. You know what I mean? There's only a very certain few people who can't win in any field.
Here comes the excuses.
So there you go.
Look, I will again. I always bring it up. I have done some rally against Ewan once, and he was competitive. He was competitive.
I wasn't brilliant at rallying, to be honest with you. I only won that one where it was actually not possible to crash because the walls were either side, sort of jamming you in. You almost jam yourself down the middle of the road, and it wouldn't be possible to be crashed. So it's.
Me and Dan Cowell, Jack London, we were stood there watching you throw the car around. Old Welty Wan behind the wheel, absolutely on the limit, and you kept it. You kept it on the road, and it was very impressive.
There you go. Those are your 2 purple sectors. I didn't throw it away then. One of those ones that did annoy me, by the way, is I saw a video of that recently, and it was. The spin that is featured obviously on all of them. It was from Sector 1 at Circuit of the Americas. That really annoyed me.
Because it's not Sector 2.
It's not accurate. Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's just a bad lap from the start.
Again, the ultimate purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2 crash in Sector 3 is obviously Max Verstappen's lap at Saudi Arabia back in 21. That is the ultimate one, because again, it is probably one of the best laps that I've ever seen in my life. One corner short of absolute perfection, and he clobbered the wall. And the stakes at the time, it was probably one of the best qualifying sessions I've ever seen. It was amazing. Oh, there you go. 4 years ago, if you can believe it. Anyway, back in the real world today, 28 points the gap between Porsche Coanda and Team Redline. That is absolutely crossable for Team Redline, especially if they can put on a performance like what they did in race number 2. The gap between Virtus Pro and Redline is 56, so they're going to need a big swing there. The only real problem, though, for them is they're not on pole position. They are not in the position they were in the previous session. So obviously back then it was Sebastian Job on pole. It was Joshua Rogers alongside in the front row. This time though, it's Joshua Rogers on the front row, and the next Redline car is back there in 4th position. Let's talk you through the grid though for the final race of the evening. Luke Bennett from 12th position with Mikhail Stetsenko in 11th. Jeff Reveld in 10th with Wojtek Fiala in 9th. Kevin Ellis Jr. for the Virtus Pro team will start from 8th position alongside Charlie Collins in 7th. Sebastian Job will start from 6th. Then we've got Jordan Caruso in 5th. Enzo Benito in 4th. And then, of course, the Porsche Commander of Dane Warren will start just behind Darren McCormack, and Joshua Rogers on pole position for the second time this evening. Darren McCormack obviously back on the front row. He did so back in race number 1, where unfortunately he ended up finishing in 11th spot. He wants something slightly better than that this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. We will wait and see just how this final race is going to go. I think we're pretty certain that it's going to be Porsche Commander beating Redline, beating Virtus Pro in this race, but you just never know. We said it time and time again, one spin and suddenly the story can change dramatically.
Indeed. So for the final time this evening, and you can see the live points there in the top right, is Porsche Commander in control, but whoever's going down, whoever's going second, whoever's going first in this group, there's going to be wanting for victory left, right and centre. The 12 cars take to the grid. The 12 cars set off and the final race of the evening is underway. Joshua Rogers leading from pole position, covering off McCormack down to the first corner. Dane Warren's trying to get his way through into second position, and they're all trying to filter their way past Darren McCormack. It's a Porsche Commander 1-2 at the moment, and to the outside goes Jordan Caruso. Darren McCormack is getting those Vietnam flashbacks at the moment as he's seeing Porsche Commander all over him, like what he had back in race 1.
And he's got Enzo Benito right in behind him as well here in towards the International Horseshoe, side-to-side contact with Jordan Caruso. Here comes Warren on Rogers again, or Rogers on Warren rather, in towards the West Horseshoe. This time around, the Porsche Commanders still side by side. In fact, it's like they're doing a formation lap here. They're all running 2 by 2. Now finally it gets sorted a little bit as they all have a look and dive. Collins on Benito, who's nearly up the inside of Caruso, who's on the inside of McCormack. Porsche Commander 1, 2 and 3 out onto the banking.
Yeah, they assert their dominance. They gave everyone hope in race 2 that maybe a little bit of mediocrity will open the door for a red line victory. Alas, they say in race 3, you're joking, mate. It is once again a Porsche Commander 1-2-3, an Australian 1-2-3, as we had in the first race of the evening. They are taking control, clobbering the curve there. Goes Jordan Caruso into the Le Mans chicane. That is potentially going to open him up down into T1.
It certainly will. Charlie Collins is going to be quite open in towards the first corner as well, by the way, his teammate, because Wojciech Fiala is very close in behind, like Darren McCormack is to Caruso out front here. As Enzo Benito just gains now in the slipstream on the way down towards turn 1. He needs to pull out in time here, McCormack, and he didn't. He's getting boxed in now, and Benito is right alongside, so he can't go anywhere, Darren McCormack, although he might have not got anywhere anyway, because the Porsche Commanders running 1, 2 and 3 are safe and secure in those positions.
Yeah, certainly. So, like you say, it's 1, 2 and 3 at the moment for Porsche Commander. Their other driver in 7th position, battling with Sebastian Job, trying to get inside the top 6. We look back to Kevin Ellis Jr., who's trying to stick to the outside of Jeff Reeveld, who started the evening in such good form. He finished in 2nd place in the previous race in a 1-2, as Enzo Benito was able to sneak his way through. At the moment, it doesn't seem as though Reeveld's going to be able to take that victory because he's, way behind it. And also, he's trying to get himself past Kevin Ellis Jr. It's been a struggle to work their way up the order for any of the drivers that's qualified poorly in here, and it's seeming like that's going to continue on in this race. Charlie Collins also trying to get to the inside of Sebastian Job. Can't do it. Sebastian Job remains 6th.
He certainly does. And Redline are sort of middling this race, really. They are not really gaining anything on Virtus Pro, and they're certainly not getting any closer to Porsche Commander, who are going to take a dominant victory in Group A this time round by the looks of it. Look at them, 1, 2 and 3, well out front now from Darren McCormack, who seems to have made a mistake in this lap now. And then Benito right in behind him, not willing to battle with him just yet because he wants this race win in check. Here comes Charlie Collins down the inside of Sebastian Job into the bus stop chicane, and that was all very close. This is going to be a massive run for everybody in behind. 6th place on backwards is carnage.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit chaotic behind the top grouping. That said, doesn't mean the top grouping is going to remain nice and calm all the way to the checkered flag. In fact, I think it's going to get a little bit chaotic up in that group as well. But look at all of this. We'll see the red lines there go to the outside. Jeff Reeveld, Luke Bennett. And look at this. We're 3 rows deep. Side by side. At the head of that is Sebastian Job. And behind that is everyone else. To the outside comes Wojciech Fiala as he tries to get around the outside of Sebastian Job. Can't quite do it, but does tick off Charlie Collins.
How's this going to end in towards the international horseshoe? Not well is probably the answer. Side by side, and Fiala will hold on from Collins. Alongside us here, along board with Kevin Ellis Jr. is, or was, Jeffrey Whitfield. He now took back into line as well. But from 6th place on backwards, this is all very, very close indeed. And they're letting the top 5 get away here. Again, team point differences and changes not likely to happen as a result of any of this.
Yeah, they're all way too spaced out. It will be Porsche Commander taking victory on the round. It will be Team Redline remaining in Group A for the 3rd consecutive round. And it will be Virtus Pro, as they were in round 1, outclassed by the top 2 teams, dropping backwards into Group B. But still, realistically, it's 10 points in the Teams Championship. And that's what they're focused on here, is scoring decently in the Teams Championship so that they can, obviously they'll be looking to be promoted again straight away in round 7. So that they can potentially secure themselves the spot of the automatic transfer into the Esports World Cup, so they don't have to deal with the last chance qualifier. That is the goal for Virtus Pro. That's why they would have been so determined earlier on in the evening to stay in Group A, because it almost confirms that, but not quite. Meanwhile, I think Porsche Commander and Redline are, as near as makes no difference, confirmed for that. Not quite, but nearly.
And they'll be on 35 and 34 points each at the end of today, and it's pretty unlikely they'll be overtaken. Look at this. 3 wide, down in towards turn 1. Kevin Ellis Jr. gets in behind Fiala to try and help him. And Collins on the very outside. He's 3 wide. How did they squeeze through there without trouble? That was amazing. And through goes Sebastian Job into 6th position. Great racing between everybody. That was fantastic. Fiala down the inside again. Bit of a side-to-side contact. That was a bit more aggressive. That was more like it. Charlie Collins is through. Oh, and off. Oh, no! Job off into the grass and he spins in front of the field. How have they got away with that?
Wojciech Fiala, that would be a slam dunk penalty at the International Horseshoe. He's way too aggressive down the inside, little shake of the head. That all kind of unfolded very poorly. Sebastian Job drops down into 12th position. It's all unfolded a little bit. It's all got a little bit chaotic. It's all got a little bit of handbags at dawn. But it's kind of one of those ones that you're looking at it being like, we all know that this is all basically set, and trust me, the drivers all do as well. They're literally just in it for one final race around the Daytona International Speedway. They're all probably, if you put out a questionnaire now to all the drivers, do you want to run the race early? Guarantee all of them will be like, it's all basically done, might as well.
Yeah, might have thought that at the start, to be honest. Maybe with the exception of Redline, to be fair, who could have got ahead of Porsche Commander. But this is not looking good for Redline now as far as winning this round goes. It is just about having a bit of a battle. And I think if there is a race to have a bit of a dead rubber on, there's no better one than this circuit here at Daytona. There are many opportunities for great racing at this circuit, and we're seeing it here, although it is a slightly reduced 6th place group now. Because of all this, in towards turn number 1. How they survived for three wide for so long, I'm not entirely sure. And they're doing it again, by the way, live pictures in the top left of your screen. But as you said, Fiala was very aggressive down the inside, the International Horseshoe later, which was the main problem. There you go.
Yeah, that was a little too deep, I think, for Fiala. He was pinched to the inside, to be fair. And then there was the hip check from Collins coming out of the corner, and that just kind of turned everything up on its head. Yeah, we weren't seeing 2 replays, one picture-in-picture of the same thing or whatever. No, that was one was live and one was a replay. And yeah, like I say, it basically nearly happened once again down into turn 1. Charlie Collins, though, 6th position. Jeff Rietveld dropped down into 7th. As things start to potentially calm down just a touch in this group. One place where it is going to remain calm, most likely towards the front. Joshua Rogers, Dane Warren, Jordan Caruso out comfortably clear from Darren McCormack, now nearly a second and a half, nearly 2 seconds ahead of the Irishman. Slipstream has been broken. The top 3 will take control, and it will be a Porsche 1, 2, 3 up towards the line. I don't believe in the commentators, because that's why I'm happy to say it. Bite me.
They might do if it goes wrong. Meanwhile, the 5th lap continues on and 4 to go after this one. And Kevin Ellis Jr. closes to the back of Rietveld, but he's going to go nowhere in towards the Le Mans chicane again. It's all sort of performed now in towards the end of another lap, and they're all getting closer again for this battle for 6th. So Collins is going to be a bit of a sitting duck. Next in line will be Rietveld. Kevin Ellis Jr. will have help from Statsenko probably, who had a warning earlier on in the race, by the way, for avoidable contact. Next in line, it's going to be Luke Bennett, who's going to look to pick the pieces as well. Now Kevin Ellis Jr. goes for it, and there goes Statsenko with him.
Whoa, that's a big bit of contact there, and Kevin Ellis Jr. was forced up the circuit by Jeff Rietveld, who gets to the outside for 6th position. Charlie Collins on the inside, digs it in deep, sends it in late, tries to hang on to the position. Straight around the outside goes Jeff Rietveld. Brilliant battling as they go through the snake and the S of turn 2, then into the braking zone of the International Horseshoe. The inside line coming in from the red line driver. And it does seem as though this could be the opportunity for Rietveld to squeeze his way past Collins. They're still going to be side by side up towards the dogleg, though.
Oh, not quite. They're just getting single file. Statsenko and Bennett, though, will in towards the West Horseshoe on the brakes, and it will be Bennett who gets the place, you'd think, with Statsenko on the outside line. And Bennett does indeed go through. So this is all back together again, even after the incidents with Wojciech Fiala and Sebastian Job in the last couple of moments. They're all back together again here, and this is going to go to the end of the race by the looks of it.
Well, it's until the end of the race or the next crash, whichever comes first. So we'll have to wait and see. And honestly, I think the odds on either pretty 50-50 at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. Either way, we will be entertained regardless, I'm sure. Darren McCormack and Enzo Benito have switched positions for 4th. Benito did get through on McCormack, but McCormack has got through on the red line driver. They're about 4 seconds clear of the group we were looking at. There is Enzo Benito, who's just chilling.
Absolutely on his own, as far as I'm aware. Oh, no, there's Darren McCormack, just up in front of him. They've just lost the back of the Porsche Commanders, by the way, who are going to finish 1, 2 and 3 here. Another huge points haul for them. Again, we'll need to check this, but over the course of 3 races, they might have the biggest points haul of any team during the dynamic group phase, over 170 points to their name. Here's Statsenko versus Bennett again, though, in towards turn number 1, and there's Collins on the defensive again from Kevin Ellis Jr. That's very wide indeed from the Scotsman, and he's going to drop back behind Rietveld, and they will stay as they are for 9th as well. Statsenko still in behind Bennett.
Yeah, certainly. So, like I say, very close in the battling still for 3 laps left to go. But the thing is, when that's because the points are already basically set, you're looking at Charlie Collins here, and normally you'd be sat there looking at him thinking like, oh my god, his heart's racing. It's through the roof. He's dealing with so much. He looks calm. He looks calm in the middle of the fight, and that is the only problem that I have with this form. We've said, because I actually do agree with what we've said earlier. I think this format is good, it is interesting, it is better in some ways, but this final race in Group A, in all 3 of the rounds so far, it has all been set by the time we get to the final race.
Yeah, but I don't think that's particularly the format's fault, to be honest with you. I think just in the way that any sort of match or race or of any sport can just be boring on one occasion. It just doesn't matter what it is. It could just not be a bit of a dead rubber towards the end, and that's just the way that it works. I think the slight problem is that you've got 2 teams who are head and shoulders above the rest this season. Porsche Commander and Team Redline have really asserted their dominance in a way this year, that they haven't really in previous years. Porsche Commander especially bouncing back from what I'd describe as a bit of a disappointing 2024 in R1. They have been absolutely phenomenal so far in 25, and that's just the way that it's gone really so far this season. Virtus Pro showed signs of competing in race 1 especially, but unfortunately the last 2 have not been quite as good. This time around though, they're trying to make a good fist of it, finishing in the top half at least for Kevin Ellis Jr. Not quite going to happen this time though. Rietveld will hold that place just in front of Charlie Collins, who is in danger of losing 2 places here.
Yeah, indeed, he is being dropped back at the moment. Obviously, he's been passed by Rietveld. He could be passed by Ellis Jr. as well here, but I think he'll hold off Kevin Ellis Jr. as well. He'll drop straight back into line. I will say that the only reason why I say that is because, at least with the previous format, where obviously you go through the semi-finals, you still have the final to look forward to where everything's wide open. Whereas in this, it can be done after I wouldn't say after 1 race, because we've seen enough times where it's like, yeah, it's done, it's basically sorted. And then race 2 happens, you're like, well, okie dokie, it's not. So at least there's that. But yeah, by the time we get into race 3, it's all basically set in stone, and we're basically just watching a little casual race between them. I don't think it's a casual race between some of the best drivers in sim racing, but I just think that needs maybe be a little tweak. But I'm not race control, and I'm not nothing.
But I mean, the final could be a winner driving away by 5 seconds by mile, anyway, and it's a bit of an anticlimax at the end anyway. So it's I get the point a little bit, but I still think in any format you could have a dead rubber at the end of the night, and that's just sort of the way that it goes.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you think driver's mentality, right? Coming into a race where it can be won. Driver's mentality coming into that race is very different to a driver coming into a race where there's nothing to fight for.
Don't see how that's different for us, though.
Well, it's very different.
I don't
We're
know.
going to have an argument. Confirm, ladies and gentlemen, me and Ewan are going to have a big argument once we finish with this broadcast.
I mean, I've enjoyed both the formats. I'm not particularly passionate about either, but yeah, it's. I still think this one has been better. But there you go. Group A, unfortunately, has been settled early. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks' time at Monza, it will be close. At the very least, between Porsche Coanda and Team Redline. Even better, I think, for the neutral like us, would be to see a team really taking it to them and trying to at least stay up before the final week.
100%. That's what this group needs. It just needs one of those teams to have 3 good races, and that's the problem, is that getting 3 good races over these 2 is so brutally difficult, because as you've said, that like between Porsche Coanda and Team Redline, they are far and away more better is such a relative term, because they've, like, all of the other teams, Mouse and Virtus Pro, have both had, they both have drivers that can take on these teams, but it's the ruthless consistency where they fall short.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times now, 3 times in a row, unfortunately. Maybe it would be a new team challenging them in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe it'll be Mouse again. We'll have to find out next week in R1. But yeah, that is what this group really needs here. Redline and Porsche Coanda to really be challenged by one of the teams. But as you've said, and for the reasons why, it's very, very difficult to do that. Let's see, though. We're on the final lap. The run up towards the line. Is it going to be Dane Warren, Josh Rogers, who wins this race? He's smiling.
Yeah, look, I think they're having a little bit of fun. We saw a bit of a drag race between Enzo Benito and Jeff Rietveld. It came down to 3,000 a second. It's not going to be Dane Warren, you'd have to say. They're going to be 3 wide across the line. It's going to be very tight indeed. But Joshua Rogers, for the second time this evening, is your victor by 1/10 of a second over, well, less than, not only his teammate, but his other teammate as well. It is an Australian 1, 2, 3. It's the same order as they were earlier on in the day. It's Josh Rogers ahead of Dane Warren, ahead of Jordan Caruso. Darren McCormack will be in 4th position, ahead of Enzo Benito, and the rest of the drivers across the line in that fantastic battle for 6th. It was all basically done even before they got into this race, at least certainly once they started the race down into the first corner. And Joshua Rogers caps off another successful evening for the team, a 40-second victory in R1.
Yeah, huge point score as well. An average race score of nearly 60 over the course of the night for Porsche Coanda. That is a very, very big score. The group win would have certainly been in doubt at the start of that final race, that much is clear, but Redline's qualifying and in the end race start wasn't quite good enough, and Porsche Coanda's execution on the race was very, very strong there.
Yeah, indeed, and that's just the thing. Yeah, they nailed that final qualifying session, and I think Josh Rogers said, what was it? I think it might be the 2nd, maybe 3rd fastest lap of the day there, obviously to grab himself pole position. Of course, he did have the fastest lap of the day back in race number 1, but still, like you say, Porsche Coanda, when they needed to, they qualified well, they qualified strong, and they raced well. They picked their way through it brilliantly, and I think the important bit was that they, courtesy of some of the drama behind and how they pieced their way through it, they already had a 2-second margin on the group behind, basically by the end of lap 1.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive, really, on for that race. You know, we've seen some great racing here at Daytona, but it has mattered so much about what group you're in, where indeed you start, as we're about to see here.
Well, you can see the inside line. The first car, the second car, the third car, and the fourth car. They're all Porsche Coandas. It was Josh Rogers leading down into the first corner. His teammates Dane Warren and Jordan Caruso trying to find their way up into the top grouping. Dane Warren was able to get past Darren McCormack by the time they got down into turn 3. A little bit of a brush on the rear end of Joshua Rogers. The inside line then was given for Jordan Caruso, who was able to sneak his way through to make it a 1-2-3 for the Porsche Coanda team. Plenty of battling down the order, of course. Luke Bennett, Sebastian Jobe and the likes, they were trying to fight in this battle here with Charlie Collins, with Wojtek Fiala, with Kevin Ellis Jr. as well, all embroiled in this fight up and down. No major instance in the race, though I will say Wojtek Fiala was given a 5-second post-race time penalty for causing a collision. Speaking of which, there it was. Wojtek Fiala straight down the inside, trying to force his way past, this causing a bit of a spin and a bit of a calamitous moment, forcing Enzo Benito, I believe it was, down the order. There were obviously plenty of times where they were going 2 and 3 wide down into the first turn. And of course, on this occasion, it was Kevin Ellis Jr. Hanging on for the moment. And of course, a bit of a moment on the exit of the corner. Charlie Collins was able to work his way through. Bit of a drag race up towards the line once more. And the fighting would indeed continue. Obviously, way behind. Obviously, the battle for 6th position. Side by side between them, it was, of course, the red line just about getting ahead of the group, all having a bit of a fight for banter, whilst these three were running away at the front of the field. Joshua Rogers across the line to take victory for the second time this evening. It's Rogers ahead of Dane Warren, ahead of Jordan Caruso, a 1-2-3 for the Porsche Commander team, as it was the same 3 in the first race. Darren McCormack in 4th position with Enzo Benito ahead of Jeff Riefeld. Charlie Collins in 7th position with Luke Bennett, Kevin Ellis Jr., Mikhail Statsenko. Sebastian Job on his return to the championship has not had quite the fortuitous run as he has done previously. And Wojtek Fiala in 12th. Let's chat though for the second time this evening to Joshua Rogers for a 42nd victory in R1. That one looked kind of fun, to be honest. You'd basically done all the work in qualifying. The team were in a comfortable position to win the round, and you had a little bit of fun up towards the line there with your teammates. How was that for you?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Honestly, like the way that race panned out was just spectacular. We put the laps together in quali when we needed to, position the cars well on the first lap to get us kind of 1, 2, 3, and from there on, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're able to just slowly skip away. I think also the cars behind were working together to try and keep up, but we were working like a well-oiled machine, and it's fantastic. Maybe a little bit boring to watch, but from my side, very, very fun.
I've got to say, we didn't see very much of the three of you throughout that race, and I'm sure you can understand why. How has 2025 been for you guys in the team so far? I think it's maybe the obvious thing to say that you've been the strongest team so far this season, but a bit of a contrast to 2024, certainly as a whole as a team. How has 2025 been maybe different to last year?
I think for sure there's no doubting that as a team we're a bit stronger. Obviously we've had some changes. Also Luke coming on board as our performance engineer, helping get the most out of us as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think in general, we've just been able to put it together a little bit more often, and honestly these formats are probably also helping us in these situations too. You find yourself racing more of the same car, which in some cases, if the bop is good or not so good, it can kind of get you out of some sticky situations sometimes. Whereas in the formats from last year, obviously, you could see yourself knocked out in the quarterfinal and never get to see your teammates. So that definitely changes things a little bit, and it probably also boosts the motivation a little bit more too. And I don't know. It probably just makes it a little bit more exciting for us, which helps keep us motivated.
Well, before we let you go, let's talk a little about where you're racing, because obviously we've seen the Porsche Commander House racing from there, we've seen the Porsche facility racing from there. Where are you racing from now? Talk to us about this facility. There seems to be a lot of chat in the background as well. What's the deal?
Yeah, we've moved. Obviously, we're in Cologne now. At the tongue twister, Porsche Esports Performance Porsche Esports Performance Center, something, I don't know. I'm probably losing my job for getting that one wrong. But in collaboration with Trilux, we've been able to build a fantastic facility here. Obviously a big emphasis on light, with their brand being all about that in professional settings, and it's honestly been fantastic so far, and a great collaboration that helps us do something different, and also I guess similar to what we've had in the past, obviously, but on a whole different scale. So it's really cool, and massive credit to everyone in the background that's made this happen over the past 6 to 8 months. It's been a lot of work in the making, but we're here now, and it's safe to say this tonight was a nice debut.
Well, the newest sim racing free agent as Josh Rogers sacked from Porsche Commander for not getting the facility name right. Cheers, Josh. Congratulations on yet another victory.
Cheers, guys.
There we go. Superb stuff. And again, what a fun evening of racing. Josh Rogers on top once again. And it's not a shock. He looked comfortable. And like I say, win number 42. He keeps ticking them off, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He certainly does, and that is no surprise, I suppose, based on what we knew coming into 2025. He's only continued that on as well now. So Porsche Coanda and Team Redline effectively have secured themselves 4 weeks now in Group A. Surely that will accumulate them enough points to see them at the Esports World Cup. But a valiant effort from Virtus Pro again, especially in the first race. Unfortunately, in the second and third, things started to fall apart, and that gap looks large at the end. They go 133 off of the victory. I think the big story tonight is down the bottom, isn't it? ERA getting promoted out of Group G. What a great story for them.
That was the huge story. For race 1, it was looking like maybe Redline were going to get beaten by Virtus Pro, but then everything kind of stabilised a little bit in race 2. Like you say, ERA, that 1, 2, 3, 4, the first one of 2025, that was the big story back in Group D. Of course, we'll be back in 1 week's time for both Groups B and C here at the Daytona International Speedway. And I'm sure that will be as chaotic as expected, because we're dealing with promotion and relegation from each of the groups. So for tonight, for the excellent racing, for the fantastic victory there for Porsche Commander, Virtus Pro, they'll be dropping down into Group B. For ERA, they'll be promoting up to Group C in a couple of weeks' time. And for myself, Lewis McGlade from Ewan O'Leary, we're not promoting or relegating anywhere. We're just staying right here in the comedy booth. We'll hopefully see you in a week's time. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.